Chapter 776. The so-called planning before acting is actually psychology. I called you here today to discuss this matter with you. After Zhang Feng finished speaking, Wei Jing, Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin asked in unison, "What is this psychological warfare you speak of?" "That's not right." Wei Jing added, "It's psychology. Could this be a new subject in your academy?" Zhang Feng rubbed his forehead and said, "It can be considered a new subject in my academy. However, let's not talk about this today. Let's talk about paper first. How much do you think this paper should be sold for?" 1,000. No matter what, it can't be lower than Shen paper. Old man agrees too. Old man thinks that it's appropriate to sell this paper for 1,000 strings of cash. However, do you think anyone will buy it? The few of them spoke one after another. Li Qingqian and the others nodded in contemplation, frowning occasionally. Zhang Feng, on the other hand, was eating and drinking the entire time with a smile without saying a word. After a long time, Zhang Feng said, "Actually, I initially wanted to sell this paper for 1,000 strings of cash. But after thinking about it, Li Gan, you also know the cost of this thing, so I felt that 100 copper coins would be the most appropriate. But I also felt that if I really did that, it would definitely benefit other profiteers. So I divided the paper mill's shares into 6 portions, one for each family. What about me? Also, what about Old Wei?" Yu Qigong could not take it anymore and hurriedly stepped forward. He was extremely jealous of the paper mill. Not to mention the paper mill, just the salt mine alone was enough to make these old fogies rich. That was only 10% of the shares. Now there was the paper mill as well. Heavens! It was already good enough that he could choke Zhang Feng and ask him for it. When Zhang Feng heard this, he said, "Don't worry. Since we're all here, we're all brothers. We'll temporarily split the paper-making workshop like this. However, I'll leave the issue of selling to you. I only want 700 copper coins. As for how much you sell, I don't care." When Yu Qigong heard this, his eyes, which were as big as copper bells, instantly narrowed into crescents. Although he didn't get 10% of the profits, what the F***ck was this? This was even more profitable than the dividends they had received. It was simply a huge profit. Even if he sold it for 1,000 copper coins per caddy, he would still be able to earn 300 copper coins. Oh my god. Is this the manifestation of my Yuqi clan's ancestor? Compared to Yu Qigong's excitement, Qin Xiong was a little better. Seeing this, he also cupped his fists in excitement. "Little friend, don't worry. Old Wei will take this matter to heart. I definitely won't accept too much. I'm selling it at a discount." When Yu Qigong heard this, the thoughts in his mind instantly vanished. Wei Zheng and the others didn't mind. Li Qingqian, on the other hand, couldn't sit still. "Feng Zi, if they all have one, then what about me? How about me?" When they heard this, half of the fire in their hearts was extinguished. Right, if they all had one, then what about the crown prince? What about the emperor? This was distributed according to family members. How could the emperor be the same as them and only get 10% of the profits? Zhang Feng hadn't thought that far. He thought about it and said, "You and your father will each get 10%. When he heard this, Li Qingqian sat there happily and counted with his fingers. The others also felt a little more at ease. Cough cough, Feng Zi, have you forgotten that there's still the matter of the honorary vice president?" Zhang Sun Wuji waited for the others to finish speaking before asking leisurely. Zhang Feng's eyes instantly widened. Right, how could he have forgotten about that old man? What the F***ck? After some thought, Zhang Feng said, "Well, when Lao Li delivers the things he promised me, I'll arrange it myself." Enough talk, let's drink. Wait a moment. After they finished dividing the spoils, Wei Jing held down Zhang Feng's chopsticks and asked with a smile, "Now that we've finished talking, can you tell us why you didn't give us the paper? If this gets out, Lao Li and the rest of us will lose face in Chang'an City. You're not a good brother." When Zhang Feng saw that they had brought the topic back to this, he knew that he couldn't avoid it. He could only sigh and say, "I know how you feel, but you should know that this is not something I can decide. Once the white paper is released, it will inevitably have a conflict of interest with the 4 major paper mills in Chang'an City and the Ministry of Works. The reason why I didn't give it to you was that Old Li broke his promise to me. Most importantly, I didn't want to get you involved in this. Do you know why I gave it to the 4 great scholars?" When they heard this, they shook their heads. Even if they had their own thoughts, they didn't dare to make wild guesses. That's because, as great scholars, they come from aristocratic families with big businesses. With the 4 great scholars standing in front of them, why do you insist on sticking your heads in front of them? I know that you have some connections in the officialdom, but can you compare to the 4 scholars? Even the emperor has to treat them with respect. They have a lot of disciples and whatnot. If they were to announce that this thing was useful, even if it was a pile of dog poop, people would rush to get it. But what about you? You're just merchants. Once you're involved in this matter, even if you don't get killed, you won't be able to escape. Do you understand? Chapter 777. They were not fools. On the contrary. To be able to get to the position of duke. How could they not know these things? But Zhang Feng did not know their identities. If he knew, he would not dare to say so. The key problem was that the boy did not know yet. From the perspective of a businessman, Zhang Feng was really maximizing his own safety and their safety by doing so. He did not want them to become the target of the aristocratic family's anger. But it was different this time. This time. They only needed to think for a moment to realize that paper's interests were not something that a few Confucian scholars could handle. But Zhang Feng was just minimizing the risk. As for whether Zhang Feng had a backup plan, they did not know yet. But after talking for so long, this boy did not seem to give them anything. Zhang Sun Wuji narrowed his eyes, the chopsticks in his hand knocked on the plate and said, "Fengzi, you have talked for so long. Even if you give us a little of this paper, it will be easy for us, right? Such a good thing, do you think we should give it to you or not? We want to take some back now." While speaking, Zhang Sun Wuji sighed and said with a bitter smile, "To be honest, last night my wife was angry because of paper blank. That was why we quarreled for the whole night. She asked me to take some back. You also know that women have nothing to do, so all they do is follow the people in the market and compete with each other. Previously, when Jia Chongzi came to the mountain, all the neighbors knew about it. Now there's paper buy, but we didn't know about it. This has made my wife lose face. If I can't bring her back today, Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. They all came up with the trick of injuring themselves. That's right, Fengzi. My wife is a famous tigress. Last night I was drinking with Lao Li and the others. That guy rushed in, twisted my ear and dragged me home. Look at my ear, look how red is it. Qing Yaojin pointed at his blackened earlobe and twisted it before saying. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that his cancer was acting up. Isn't that so? Look, all of us were drinking together last night. Ever since old Chen's shrew came, almost everyone came. This made us lose face. Zhang Feng pursed his lips as he listened to their bitter drama. He said in a speechless manner, "Everyone, now that I've distributed the profits of the paper mill, why don't you all just take it yourselves?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Then he stood up and ran away in ecstasy. Zhang Feng hurriedly called out to the few people and said, "However, the paper for these 4 great scholars every month has to be provided by you all." What? Didn't you just say that it would come from your share? How did it become? Everyone was instantly displeased. 200 pounds of paper per person per month. Although it wasn't much, it was still money. But Zhang Feng didn't care. If he had to pay for everything, wouldn't he suffer a huge loss? I don't care about that. You've all seen it for yourselves. What little I have is only enough for the daily expenses of the academy. How can I have any more? You don't want the reputation of the academy to be tarnished because there's no paper to use, right? If outsiders know that I, Zhang Feng, only care about selling paper to make money and don't care about the use of the academy, what will the world think of me? Everyone heard this and pondered for a moment. Wei Jing asked, "Why do you need so much paper? Printing textbooks, students' daily writing practice, homework, which one doesn't need paper?" Wei Jing opened his mouth. He really didn't understand what this academy was teaching. It was completely different from what was taught in any academy in the Great Tang. What kind of academy would need so much paper? And such white paper? Wasn't that cheap straw paper good to use? Wasn't wooden planks good to use? Why did they have to use such good white paper? If they weren't prodigal, what were they? Wei Jing sighed. Well, since that's the case, the paper for the 4 of them can be counted as ours. Let's go take the paper home now. Otherwise it will be troublesome if we get back late. As they spoke, they hurried off again. Li Qingqian and the others also took the opportunity to slip away. They had no choice. If they didn't go, these masters probably wouldn't even be able to enter the door of the paper mill. How could the old village chief personally guard the door, who valued paper more than their lives? If they went like this, it would be strange if their legs weren't broken. Zhang Feng looked at them in a hurry and was speechless. But at this moment, Yu Qigong seemed to have thought of something. He hurried back again. Fengzi, I have something to discuss with you. What do you think? Zhang Feng stared at Yu Qigong with some vigilance. After observing for a long time and finding nothing unusual, he said, "Tell me about it." Well, don't worry about anything. I just think that my son is in the academy, right? I want him to follow you. What do you think? In this way, if anyone wants to bully you, they can guarantee that they will beat up whoever you point at. There's also a boy surnamed Nyo. That boy is not bad. He's a good fighter. So, you're treating my place as a thug concentration camp? You beat up whoever you don't like? Then can I let your son beat you up? Without waiting for Zhang Feng's reply, Yu Qigong had already rushed off to chase after Wei Zheng and the others. He said from afar, "It's settled then. Tonight I'll let them stand guard for you. Go away. Lao Tzu, this is the academy." The academy. It's not a thug concentration camp, nor is it a bandit den. If you dare to get it, I'll pack it up and send it back to you. You're not allowed to take half a step into the academy. Chapter 778. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to finish speaking. By then Yu Qigong had already disappeared without a trace. He didn't know if he had heard him. Zhang Feng was extremely depressed. He couldn't even deal with Gao Kan's. Gao Kan was like a wooden stake. Whenever he had nothing to do, Gao Kan would stand in front of him. If he didn't instruct him to do something else, Gao Kan would stand behind him for the entire day. There was no connection at all with Gao Kan and the famous generals of the Tang dynasty. Was this the Gao Kan who made the Turks tremble in fear? This was simply, he was a wooden block. Now it was good. They had a fight before and now they were together again. There was also a guy with the surname Nyo whom he had never seen before. It seemed that they could put together a table of mahjong. He had wanted to eat something more. Now Zhang Feng had no appetite at all. Looking at the bustling market, which was like the east and west market of Chang and city, Zhang Feng could only stroll slowly amidst everyone's flattery, aimlessly thinking about his miserable life in the future. "Nice to meet you, teacher." "Teacher, do you want to take a look at the new good stuff?" "Director, we are guests from afar. This is the immortal ointment. Do you want some?" "Lord Ju, this is the best ivory. It was used by the noble Persian craftsman." Zhang Feng acted as if he didn't hear the shouts. But he was annoyed. The short man in colorful clothes took the opportunity to take out a black fist-sized thing from his arms and handed it to Zhang Feng. "Lord Ju, try this. I guarantee that you can become an immortal with just a little fire." Zhang Feng frowned when he heard that. He took the immortal ointment from the man's hand and looked at it. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. "Where did you get this thing from?" Seeing Zhang Feng speak, the man hurriedly said, "I am a businessman from Dashi. This is a popular treasure in Dashi. Let me ask you, when did you come to the Tang dynasty? How many of these things entered the Tang dynasty?" Zhang Feng did not care about anything else. He only cared about how much of the immortal bomb had entered the Tang dynasty. Hearing this, the man instantly said proudly, "At present, only I have some in my hands. It took me a lot of effort and dozens of my men's lives to travel thousands of miles to the Tang dynasty." "How much?" Zhang Feng asked. That person simply said, "If you like it, Lord Ju, this thing is free. I've been in Chang'an for 3 days and I've heard a lot about you, Lord Ju. That's why I'm here to give you my most precious gift." Zhang Feng didn't pay any attention to the Dashi merchant. Instead he looked around his stall. After confirming that there was only one, Zhang Feng let out a sigh of relief. However, he was also somewhat alarmed. Dashi. Black-clothed Arabia. At this time, in this era, the strength of the country was comparable to that of the Tang dynasty. He only knew that black-clothed Arabia had entered the Tang dynasty during the Liji era. However, he didn't expect that black-clothed Arabia had already begun to infiltrate at this time. Moreover, they even created this thing that would cause panic in the future world. Their intentions were really hateful. What did black-clothed Arabia want to do? Could it be that my name, Zhang Feng, and the things created by Lao Tzu have spread to black-clothed Arabia? Or could it be that my transmigration caused a butterfly effect? No matter which it was, Zhang Feng couldn't help but be alarmed at this time. "This is a banknote worth 10 taels of silver. If there are more in the future, continue to send it to me." Zhang Feng didn't care too much. He directly took out a banknote and said, "I don't like anything else, but this is my favorite. If you come across it, please send it to me. I'll buy it at double the price." As he spoke, Zhang Feng didn't have time to do anything else. He waved at a person from Tonghui Square who was buying things in the distance. "Immediately go find Cheng Tiniu and the others and give this to them. Remember, no matter what, don't keep it for yourself. This thing must be known by others. This is something that will cause the 9 generations of your family to be executed. Quickly go and have him find someone. If they ask, tell them to spread out and search for this thing at all costs. Especially the trade route from Longyu to Chang'an. If you see it, burn it in front of them. If they have any questions, I will tell them tonight." That person's expression suddenly changed. He didn't care about anything else and hurriedly went up the mountain. Immediately after, Zhang Feng and the black-clothed Arabian merchant talked for a while. After confirming that this was really all that was left in the Tang dynasty, he slowly left. However, the thing that he was thinking about the most in his mind was still Ma Faizan. However, this was a matter for the future. It was useless to think too much about it now. He didn't know whether this was the doing of the landowning clans or something else, but he was certain of one thing. White Deer College had attracted attention. This wasn't a good thing. "Boss, there's good vanilla here. Do you want it?" However, at this moment, a voice abruptly interrupted Zhang Feng's thoughts. In front of him was a Persian carrying a bundle of vanilla, blocking Zhang Feng's path. Zhang Feng was about to get angry, but in the end, his gaze froze the instant he saw the vanilla. Chapter 779. To be more precise, Zhang Feng's gaze was fixed on the few weeds in the bundle of vanilla. Zhang Feng had already been extremely vexed by the matter of the immortal cream. But now, his thoughts had instantly shifted from the immortal cream to the grass. How much is this? When the Hu merchant saw Zhang Feng speak, he instantly became so excited that even his curved beard trembled. "Sir Dean, if you like it, this bundle and this cart will only cost you 5,000 strings of cash." Zhang Feng looked in the direction that the Hu merchant was pointing. Under a tree not far away on a cart, there were 3 bundles of dried vanilla. To be more precise, it was a type of large-leafed grass that Zhang Feng was looking at. Looking at this thing, Zhang Feng felt a bit of heartache. In an instant, the scene of him hiding in the toilet to avoid his teacher's smoking appeared before his eyes. Under everyone's incredulous gazes, Zhang Feng took out a stack of banknotes. With a glance, it seemed to be around 100 taels of silver. The Hu merchant was so frightened that he knelt down and thanked him. As for Zhang Feng, he indifferently walked to the handcart. He did his best to make himself appear less agitated as he casually fiddled with the hay. In the end, he placed his hand on an empty piece of tobacco, which was the bundle of vanilla in the Hu merchant's arms. He asked, "Is this also vanilla?" The Hu merchant was stunned for a moment before saying, "This is not vanilla. You also know that the journey from the outside world to the Tang dynasty is more than 1,000 li. This kind of grass is very good at absorbing water and resisting moisture. Moreover, the pungent smell on it can double the fragrance of vanilla. Thus, this little one often wraps this kind of grass on top of vanilla. Do you have seeds?" "The seeds of this kind of grass?" Zhang Feng took out a piece of tobacco and looked at it. The Hu merchant didn't understand what Zhang Feng meant. After thinking for a while, he rummaged around in a linen bag in front of the cart for a long time. Only then did he take out a large handful and hand it over to Zhang Feng. "Since you like it, it just so happens that I collected the seeds of this grass when I was harvesting the herbs. I haven't had the time to put them at home yet. If you like them, I can give them all to you." As the Hu merchant spoke, he directly took out the things inside the cloth belt and gave half a bag of tobacco to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng forced himself to calm down. "Very good. How much did I give you just now?" Zhang Feng looked at the banknotes in the beard's hand and felt a bit of heartache. Just now, he was so excited that he directly took out a bunch of banknotes and forgot how much it was. At this time, the beard heard him and said, "There's a total of 300 taels." Zhang Feng interrupted him and continued to ask, "Do you have a lot of these things over there?" "Many, they are all over the mountain." The bearded man answered truthfully. After all, he had met a rich man, how could he dare to neglect him? Moreover, he was a noble viscount of the Tang dynasty and the dean of the academy. He did not dare to neglect him. "I need this kind of grass. As you can see, my academy is being built. I need this kind of grass that is strong in absorbing water and moisture-proof. Go back now. I don't want any herbs. You said that you have a lot of them. I want a lot of them now. You should be able to make a lot of money. How much do you think I can buy with this money?" The beard was a little confused. These were things that even cows and horses would not eat on weekdays. What on earth did this lord of the Tang dynasty want to do? Did he want so much? But he did not have time to think too much about it. After all, everyone knew what happened on the mountain now. The Hu merchant did not even think about it and said, "If it's the honorable dean, you can wait. Within 3 days I will collect all the herbs from all the merchants in Chang'an. For the time being there may be more than 100 caddies. You can use it first. After a month, the money is enough to buy all the herbs in our tribe." "How much?" "At least 1,000,000 caddies." "Well, if there is really so much, you can send them all." "I want them all. When the time comes, I will give you another 100 taels. How about that?" When the Hu merchant heard this, he was so excited that his teeth were chattering. He hurriedly bowed his head and kowtowed. "The dean is really benevolent and righteous. You are the savior of my tribe." Zhang Feng did not want to talk nonsense with him. The point was that now, when the merchant saw that Zhang Feng had taken the most common herb and had taken a fancy to this inconspicuous herb, they all surrounded him crazily. At this time, Zhang Feng regretted not bringing Gao Can with him. That guy was big and burly. If he did not speak, he only needed to stand there and he would be a natural bodyguard. But it was too late to say anything now. Zhang Feng could only admit defeat. Holding a large pile of tobacco, he said with a solemn expression, "Everyone, I still have something important to do today. If you come across any treasures tomorrow, you can come here. I will come back tomorrow. How about that?" Without waiting for anyone to react, Zhang Feng scampered off. As he ran, the smell of tobacco filled the tip of his nose. Zhang Feng laughed so hard that his teeth could not be contained. Good stuff, this was really good stuff. He had a premonition that once this thing came out, it would be. Who would be the first big smoker? Not to mention anything else. At the very least. He had not smelled such a tempting smell for almost a year. He really wanted this thing too much. Big cigarettes, this was a good thing to comfort the loneliness in the middle of the night. It was a rare treasure. It was a treasure that belonged to men. Chapter 780. Zhang Feng didn't care about anything else. He hurriedly went up the mountain. The first thing he did was to find Gao Can, who was helping at the pig slaughtering farm. After bringing him back to the mountain, he gave him a strict order. "From now on, I'll give you 10 minutes to eat, drink, and use the toilet. After you're done, before I come out, if anyone comes, tell them that I'm researching something good and that they shouldn't disturb me. Understand?" Gao Can used his blood-stained hand to wipe his nose, nodded his head, and turned to leave. Zhang Feng opened his mouth and gave Gao Can a thumbs up. Then he turned around and closed the door with a bang. As soon as he entered the door, Zhang Feng couldn't wait to put the tobacco on the table. He picked up the white paper that Yu Shernan and the others put on the table and began to cut it. Then he pondered and used his eyes to look for what he needed in the room. At the same time, when Zhang Feng entered the door, Yu Shernan and the others also encountered a problem and quarreled with Zheng Tufu. They were right next to the waterfall. Zheng Tufu almost used his knife. "I say, old man, you're really shameless. This is the villa area that Feng Zi said. Without his permission, no one is allowed to mess around here. You guys didn't do anything. Not only did you point and talk about it, but you also forced to buy this house. Do you know who this house belongs to? It's our dean's." Yu Shernan also couldn't take it. When had he been pointed at and scolded by a lowly butcher like this? He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. "Fool. You're really a fool. We were just talking about it. We didn't say that we were going to move here. Why are you so against us?" "Against?" Zheng Tufu laughed rudely. "You old things bullied Feng Zi just because you're a great scholar. Don't think that I don't know. When you came out, Feng Zi ran away in anger. Yes, you're high and mighty. We can't afford to offend you, but we're also human. Do we deserve to be bullied by you? Fool. You're really infuriating, old man." Yu Shernan was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Initially they were in a good mood. The more they looked at the academy, the more they liked it. They had never seen such an architectural style and structure before. The few of them were really thinking about whether they should ask Zhang Feng for a house. After all, they were going up the mountain. They definitely couldn't be careless about where they lived. But who would have thought that their conversation would be overheard by this boorish fellow? He pointed at their noses and scolded them. How could anyone endure this? At this moment, Yu Shernan and the others were so angry that their faces turned pale. "Boorish man, don't try to hurt people with your words. The old man has taught and educated people all his life. This time it was your headmaster who personally invited him up the mountain. If he is unwilling, we can leave. Don't humiliate us here." Zheng Tufu couldn't take it anymore. The quarrel here was also heard by the construction workers in the villa area. This was especially true for Cheng Chimo. When he heard the quarrel and looked around, he was scared out of his wits. How could he dare to delay? She scampered over. "Get to work. Whoever dares to slack off will have no food today." Cheng Chimo shouted angrily. He called Zhang Sun, Chong, and Wei Shuyu and hurried over. Sun Simiao, who lived not far away, also heard the quarrel. Because he couldn't see clearly, his expression changed drastically after he listened carefully. "Tang, come with me over there quickly." He recognized the voice. It was Yu Shernan's voice. He also knew that the other voice belonged to Zheng Tufu. He didn't understand why a great scholar and a butcher were quarreling. When the crowd hurried over to mediate the quarrel, Zheng Tufu became even more agitated. He tore open his shirt and pointed at Yu Shernan and the others. "You're all here. You're just in time. Come and be the judge. What kind of great scholar is this? He asked the headmaster for things the moment he came up the mountain. He wants this and that, and now he's even thinking about the villa we built for the headmaster. Look at what kind of place the headmaster is living in now. Is that a place for people to live? A wooden house. Even I am living in a brick house, but the headmaster would rather give it to us than live in it himself. What is this? This is the model of a teacher. What about them? Enough. Shut up. Impudent. Following a few angry shouts. Only then did Jing Tufu shut his mouth in displeasure. Wei Shuyu and the others stared at Yu Shernan and the others in horror. For sirs, please don't blame him. He doesn't know what's going on, so he was just deceived. Please don't lower yourself to his level for the sake of Lao Li and Feng Zi. I've already sent someone to inform Feng Zi about this. Brother Bashi, trust me. Don't be angry. It's bad for your health. Let's go to my bamboo house and have a seat. Let's talk about this properly. Although Sun Simiao didn't know what had happened, he could tell from Jing Tufu's words that something was amiss. Although he still didn't know what was going on, it seemed like something big happened at the mountain gate. And at this moment, Zhang Feng, who had just lit a homemade cigar, was called open by a cry outside the door. Feng Zi, bad news. Something happened. Jing Tufu is pointing at the noses of the 4 great scholars and scolding them. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's vision turned black and he almost fainted. Mother ***, why is he causing trouble for Lao Tzu every day? Let's go quickly. Chapter 781. When Zhang Feng arrived. Basically, only the people from Tonghui Lane and Zhang Feng's diehard fans were left blocking Sun Simiao's door. It was as though if Yu Shernan and the rest dared to come out, they would rush up and beat them up without hesitation. It was unknown if the people from Guangzhou were always like this or if they were just too straightforward. Once they set their mind on something, even 10 bulls would not be able to pull them back. For example, now, Cheng Chimo used both soft and hard tactics, but no one shook him off. What are you all doing? Are you all very free? At this moment, Zhang Feng arrived, panting. When Jing Tufu and the rest saw Zhang Feng, it was as though they had found a pillar of support. Fengzi, you're finally here. Come and be the judge. These 4 old men have been pointing at this place the moment they arrived. They even said that we're slacking off and insisted on having your villa. Tell me, where are you living now? You're the director, and this villa was built for you by everyone. How can you let others covet it? Old Jing is right. You're the face of Tonghui Lane and the dean of the academy. How can the dean's house be taken by others? All right. Stop it. Zhang Feng also understood what was going on. He did not say much. These people were doing it for his own good and could not bear to see him suffer. He clasped his fists and said, Feng Zi thanks everyone here. This is just a place to stay. Have you all heard of the story of Zhuge Wulong? Who is Mr. Zhuge? He's one of the best people in the 3 kingdoms. When they heard Zhang Feng mention the 3 kingdoms, everyone could not help but widen their eyes and look at Zhang Feng. Even those who had been paying attention to this place, including the women and children of the craftsmen, gathered around. Even Sun Simiao and the rest in the room stopped talking and listened carefully. Clearly, Yu Shernan and the rest's anger had mostly dissipated. Everyone should have heard of the 3 kingdoms. You should know the story of Mr. Wulong, right? Especially 3 visits to the thatched cottage. Who is this Mr. Zhuge? I don't think I need to say more, right? Everyone nodded vigorously. There were even people who urged Zhang Feng to say something. Zhang Feng felt that he was being treated as a storyteller, but there was nothing he could do. He didn't know what the people inside were doing. Perhaps this was a test given to him by the people inside. Zhang Feng continued, speaking of which, Mr. Wulong is so famous. Do you think he doesn't have money? Impossible. A man's shadow is the bark of a tree. Otherwise, who would know which broken thatch he lived in? Am I right? Therefore, those who live in thatched cottages are not necessarily poor. They could also be those great scholars or those great experts. Let's not talk too much. Let's talk about Mr. Yushan. Perhaps you don't know him, but this is the academy. After work at night, you can ask any student. Ask around. Mr. Yushan is now living in a thatched cottage on Yushan Mountain in Yushan County. Let's not talk about others. Let's talk about this divine doctor. As Zhang Feng spoke, he pointed behind him and said again, Isn't Dr. Sun awesome? Of course. He can bring the dead back to life. Someone answered excitedly. Zhang Feng clapped and said, That's right. Think about it. Dr. Sun can enter and leave the palace freely. How can he lack money? How can he be less rich than those people in Chang, and who only have a little money but are awesome? No. But you should have heard that before Dr. Sun came to Shao Mountain, He had been practicing medical skills in Wutai Mountain. He dealt with medicinal herbs and thatches all day long. He even went to Qinling Mountain all day long and never came out. Is he short of money? Whenever he said that he needed some medicinal herbs, would those people who were waiting in line to curry favor with him not send them to his door? Everyone was fascinated by his words. Even the people inside the door were stroking their beards and chuckling. However, Zhang Feng continued, "Tell me, is Dr. Sun the kind of person who often pesters people for a small shelter? Look at now, especially you, old Zhang. Look at what Dr. Sun is living in now. It's a bamboo house. Did he mention anything about a place to live?" At this time, Yu Shernan and the others in the room looked a little strange. "So you're flattering Dr. Sun in a roundabout way and you're also insulting us?" However, Zhang Feng didn't know that. He continued, "Now Mr. Bo Shi and the others are just commenting on the construction of Maishao Mountain. Even if they want to live there, they have to wait until the house is built, right? Don't tell me that they want to live there just because they made a joke and said that they want to live there. Do they want to live in this half-built open space? What are you thinking?" Day by day. Zheng Tufu suddenly understood. His face turned red. Then they said, Zhang Feng sighed and said, "A house is just a place to shelter them from the wind and rain. However, these scholars who just came up the mountain don't have a place to shelter them from the wind and rain. They don't even have a thatched hut. What do you think they should do? If it were you, wouldn't you also find a place to build a thatched hut first?" When everyone heard this, they came to a sudden realization. So, they were just looking for a place to stay tonight. They weren't snatching the house from the dean. Seeing this, Zhang Feng said with some anger, "Do you understand now?" "Yes. We thought too much. We thought that he wanted to snatch your house." Zhang Feng's face turned serious. "If you understand, then hurry up and find a place for Mr. Bo Shi and the others to stay. Do you really want others to know that our White Deer College is mistreating the scholars tonight?" Chapter 782. Everyone's face changed when they heard that. Although they didn't study, the names of these people were as famous as the emperor. If this spread out, wouldn't they be stabbed in the back? At the thought of this, everyone scattered in an instant. Cheng Chumo and the others also prostrated themselves in admiration and gave him a thumbs up. Zhang Feng just pursed his lips. "What are you waiting for? Get lost and wait for me. I'll teach you a lesson later. I don't want you to be so idle that you can't even handle such a small thing. You're Zhang Feng's brothers. Shame on you." Cheng Chumo and Zhang Sun looked at each other and ran away in an instant. Zhang Feng took a deep breath, rubbed his face and forcefully squeezed out a wisp of a smile before entering the bamboo house. As soon as he entered, Zhang Feng hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Please don't be angry." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Divine Doctor. Haha, young friend, please sit down. Don't be so polite." Sun Simiao stroked his beard and laughed, pointing to a stool on the side. Zhang Feng sat down under the supercilious eyes of Yu Shernan and others. He automatically ignored the supercilious eyes of Yu Shernan and others. "Boy, you did it on purpose, didn't you?" Before Zhang Feng could sit down properly, Xueji looked at Zhang Feng and asked with a faint smile. Zhang Feng knew that these guys were going to ask this. He cupped his fists and said with a wry smile, "Oh, Mr. Sidong, you've wronged me. You don't know. I just finished dealing with Old Wei and others. How could I have time to come here?" Xueji said with a meaningful, "Oh," and then said, "So, these people are really loyal to you. How did you do it?" Zhang Feng was confused. What else was there? After thinking about it, Zhang Feng said, "Maybe they were all attracted by my handsomeness?" The people who were really listening were petrified. What kind of answer was that? "Ahem, kid, what's with your attitude? As a great Confucian scholar, you have to have the attitude of a great Confucian scholar. We agreed to come here this time because we want to find a place to retire. By the way, you have too many bad habits. We have to get rid of them for you. Look. You're finally showing your true colors, aren't you?" Zhang Feng wanted to see what these old foxes were up to. From the moment he came up the mountain, he knew that these people were up to something. Although it looked like they were after paper, this was only one of their motives. Zhang Feng really did not know the real motive. At this moment, Yu Shernan stood up and walked over to Zhang Feng. He put away the smile on his face and stared at Zhang Feng solemnly. At this moment, Ouyang Sun, Chu Suiliang, and the others also stood up and stared at Zhang Feng with solemn expressions. Zhang Feng felt goosebumps all over his body. "Kid, although you were jointly recommended by the four of us to become a great Confucian scholar, you also know that the condition for becoming a great Confucian scholar is to write your own book. Let's not talk about this for now. Your poetry collection can withstand the praise of all the scholars in the world. However, there are still more than 20 days until the Mid-Autumn Festival. Looking at your academy, it's about time. After the Mid-Autumn Festival, it will officially open. So since you call us teachers, we will express your sincerity. Although I don't know if you know the danger behind paper, the old man still has to say one thing. You must win the Mid-Autumn Poetry Meet. And this is also decided by us old guys. As long as you have the title of Great Confucian, there will naturally be no trouble for other things. You understand? If Zhang Feng still did not understand, then he was really a fool. He hurriedly stood up, and after a student's salute, he said seriously, "This student will follow teacher's instructions." Good. You are a promising student. Yu Shernan nodded and said with his hands behind his back, "Do you know why everyone has a nameplate?" Nameplate? Zhang Feng really did not know this. He only knew that all literati like to give themselves a name, which was a pen name or the title of a book in the future. However, as for why some people's real names could not be remembered by others, but their pen names, he did not know. Forgive this student for being stupid, but I really did not know this. Zhang Feng hurriedly asked. Yu Shernan looked out of the window and said, "Old man does not know when this rule started, but it has become an unwritten rule. Since you have entered the civil service, then you must have a nameplate. Did no one remind you of this before? Even your brother Lao Li did not mention it?" No. Zhang Feng honestly shook his head. In fact, he had thought of the name before, such as Cool and Awesome. He had thought of it before, but until now he really did not think of a suitable one. This student has thought of this before, but because I was too busy I forgot about it. Zhang Feng answered truthfully. The main thing was that the name he thought of was either too avant-garde or too hard to pronounce. He was also very troubled. So he simply threw this problem to Yu Shernan and the others. Since they said so, they must have thought about it long ago. Sure enough, after hearing Zhang Feng's words, they looked at each other and smiled. Then Yu Shernan slowly sighed and said, "Ridiculous, you actually forgot such an important thing? Alright. Since you have become our disciple today, then old man and the others will help you with this matter." What should I call it? Yu Shernan pretended to ponder and patted his forehead, then said, "Since you made your fortune in the tavern and you are from Phoenix Ridge and your name is Zhang Feng, then in this case we will call it..." Zhang Feng's pupils instantly shrank and he exclaimed, "Don't tell me it's Shi Feng." Chapter 783. West Phoenix? Once the name was decided, it would be better to call it Young Phoenix. It was simply too embarrassing. Just when Zhang Feng looked nervous, Yu Shernan said with a smile, "In fact, we have just discussed it with Dr. Sunday. Your nameplate will be called Wine Immortal. What do you think?" Wine Immortal? Zhang Feng was dizzy. He actually thought about this name when he brewed the liquor, but he was afraid that the name was too stiff. It was not good to be too ostentatious. Yu Shernan seemed to have noticed something as well. He smiled and said, "I've heard that the few times you've composed poems, they were all when you were drunk. Moreover, the baijiu you've brewed is worthy of this name. Perhaps in less than 20 days your baijiu will be released. If you use this name, no one will dare to say anything unless they don't want to drink baijiu anymore. But at least the few of us will be reluctant to give up this liquor." Ha ha ha. Yu Shernan and the others laughed as they spoke. In ancient times there was wine god Du Kang. Today there is wine immortal Zhang Feng. Moreover, you can not only brew beer or liquor, but the most important thing is that you can write poems. Who dares to say that you can write hundreds of poems while drunk? Who can compare to you? Sun Simiao couldn't help but sigh. That night it was the first time that old man saw someone who was full of ideas. It was as if he had entered another level of advancement. To be able to sing in a state of selflessness, there must be at least 100 poems. This kind of thing is simply unprecedented. I'm afraid it will never happen again in the future, right? The most important thing is that this old man has thought about it carefully, and then deliberated with Brother Bosher and the others. Not only are these poems not repeated, but each poem is also a peerless work. Therefore with this card, you are worthy of the title of Wine Immortal. It's settled, Wine Immortal. Old man educates people all his life. To be able to accept a Wine Immortal as a disciple at the end of his life is also the glory of my life. Yu Shernan. Aha, it's extremely true. It was decided just like that? Zhang Feng stared blankly at the old men who were so excited that they went crazy. It was decided just like that? Haven't you ever considered my feelings? Teacher, can I not have such a flashy signboard? Yu Shernan glanced at Zhang Feng. No, don't you think what you're doing now is not ostentatious enough? Look at your distinctionless education, the white paper, the white wine, and so on. Even the buildings of the academy are like a fairyland. Tell me which part of you is not ostentatious. Why don't you tell us? Zhang Feng thought. He was really stunned. None of them could be thought of by modern people. However, this also reminded him that it was not good to be too ostentatious. He swore in his heart that at this moment, everyone on the mountain was his. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't take even half a step down the mountain. This crisis made him feel a trace of hostility. For example, the immortal ointment given to him. If it wasn't incited by others, he would simply twist his own head off. Alright, since teacher has decided, then student will naturally accept it. Zhang Feng wrote down this word unhappily. After Yu Shernan and the others finished talking about this matter, they reminded him again, you have to prepare well for the mid-autumn poetry meet. It's not only the time for you to win in one fell swoop, but also the time for you to gain the title of Great Confucian, as well as your immortal wine signboard. There's a good saying, one needs to be strong to forge iron. You should think about it carefully. After Yu Shernan finished speaking, he waved his hand at Zhang Feng as if he was driving away a fly. This made Zhang Feng somewhat depressed. He clasped his hands and left resentfully. However, when he dared to walk to the door, Yu Shernan said again, by the way, before tonight, the old man wants to see your residence. Student will naturally prepare well. As Zhang Feng spoke, he walked out of the room gloomily. As soon as he walked out of the door, Zhang Feng saw Gao Can poking his head out to look around. He couldn't help but waved his hand and said, go and tell Gan Ziyuan that before nightfall, let's hurry up and prepare a residence for the 4 great Confucians. Everything else can be pushed back. It's already being prepared. Gao Can said as if his words were gold. When Zhang Feng heard this, he didn't say anything and turned around to walk towards the small wooden house. As he walked, he looked at the sun that was a little to the west and sighed. Teacher, here's your stick. At this moment, just as Zhang Feng was sighing with emotion, Gao Can took out the self-made cigar that Zhang Feng had been holding in his arms. He didn't know when he dropped it, but he passed it to him. When Zhang Feng saw this, he was overjoyed. At this time, having a cigarette was simply too blissful. Not bad, you're not bad. When I teach later, you can also sit in. When Gao Can heard this, his face instantly turned red. Zhang Feng hurriedly said, okay, let's not talk about anything else. Did you bring a lighter? Yes, I did. Hiss, hoo. He lit up the tobacco and took a deep breath of the long-lost smell. In an instant, Zhang Feng coughed violently. Only then did he remember that this was a damn tobacco. He choked so much that his snot and tears ran out at the same time. When Gao Can saw this, his expression changed instantly. He wanted to go forward and snatch the cigar from Zhang Feng's hand. At the same time, he shouted in horror and anger, which shameless thief dares to poison teacher? Chapter 784. This roar was like a muffled thunder. Coupled with Gao Can's rough and straightforward voice full of anger, Yu Shernan and the others who were closest to him were shocked. After being stunned for a moment, Sun Simiao's face changed greatly. He hurriedly took the medicine box and said, follow me to have a look. Immediately, the 5 of them angrily rushed out of the bamboo house. Not only here, but at the edge of the construction site less than 1,000 steps away, Gan Ziyuan was also stunned when he was instructing people to carry bamboo and other things to the waterfall. Then he turned around and saw Zhang Feng kneeling on the ground with his hand on his chest. His face changed dramatically. He roared in a shrill voice, come quickly protect the dean. The dean has been secretly harmed and poisoned. If the first roar made everyone confused, then the second roar changed the meaning. Everyone was shocked when they heard it. They hurriedly picked up the things in their hands and rushed to Zhang Feng without caring about anything else. Some people even cried when they saw Zhang Feng's uncomfortable appearance. At this time, with these 2 roars, Zhang Feng also slowly took a breath. He hurriedly covered Gao Can's mouth and shouted, nonsense! Lao Tzu is not poisoned. As he said, Zhang Feng hurriedly shouted to the distance, I'm not poisoned. There are no thieves. Go back to what you're supposed to do. However, everyone saw that Zhang Feng was squatting on the ground in pain just now. Moreover, Zhang Feng was holding something with smoke in his hand. This made everyone think that Zhang Feng was just comforting them. Their eyes turned red and they still rushed here. What made Zhang Feng even more confused was that at this time, the 5 old men led by Sun Simiao rushed to Zhang Feng with frosty faces. Sun Simiao didn't care about anything else. As soon as he came, Sun Simiao grabbed Zhang Feng's wrist. At the same time he said, what are you waiting for? Throw this thing as far away as you can. Quickly lie down, this old man will perform acupuncture on you. Zhang Feng's face darkened when he heard that. Why don't you diagnose me first? You're already giving me acupuncture? When everyone saw that Dr. Sun was diagnosing Zhang Feng, they didn't dare to make any noise. They formed a circle and surrounded Zhang Feng. On the other side, when the Jianghu guards, who were in charge of protecting Zhang Feng as well as the safety of the people on the mountain, heard this loud shout, some of them instantly flashed the weapons on their waists and stared fixedly at everyone with their devouring eyes. They slowly surrounded Shaoqin. Then even more golden guards blew special whistles that echoed throughout Shao Mountain. A moment later, the entire Pyrolite Mountain was filled with such whistles. Whether it was the people at the construction site or those hiding in the mountains, their expressions changed drastically at this time. They all drew their modeo and were on guard. As for Li Qingqian's personal bodyguard, when he heard the whistle, he used the whistle to hurriedly ask a few questions. After that, his expression changed greatly and he abruptly rushed into Zhang Feng's room, not caring about anything else. He hurriedly said, "Your Highness, young Master Zhang Feng was attacked." "What?" Hearing this, several people turned pale with fright. Li Qingqian asked with a pale face, "Tell me what's going on. Are all of you incompetent? What's wrong with Fengzi?" "I don't know. What we know at present is that young Master Zhang Feng seems to have been poisoned. Dr. Sun is diagnosing him. Let's go. Chumo, light the beacons quickly and summon the garrison to surround Shao Mountain. Don't let even a fly go." Yes. At this time, no one cared about hiding their identity. Whether it was true or not, if the news of Fengzi being attacked was spread out, it would be a big deal. If the emperor was angry, none of them would have an easy time. Not to mention that he was the crown prince. How could they dare to delay? Cheng Chumo shouted angrily and rushed out of the door with Wei Shuyu. Li Qingqian, Du Go, Zhang Sun, and Chong did not dare to delay for a moment. They hurriedly followed the leader of the Jianghu guards and rushed to the place where Zhang Feng was attacked. While running, Li Qingqian stared at the place where Zhang Feng was and prayed secretly in his heart, as well as the people who hurried to Zhang Feng's place after hearing the news. "Brat, you've got to be kidding me. Please don't let anything happen to him." Today, at the foot of the mountain, the person in Tonghui Square had already handed over the thing that Zhang Feng asked them to. They had also studied it for a long time, although they did not know what it was. But from the serious expression on Zhang Feng's face when that person described it, they knew that it was not something good. After learning that it was deliberately given to Zhang Feng by someone, Li Qingqian was angry. After finding someone to torture that person, he found out that this thing was a kind of thing called immortal ointment. Although that person did not know what it was, someone had indeed arranged for him to deliver it to Zhang Feng. He was a black-clothed merchant from the Abbasid Caliphate. But because the journey was long, he wanted to get some rare items back from Chang'an. Thus he encountered a group of people, while his thoughts were running wild. Li Qingqian and the others also rushed into the impenetrable crowd. After squeezing through the crowd, Li Qingqian's face paled. Without caring about anything else, Li Qingqian asked, "Divine Dr. Sun, what happened to Fengzi?" Chapter 785. Sun Simiao had a very strange expression on his face. Sometimes he was frowning, sometimes he was deep in thought. Hearing Li Qingqian's question, Sun Simiao waved his hand, signaling him not to speak. Then he stared at Zhang Feng, opened his eyelids and pulled out Zhang Feng's mouth. Regardless of whether Zhang Feng was willing or not, Sun Simiao directly pulled out his tongue for a look. "Young friend Zhang Feng, where do you feel uncomfortable?" Zhang Feng said gloomily, "I feel uncomfortable from all of you pressing down on me. There's nothing else." "No." Sun Simiao pressed down on Zhang Feng's chest and asked, "Does it hurt?" How could Zhang Feng not feel pain after being pressed like this? He had just inhaled a large mouthful of tobacco, and now his lungs felt like they were on fire. Now that he was pressed down, the pain made Zhang Feng grit his teeth. "Brother Sun, what's wrong with him?" Sun Simiao stroked his beard and said, "Young friend, I don't know who poisoned him. This kind of poison is rarely seen in old man. It seems that the person who came is not simple." "What kind of poison was he poisoned with?" Everyone's expression changed greatly. Li Qingqian hurriedly asked. Sun Simiao sighed and said, "His pulse is stable and strong and his heart is normal. However, his chest and lungs seem to be poisoned. This is either snake venom or poison from beyond the Great Wall." Hearing this, Li Qingqian's expression suddenly changed. "I understand. Today, Fengzi sent someone to give me something called immortal ointment. I heard that someone deliberately sent it to Fengzi, and that person came from the Abbasid Caliphate. Could it be that the grass that Fengzi brought back from a returning merchant is also highly poisonous?" At this moment, everyone suddenly understood everything. "Quickly bring that grass over." Sun Simiao's expression suddenly changed and he hurriedly said. But when he turned around and saw the still smoking cigar not far away, he trembled, covered his mouth and nose, and hurriedly picked it up and handed it to Dr. Sunday. "Don't look, this is not poison. I already said this is not poison. This is a good thing, really. When I get it out, you can—" "Nonsense." Yu Shernan and the others said with a cold face. "Does Elder Sun know more, or do you know more about this grass? Lie down and let Old Sun see what this is." "This thing?" Sun Simiao was also puzzled. He sniffed, but other than the smell of someone being snatched, there was nothing else. However, when he sniffed, he felt a little dizzy and his expression changed greatly. Sun Simiao took another deep puff of the cigarette and savored it. No one dared to be careless. He waited cautiously. Zhang Feng was too lazy to explain anything to these people. In any case, it would be troublesome to explain, so he might as well let Dr. Sun diagnose his body and treat it as a physical examination. This matter is... It was just a small matter. Was there a need to mobilize so many people? If he became famous in the future, wouldn't these people set up a platform for him to worship? Zhang Feng was speechless. He simply closed his eyes. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. At this moment, Sun Simiao was also somewhat shocked. Although he had not tasted all of the herbs, he did not notice anything unusual when he entered the shop with only a puff of smoke. Sun Simiao simply tore a small piece of tobacco from the cigar and put it into his mouth to slowly chew. At first, it was spicy and piercing, but after a while, it was bitter and unbearable. It could be considered a poison, but he did not know how poisonous it was. In the end, he didn't care anymore. After chewing again, Sun Simiao swallowed it. After feeling it again, Sun Simiao suddenly opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Li Qingqian, Yu Shernan, and the others hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Sun Simiao glanced at Zhang Feng. Then he looked at the others and sighed. "Forgive me for my stupidity. I still don't know what this thing is, but now there is only one way to verify what kind of poison Zhang Feng is poisoned with." "Young Master Li Gan, are you sure you got this poisonous herb from the returning merchant?" Li Gan nodded and said, "Indeed. Although I was not present at the time, the people in Tonghui Lane saw it with their own eyes." "Good. Old man can say that this thing is not a product of the Tang dynasty. In other words, it is a foreign item. Therefore we can only test it with acupuncture now." When Zhang Feng heard about acupuncture, he immediately opened his eyes. "Elder Sun, I'm really fine." "Nonsense. Are you a doctor, or is Elder Sun a doctor? As a dean, you should be responsible for everyone. Now that everyone is watching, do you want everyone to worry about you?" Yu Shernan scolded. When Zhang Feng heard that, he could only shrink his head. However, when he turned to look at Sun Simiao's so-called needles, his whole body could not help but spasm. He saw that on top of a small stove in Sun Simiao's hand, there were silver needles that were as long as chopsticks but slightly thinner than chopsticks. It was so stimulating that Zhang Feng could not help but scream. "Oh, Elder Sun, you are a great benefactor. Can you spare me? I just choked on the smoke. It's really not a big deal. Elder Sun, why don't you let me go and let me do a somersault for you? I'm really fine, ow." Chapter 786. Zhang Feng didn't expect this either. A dignified dean had actually suffered such a great humiliation today. He was stripped naked in front of everyone, and then his body was pricked like a hedgehog. Even now, he had been carried back by Li Qingqian and the others for 2 hours, but Zhang Feng still felt bursts of pain in his stomach, legs and back. This was simply a sad thing. Especially after seeing Sun Simiao's solemn face and the laughter of Yu Shernan and the others as they left, Zhang Feng really wanted to faint. It was so embarrassing. Lying on the bed, Zhang Feng glared at Gaoken angrily. "Tell me, did you do it on purpose today?" Gaoken was also somewhat baffled. But he also felt a little guilty. "Dean, I didn't do it because you were bullied a few times before. Didn't you do it with these people early this morning? I thought they were up to no good." "Up to no good? This principal was just messing around with them. What's more, this thing wasn't poisoned. Come, where are my cigarettes? Did you bring them back?" Zhang Feng was so angry that he wanted to punch someone, but when he moved, his whole body hurt. He just waved his hand angrily. Seeing Zhang Feng like this, Gaoken felt even more ashamed. After wiping his body, he remembered and said, "That thing was taken away by Dr. Sun. Go. There are some on the table outside. Give me 2. Today Lao Tzu is going to poison you to death." Zhang Feng was so angry that he didn't know what to say. He had the urge to chase this guy down the mountain. Zhang Feng was very suspicious whether this guy was the famous General Gaoken recorded in the history of later generations. This guy was simply an idiot who couldn't even be bothered to look at the situation. I'm coming. When he was really thinking about whether to drive him away or send him away, Gao Kan hurried in with 2 big cigars. It was as if he had caught 2 poisonous snakes. Zhang Feng speechlessly snatched the cigar from Gao Kan's hand and lit it. This time he carefully took a puff. Instantly, the strong taste of tobacco swirled in his mouth. That feeling made Zhang Feng moan involuntarily. Although the taste was a little strong, this was the Mother asterisk cur's taste. After Zhang Feng took a few puffs, his head felt a little dizzy. He looked at the nervous Gao Kan and pointed at the oil lamp with the hand holding the cigarette. Look at Lao Tzu now. Is there anything wrong? Gao Kan shook his head vigorously. Then lighted up. I'll give you your first lesson today. When Gao Kan heard that Zhang Feng was going to give him his first lesson, he was excited. He imitated Zhang Feng and put the end of the cigar in his mouth. Then he moved closer to the light and carefully sucked. At first he felt like he was being burned by smoke. He was a little puzzled. However, he saw Zhang Feng deliberately take a puff and then swallow the whole cigarette into his stomach with his mouth open. Then he gestured to him. Gao Kan did the same. He took a big puff. In an instant, his black face suddenly turned dark purple. Then he coughed violently. Cough, 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 cough. Cough, cough, cough. In an instant, Gao Kan was no different from Zhang Feng Gang. In fact, Gao Kan even surpassed him. He hugged his stomach, squatted on the ground and curled up like a shrimp. Now do you know what's going on? Zhang Feng sat up with a smile. However, the intense pain in his body caused Zhang Feng to grimace in pain. Now you know what kind of person this thing is, right? Now do you still dare to say anything? This is my first lesson. Today's lesson is called Society's Vicious Beating. You must finish this cigarette today. If you don't, I'll deduct your credits this semester. Gao Kan's eyes turned green when he heard this. He couldn't care less about coughing. He squatted in the corner and ate vigorously while crying. He didn't know how this kid felt now. However, Zhang Feng knew that a person who smoked for the first time must feel very uncomfortable. And he was taking big puffs of tobacco. Looking at Gao Kan smoking, Zhang Feng felt very comfortable. The stuffiness just now seemed to dissipate a little. However, the smell of smoke in the room made him feel a little uncomfortable. He could only leave the bedroom. When he walked out of the bedroom, he saw Li Qingqian and the others staring at Zhang Feng with a strange expression. If they say Feng, I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. You can even do that to Gao Kan? Cheng Chumo said in a strange tone. Before he could finish, Zhang Feng glared at him and took the opportunity to sit on the recliner and smoke. The others also came over with a curious face. Looking at Zhang Feng smoking and then smelling the unpleasant smell in the air, they couldn't help but have a face full of question marks. Feng, what's this thing? Isn't this the thing that caused you to have an accident just now? Cheng Chumo leaned over to Zhang Feng and stared at Zhang Feng. Looking at Zhang Feng's face of enjoyment, Cheng Chumo was also tempted. After all, every time Zhang Feng made something, it was a first-class thing. Zhang Feng heard this and couldn't help but grin. Why, you want to have a bite too? Seeing Zhang Feng's cheeky smile, the alarm in everyone's heart suddenly rang. This guy is going to be a demon again. Chapter 787. Cough cough Fengzi, let's not talk about this first. We'll talk about it later. Li Qingqian hurriedly stepped forward. Although Li Qingqian didn't know why Zhang Feng had made a grass leaf so uncomfortable for the first time and now had a look of enjoyment on his face, this taste made Li Qingqian frown. Before Zhang Feng could say anything, Li Qingqian pointed at the immortal ointment on Zhang Feng's table and asked, "What is this? Why are you so afraid of it?" Li Qingqian's question made Zhang Feng's expression turn serious. He looked at the immortal ointment on the table and asked, "I just heard that you caught that person?" "Yes, I caught him, but I didn't get anything out of him. I just heard that someone gave this to him in Chang, and told him to give it to you." Zhang Feng's face darkened when he heard this. It seemed that someone had really made a move on him. However, he didn't know if Dashi had made a move. Was it someone from Guanlong? Or a landowning family from Shandong? Or was it someone from the 5 surnames and 7 hopes? Or was it someone from the aristocratic families? Zhang Feng didn't know any of this. However, there was one thing that Zhang Feng knew. It was time to speed up the production of firearms. Once they had firearms on the mountain, they could further research pistols and bulletproof vests. With these, Zhang Feng felt an inexplicable sense of security. Li Qingqian, let me ask you. Have you seen this thing in Chang'an before? Li Qingqian thought carefully about the tributes he had received from various countries over the years, and then shook his head. I haven't seen it before. This? I seem to have seen it once at the Turkic young Kagan's place. Wei Shiyu's hesitant voice immediately caught Zhang Feng's attention. He asked, "Tell me the details. Which young Kagan are you talking about?" Seeing Zhang Feng's serious expression, Wei Shuyu said without reservation, "That was before. Didn't the retired emperor celebrate his birthday? What about those people who lived in the Honglu temple? I met him at Yanlai restaurant when I was strolling around Chang'an. After hearing that I was Lao Li's subordinate, he became even more attentive. He even mysteriously gave me some of this stuff, saying that it was good stuff. But at that time I still had things to do. Alright, it was to look for you, so I didn't use it." The more Wei Shuyu spoke, the more scared she became. After she finished speaking, her face could not help but exude a layer of cold sweat. "Fengzi, this thing, could it be some kind of poison?" "Alas. You're really lucky, kid. If you had used this thing back then, you'd be better off dead than alive. Not only would your life be in someone else's hands, but in less than a month your family's property as well as Lao Li's would basically be handed over by you." When Wei Shuyu heard this, she could not help but be aghast. The expressions of Li Qingqian and the others also changed. "Fengzi, is what you said true? Then, isn't this the thing that eats people's minds?" Zhang Feng nodded with a serious expression. "That's why I said that this thing cannot be left. Now I'll give you a task. You must pass this matter to your father as soon as possible and let him report it to the authorities. Immediately seize this thing. Don't ask why, you just need to know that I, Fengzi, will not harm you. Do you understand?" Although they didn't know if Zhang Feng was exaggerating, everyone couldn't help but feel their hearts go numb when they looked at that pitch-black thing. Who would dare to test whether it was real or fake after knowing the effects of this thing? If something happened, wouldn't that be, "Don't worry, I've already made arrangements for this matter. But I suspect that this is a trap." Li Qingqian covered his nose and frowned as he looked at the smoke in the room. "Could it be that you knew from the beginning?" "Yes." Zhang Feng confidently flicked the ash from his cigarette and said, "Think about it, I'm the ancestor of scheming. This idiot gave you something that you've never seen before. As long as you're not crazy, you'll know that there's something wrong with this thing itself. So, do you think that I wouldn't know that they gave me this thing in front of me? Besides, I've seen this thing before. My master once brought back a little of this thing when he was traveling overseas. He wanted to tell me where the harm of this thing was. So, everyone, let me give you a piece of advice. If you're my brothers, find out where this thing is and burn it. It's best if you can find the source. Even if it means slaughtering the entire city, you'll destroy the entire country. If you have connections, go buy a death row prisoner. Try it and you'll know how terrifying this thing is." The more they listened, Li Qingqian and the others felt that this thing was terrifying. Even someone like Zhang Feng dared to use words like slaughtering the entire city to describe the horror of this thing. One could only imagine how terrifying this thing was. Li Qingqian took a deep breath and said, "Don't worry about this. When we found out that this person was up to no good, we've already informed Father. I believe that with Father's ability and Lord Jiangsuan's Ministry of Personnel, this thing will be found very quickly." Zhang Feng heard this and thought about it. That was true. It was good to have connections with people from the Ministry of Personnel. This matter could be considered solved. As for the death row prisoner, that was the most worthless thing in this era. As long as Lao Li wanted to get it, Zhang Sun Wuji only needed to say a word. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng slowly took out a few cigars from a cabinet in the corner. He held the cigars in his mouth and handed one to each of them. Come. This is a rare treasure. Other than the immortal ointment, this is my biggest gain at the foot of the mountain today." Chapter 788. Hiss, puff. "I say, Fengzi, how did you come up with this thing?" Cough. "Although it's a little choking, this thing is really King cool. It's more exciting than drinking wine. I've only eaten it for a while, but I'm already dizzy and flustered." "Yeah, but it's true. This thing is really strong. Now that there's no wine, this thing can be made do. But Fengzi, this thing, what are you going to do with it?" "It's really exciting." After an hour, in Zhang Feng's living room, a few people were sprawled out on all fours. They were smoking fiercely while looking at the room that was gradually becoming smoky. They could not help but feel playful. It was as if they wanted to see if this thing could fill up the entire room. Then wouldn't they be able to smoke this thing while lying down? And they always felt that the smell of smoke in the air was much more fragrant than inhaling it into their mouths, slowly. Especially at this time, Gao Can, who was already unconscious, had already broken the door of Zhang Feng's bedroom. At this time he was lying on the ground like a dead dog, puffing and puffing. Looking at the people smoking like this, he couldn't help but be so frightened that he fainted. Zhang Feng was also a little dizzy at this time. No one would be able to last long under the influence of several big opium pipes, especially when he was also smoking. This kind of second-hand smoke he didn't dare to make too much. Zhang Feng got up dizzily and was instantly shocked. At this time he also felt dizzy, like the feeling of gas poisoning. Zhang Feng didn't have time to think too much. He stumbled and pushed the door open, sitting at the door and gasping for breath. After a while he finally didn't feel so uncomfortable anymore. He turned around and looked. Good heavens, at this time there was no one in the room. All around them were bursts of smoke, looking for an exit. It was as if the room was on fire. Zhang Feng was also shocked and hurriedly beckoned two passing students to carry Cheng Chumo and the others out of the room. Only then did Zhang Feng breathe a sigh of relief. However, the things here still aroused everyone's interest. In addition, it was dinner time and the kitchen was not far from Zhang Feng's place. Everyone was holding a big bowl, eating while looking at Zhang Feng. Hey you guys, did our dean just cook something delicious in the room? He held a big bowl made of mud and drank some porridge while showing off a big pig leg with teeth marks all over it. Hearing this, everyone also looked at Zhang Feng curiously. Someone couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng and asked, "So, our dean is drunk? Hey you don't, it's really interesting. Our dean is awesome. Our dean is awesome. Just eating and drinking he can get so many powerful people to drink. Ha 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 ha, the four great demon kings? In the hands of our dean they're nothing but toys. You guys can't even shut your mouths when you eat, right?" At this moment old He's wife picked up the spoon and knocked on their heads a few times. She put her hands on her hips and pointed at Zhang Feng, saying, "The dean dares to eat a pot of rice every day. How can he cook by himself? If you want to eat, then eat. If you don't want to eat, then scram. If I hear any of you gossiping again, I'll tell the dean." Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. He hurriedly nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice, took the bowl and ran away. At this moment, Yu Shernan was also happily bringing Ouyang Sun and the others over to eat together. Glancing at Zhang Feng and the others, she also thought that they were drunk. She looked at Old He's wife and asked, "You said Fengzi never eats alone?" Old He's wife was also a person who had seen the world. When these people came up the mountain she knew that they were not simple. At least, they were at the same level as the county magistrate. At this time, when she saw them coming, she hurriedly greeted them with a smile. "Isn't that right? Fengzi is my neighbor. The relationship between my husband and Zhang Feng is like that of uncle and nephew. In addition, Fengzi likes my daughter. Usually, when Fengzi makes something delicious, the first thing he asks is me, the shopkeeper, and the kids in the neighborhood to eat with him. Now these foodies dare to say that Fengzi eats alone. How can I not care? Ha ha ha. I didn't expect this guy to have such a side." Hearing this, the four people laughed. Sun Simiao also nodded repeatedly. "This guy is good." He asked Old Man to come up the mountain for this pot of porridge. "How about it? You guys have a taste?" Hearing this, they nodded again. "Well, let's each take a bowl and sit in his room. This guy may have some good wine hidden." "That's reasonable. If there is a beggar's chicken, that would be even better." When Old He's wife heard this, she slapped her thigh and said, "Oh, look at my memory. You guys go and have a seat first. I'll go to the back of the mountain to get some chickens for you. Those chickens were also made by Fengzi. I won't give them to ordinary people to eat." Chapter 789. Yu Shernan and the others' eyes lit up when they heard this. Even those who were squatting and eating couldn't help but have waves of greed and envy flicker in their eyes when they heard this. The point was that the dean's chicken was too delicious. Sun Simiao looked at the crowd, shook his head and sighed. There were too few chickens now. Although there were hundreds of thousands of chickens on the mountain, he didn't know what that guy was going to do. He was only allowed to eat 1,000 chickens a day, including those in the restaurants at the foot of the mountain. So it was difficult to eat the beggar's chicken now. Even he could only eat it once every 3 to 5 days. But a few days ago, he heard that there were less than 200,000 chickens left on the mountain. If the food problem couldn't be solved, even if these chickens were boiled into chicken soup and mixed in porridge, they couldn't stand the consumption. At this time, he didn't know if the woman would cause any trouble by saying that she would let them eat chicken in public. But since she had said it, he couldn't do anything. After all, he was just a guest. "Let's go and see if there is any good wine in Fengzi's house. Let's go and get some." As Sun Simiao spoke, he patted Yu Shernan's shoulder. Only then did the group slowly walk towards Zhang Feng's cabin, hands clasped behind their backs. Walking on the right side, Yu Shernan and others looked at this person's bowl from time to time. It seemed that they wanted to find something different in these bowls. However, looking at it, he was still amazed. "Elder son, this doesn't look like the bone-strengthening powder you made." Chu Suiliang asked with a smile. Sun Simiao shook his head and pointed to Zhang Feng. The bone-strengthening powder and this stuff are not made by me. It's that guy. Chu Suiliang was shocked when he heard that. He had eaten the bone-strengthening powder. Although the porridge smelled like the bone-strengthening powder at this time, it looked different from the bone-strengthening powder. There were even a lot of things inside such as meat, pork and even some pig bones, eggs and other things. However, when he thought about how these things, which were rumored to be able to last an entire day, were made by Zhang Feng, Chu Suiliang was truly shocked. Old son, are you certain that these things were made by this brat? Chu Suiliang and the other two asked in shock. Yu Shernan stroked his beard and curled his lips. The old man mentioned this in his letter. Didn't you read it? They automatically filtered out Yu Shernan's words. Instead, he looked at Sun Simiao with a solemn expression. They had all read Yu Shernan's letter, but they wouldn't believe that these things came from Zhang Feng even if they were beaten to death. Who didn't know that Sun Simiao was the recognized divine medicine? If these things didn't come from him, who would dare to believe it? Yes. Sun Simiao made the final decision. A rumbling sound rang out in their minds. What the hell was this kid? What was in that head of hers? Moreover, even the old man didn't know that these things could be made in this way until he got the bone-strengthening powder and this porridge. Sun Simiao was a little emotional. If this kid wants to be a doctor, the old man believes that in less than 3 years, his reputation and achievements will definitely be above the old man's. And even at his peak, the old man could only look at his back. Sun Simiao's words seemed to be the highest praise for Zhang Feng. Although he had never praised Zhang Feng on the mountain, he didn't hesitate to praise himself when he was with his old friends. Zhang Feng could take it. He also wanted to know what kind of tricks Zhang Feng could come up with. How many things had not been dug out yet? He didn't believe that Zhang Feng could only tinker with the herbs to get rid of the smell of pork, the herbs to repel locusts and mosquitoes, the bone-strengthening powder, and the porridge. Sun Simiao believed that Zhang Feng's medical skills would open another door for him. At this time they were all silent with their own thoughts. They slowly strolled to the front of the wooden hut. Smelling the familiar yet unfamiliar scent, they couldn't help but instantly pull their minds back from their contemplation. What's this smell? Seems. Just now, Fengzi was over there. Sun Simiao frowned and thought for a long time. He sniffed again and couldn't help but change his expression. Nonsense, it's really nonsense. Sun Simiao couldn't help but fly into a rage after smelling it. He hurried forward and felt their pulses one by one. Yu Shernan and the others also reacted and hurried forward. Something could happen to others, but these people were all precious. One was the crown prince, one was the emperor's brother, and the others were the sons of the high dukes. If something happened to them, they hurried forward but didn't know what to do. They could only look at Sun Simiao. When Sun Simiao put his hand on Li Qingqian's pulse, Li Qingqian looked as if he was drunk and asked them with a flushed face. Elder son, you're here? Come, Fengzi has a big cigar here. Sun Simiao was stunned. Looking at the group of people lying on the ground and laughing while eating, he couldn't help but ask, You bunch of bastards, what are you doing? Chapter 790. Sun Simiao was about to explode. He had been pondering about Zhang Feng's matter. But now, were they all playing tricks on him? Although Zhang Feng was also a little uncomfortable, he was at least better than Li Qingqian and the others. Seeing that Sun Simiao had misunderstood again, he hurriedly said, Elder son, we didn't mean to play tricks on you. Look at the room. These guys are drunk because it's their first time smoking. Just treat it as if they're drunk. Zhang Feng hurriedly explained. When Sun Simiao heard this, he sniffed Li Qingqian's nose and said, Do you think this old man is senile and muddle-headed? Are they drunk? Seeing that he couldn't explain, Zhang Feng could only get up, take out the tobacco leaves from the drawer, and roll them up on the spot. No matter how much he said, it was better to keep silent. Now Zhang Feng was too lazy to explain. Yu Shernan saw this and hurriedly pulled Sun Simiao. Old son, wait a minute. Did this guy come up with something amazing again? Sun Simiao was stunned and could only shut up. He wanted to see what Zhang Feng was up to. They didn't expect that the blades of grass in Zhang Feng's hand would slowly turn into 6 fingers as thick as an index finger. They were exactly the same as the ones Zhang Feng had seen outside their door. They looked at each other and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Could it be that what this kid said before was true? Was this thing really not poison? Sun Simiao also didn't understand. He frowned and simply squatted beside Zhang Feng, carefully watching every step Zhang Feng took. When Zhang Feng finally took out the lighter from Cheng Chumo's butt and lit it, after taking a breath he said, Elder son, this is the good stuff. It's refreshing. Do you want one? Sun Simiao heard this and glared at Zhang Feng. Are you saying that old man's eyesight is bad? No, no, no. How could this kid be talking about you? This thing is real. Just try it and smoke his cigarette. In an instant, no matter how tired you are, you will be energized. Hearing this, Yu Shernan and the others' eyes lit up. Kid, are you telling the truth? So that's what they got from the lottery? Is that why you're like this? They weren't fools. Zhang Feng nodded. That's right. It's just that these fellows saw how good this stuff is and were afraid that I wouldn't give it to them. So they pumped it as hard as they could, and that's why they got drunk. When they heard this, their eyeballs almost popped out. Kid, you're saying that this thing is the same as your white wine? It can also make people drunk? Old man, try it first. Can this stuff make people drunk? Wasn't it just firewood tobacco? Could it be that the old man was afraid? Come, little brat, give the match to the old man. Let me try it too. Me too. Ouyang Sun and the others took the self-aware firewood tobacco from Zhang Feng's hands. Then, following Zhang Feng's instructions, they lit the firewood tobacco and took a light puff. Zhang Feng didn't dare to let these old men smoke like Li Gan did. If they didn't smoke at all, they would be dead meat if they choked and gave it away. Moreover, if they recovered, wouldn't this thing be smashed in their hands? Zhang Feng was still counting on them to sell this thing. Master Bashi, you're mistaken. You have to take small sips. No, don't bite it. Keep it in your mouth. Mr. Sidong, you're wrong. Don't swallow. Cough. When Zhang Feng turned to look, he saw that Xueji was about to swallow the firewood tobacco in one big puff. Zhang Feng was so scared that he hurriedly shouted, but it was too late. Xueji had already swallowed it, but Zhang Feng said that it was urgent, so Xueji was stunned for a moment. That moment could be said to have saved his life and Zhang Feng's life. Xueji exhaled more than half of the smoke, but the remaining smoke still made Xueji cough violently at this time. Even his face was flushed. Zhang Feng was so scared that he hurriedly went up to pat him on the back and hurriedly poured tea for him. After a while, Xueji finally recovered his strength. The others also stared at him with their old eyes. Old Sidong, what do you think? How is this cigarette? Xueji smacked his lips and felt for a moment before giving a thumbs up. Awesome. Although it was a little uncomfortable just now, I feel 100 times more energetic now. You all know that I have to take a nap at this time every day. But once this thing twitches, let alone sleep, even if you ask me to recite poems with you, I can recite poems with you late into the night. When the others heard this, they couldn't help but look at the cigarette in their hands and were shocked. They just thought that it was their illusion, but now, they all felt the same. When Sun Simiao heard this, he didn't say a word. He took the lighter from Zhang Feng's hand and lit the cigarette. Half an hour. 2 hours. 2 hours later, when Li Qingqian and the others stood up dizzily, they were stunned. They saw that in Zhang Feng's living room, Yu Shernan and the others with cigarettes in their mouths, were locked in a game of cards. They couldn't help but be stunned. Is this a dream? I must be dreaming. Is this still the Mr. Bosher I know? Chapter 791. For 3 days in a row. The people on Shao Mountain, regardless of whether they were students or craftsmen, were looking at the big shots on the mountain with a stick in their mouths. Even Gan Ziyuan. At this moment he was standing on the construction site with his hands on his hips. He pointed at the crowd and cursed. No one knew where he got a cigar from, but he was holding it in his mouth. He looked awe-inspiring. You bunch of idiots, look at this cement. Who ruined it? Stand up for Lao Tzu? This thing is more precious than gold. Are you going to let Lao Tzu ruin it just like that? Don't you know that you have to eat less? You and all of you go and cut your dinner in half. Also, before you eat, use a hammer to grind these things for me. What are you all standing there for? Have you installed the doors and windows on that wall? Have you all hung up the roof beams? Get the hell out of Lao Tzu. Yo, isn't this old Gan? How awe-inspiring. Just as Gan Ziyuan was giving out orders, Cheng Chumo appeared behind Gan Ziyuan with a cigar in his mouth. He stole Zhang Feng's sunglasses and acted even more pretentious. When Gan Ziyuan heard that, he shrunk his head and hurriedly turned around. When he turned around, he had already put on a smile. Master Chen, why are you here? This place is dirty, you. Go away, go away. Lao Tzu gave you the cigar because you took over all of Lao Tzu's work. So, you've become more presentable in such a short time. Not bad, not bad. I'll inform Feng Zi later. When the time comes, the Ministry of Works will give you a temporary position. When Gan Ziyuan heard that, he was so excited that his lips trembled. Thank you, Master Chen. Thank you, Master Chen. If you have anything to say, just say it. I'll definitely do it. It's nothing, but I heard that a lot of people want this now. Cheng Chumo sat on the pile of bricks and pointed at the cigar in his mouth. Gan Ziyuan nodded. Master Qin, you know that our brothers have been eyeing this item since it appeared. If you could get some from the dean, they would be very grateful to your family. Fine, fine, fine. Qing Chumo waved his hand. He looked left and right, then took out about a dozen items wrapped in white paper, each as thick as a little finger, and said, I got these when Feng Zi wasn't paying attention. Save them. This is... Gan Ziyuan's originally burning heart was instantly extinguished after seeing these white slips of paper. This thing seems to be, don't mind it? Feng Zi is afraid of killing you, so he slightly improved it. By the way, these cigarettes cost 5 beggars' chickens. Put it on the tab first. We will wait for you at the tavern at the foot of the mountain in the evening. After that, Qing Chumo slipped away. Later, in various places on the mountain, Li Qingqian and the others were doing the same thing. Even Zhang Sun at this time, with a large pack of cigarettes, was shuttling through various marquises' mansions at the foot of the mountain, as well as Li Shimin's palace. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw it. Zhang Sun also did not hesitate to light a cigarette in public to demonstrate to them. Now, after Zhang Feng's improvement, the paper cigarettes were basically very light. If they smoked again, except for Yu Shernan and the others, they could basically satisfy. Except for the special big cigars, there were only paper cigarettes left. It was not that Zhang Feng was lazy to do it, but because he was afraid of killing people. After a month, if these people completely liked this thing, it would be easy to handle. On the other side, Yu Shernan and the others basically regarded Li Yuan's bamboo house as their daily office area. As long as it was someone they knew or wanted, they basically wrote a letter to each person, plus 3 paper cigarettes, and gave them to the students one by one, and sent them down the mountain as fast as possible. What is this thing? In the Imperial Palace. Li Shimin looked curiously at the paper cigarette in his hand and asked, Your Majesty, this is a good thing that Feng Zi has been tinkering with during this period of time. Li Shimin's eyes lit up when he heard this. Quickly tell me what is this thing and how to use it. Zhang Sun said, Your Majesty, can you let me demonstrate it to you? What are you talking about, boy, come quickly. Li Shimin glared at Zhang Sun, and Zhang Sun stood up obediently, took out a cigarette from his arms and then lit it with a match. He imitated Zhang Feng and took a deep breath. Although his appearance was a bit exaggerated, the enjoyment on his face could still be seen. Li Shimin also could not wait. Under Zhang Xuan's demonstration, he also lit a cigarette. Not until then did Zhang Sunchong say, Feng Zi said that you're always busy, so he made this thing. After the experiment was done, he sent it to you as soon as possible to refresh your mind and relieve your sleepiness. Don't fool me, do you think I don't know what happened on the mountain? Didn't this thing come out 3 days ago? And this thing, are you sure it's this cigar? As Li Shimin spoke, he took out a cigar from a wooden box in the drawer of the desk. Zhang Sun was stunned when he saw this. This was obviously the one Zhang Feng had when the accident happened outside the bamboo house. Did the emperor know at that time? Chapter 792. On the mountain. Inside Zhang Feng's wooden hut. Li Qingqian, Ma Zhou, Li Yifu, Guijingyi, Hao Chujun, Gao Kan, and the others were sitting on the floor with a small cigarette in their hands. They were holding a thread-bound white paper book in their hands. There were brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones on the floor. Everyone was holding a cigarette in their right hand. Basically, cigarettes had become a trend on the mountain. It seemed that as long as one was on the mountain, even if they did not smoke, they would at least hold a cigarette in their mouth. What was that? That was their status. Although there was no explicit rule on the mountain that forbade smoking. The black-hearted Zhang Feng had even set up a cigarette shop on the mountain. This time there was a complete uproar. As long as one was on the mountain, everyone would have a cigarette. If anyone dared to buy more, they would be thrown down the mountain. What? Because someone had previously sold a cigarette for 10 copper coins. This angered Zhang Feng. He immediately said that if anyone dared to sell cigarettes at a high price, he would break their legs and throw them down the mountain. At this point, no one would sell cigarettes privately. After all, everyone could only buy cigarettes without a stick every day. If they did not even have enough for themselves, who would dare to sell? At this time, Chang and city was full of people wandering around blindly. Their eyes were as sharp as needles. Even if it was a job like digging out feces, they would fight to do it. Who would dare to lose such a good job on the mountain? In this year of disaster, how could there be such a comfortable job on the mountain? To the commoners, this was like a pie falling from the sky. Although students were provided with 10 cigarettes a day, but where could there be free cigarettes in this time? There was a big basket at the door. The basket was full of cigarettes. Smoke as you wish. But at this time, Zhang Feng was also worried. There was no room for anyone to sit in the hut. The entire hut was filled with the smell of cigarettes. What's more, these people were so angry that they refused to leave. Even Gao Can, who was the most obedient, was not obedient at this time. Even Zhang Feng had to follow him when he was taking a dump. His mouth had never stopped smoking. Zhang Feng felt a headache coming on. He lit a cigarette and tapped the self-made blackboard on the wall with a bamboo stick. Today's lesson will end here. Today I will give you a question. If I have 7 ingots of gold and want to divide them among an official, a merchant, a Confucian scholar, and a civilian and a servant, how can I divide them equally? The premise is that they are not allowed to use their connections. How can we distribute them evenly? As soon as Zhang Feng finished speaking, Li Qingqian was the first to answer, "Teacher, there are 7 gold ingots. There are 5 people here. If we don't distinguish their identities, then if we exchange the extra 2 gold ingots for copper coins, we might be able to divide them all." Hearing this, Du Go hurriedly nodded. Ma Zhou, on the other hand, frowned deeply. Is there still a need to divide? 2 ingots of gold and 5 people playing rock paper scissors. Wouldn't it be better if the winner was predestined? Why is it so troublesome? Cheng Chumo said unhappily. Bullshit. If it was so simple, would Fengzi be doing homework here? Scram, then tell us, if 5 people divide 7 gold ingots, let's not talk about others. Let's talk about the 5 of us. How do we divide it? Wouldn't it be better if we split the gold ingots and went to Swallow Descent restaurant? Shut up. I beg you to shut up. I was wrong. Zhang Feng collapsed. On one hand, it was because of the smoke. On the other hand, it was because he felt that the question he asked was too low standard. Now let's talk about another one. The one just now doesn't count. Now listen carefully. Say, first uncle went to second uncle's house to find third uncle. He said that fourth uncle was tricked by fifth uncle to go to sixth uncle's house to steal seventh uncle's things and eighth uncle's cabinet. Ninth uncle borrowed 10,000 strings of coins from 10th uncle to 11th uncle's wages. Ask who the thief is and who the money belongs to. Everyone please deduce. Zhang Feng did not believe it. This question would not kill them. As expected, when Zhang Feng said this question, the entire room became silent. Only the sound of tobacco burning in the air was left. Heavens, first uncle, no, seventh uncle? That's not right. Damn it, who could secretly steal 10,000 strings of coins? Now let me think again. Third uncle's family went to fourth uncle to talk to fifth uncle. Seeing this, Zhang Feng finally heaved a sigh of relief. I'll let you all be chimneys for the day. Alright, before tomorrow's lesson, you all have to hand in your answers and names to me. Whoever doesn't hand it in will be punished to rear pigs with Ma Zhou. Ma Zhou was stunned. Then what is Ma Zhou doing now? Qing Chumo asked without thinking. Teaching you how to rear pigs. After Zhang Feng said this hurriedly, he waved his hand and looked at Yu Qigong, who was standing at the door, as well as a man who was looking at him with a smile that made his scalp numb. He hurriedly dispersed the crowd. As for Li Qingxian and the rest, they knew Yu Qigong and the people around him. They were stunned at first, then they hurriedly ran away in ecstasy. Brother Zhang Feng, this lesson is good. These brats are all lawless at the foot of the mountain, but here they are all sheep. The moment Yu Qigong entered, he grabbed a handful of cigarettes from the bamboo basket and stuffed them into his bosom. The man in the dark green robe, who looked like a grasshopper, copied Yu Qigong's actions and grabbed a handful of cigarettes. He even lit one up. This made Zhang Feng, who wanted to greet them, unhappy instantly. He only cupped his fist. It was considered as an agreement. Then he cupped his fists towards the middle-aged man in the green robe and said, "May I know who this is?" Yu Qigong laughed and put his arm around Zhang Feng's neck and said, "Fengzi, let me introduce you. This guy has been managing Lao Li's business in Qiuzi City in Longyu Road. When he heard that you opened an academy, he rushed back without stopping to send his son up the mountain." The middle-aged man in the green robe looked at Zhang Feng and nodded. "Lao Yu and I are brothers, closer than real brothers. My surname is Niu, people call me Barbarian Niu. You can call me Old Niu." Chapter 793. What kind of demons and ghosts are these? Barbarian Niu? He might as well call the gadfly. It was as if this old Yu was someone who walked the same path as him. The first time they met, they were both so eye-catching. Although he thought so, Zhang Feng still smiled and cupped his fists. "So it's Old Niu. Come, please sit. It's a pity that there's no wine on the mountain. Otherwise, we'd have to drink to our heart's content today." This was Zhang Feng's specialty. But how could Old Niu not know? Old Niu was Niu Jinda, who was known as one of the 5 war gods of the Tang dynasty along with Qing Yaojin, Yu Qigong, Qin Qiong and Li Jing. He was also the general who had always been in charge of Qiuzi. This time he returned to the capital. It was mainly because of the matter of sending troops to India, as well as the firearms, the impenetrable shield, and the invincible spear that he had been longing for. The moment he returned to the capital, he heard the most about the mountain. In the end, after Niu Jinda entered the palace to meet the emperor, Li Shimin directly pointed to the mountain. Go, let Yuchi bring you up the mountain. You personally go to that kid and ask for the firearms. It was this sentence that caused Niu Jinda to waste 3 days at the residences of Qing Yaojin, Yuchi Gong, and Qin Xiong. It was also during these 3 days that Niu Jinda was shocked by Zhang Feng's name. When he learned that several people in the imperial court, including the retired emperor, had become brothers with this kid, he was shocked. That was why he didn't treat Zhang Feng as an outsider and treated him as his own home the moment he entered the house. After the 3 of them sat on the balcony outside the house, Yuchi Gong said, "Last time you said that my share. No, there's no room for discussion. You also know that my paper mill only makes a little profit. Look at the mountain. Old you, look at it personally. This business is huge. It can't be any more." Yuchi Gong glared. "Who said that he wants your paper mill? Today, I personally sent my son and old Nyo's son to the mountain to report. Alright, we beat the gatekeeper at the foot of the mountain. Is that okay?" Zhang Feng was petrified. "Who did you hit?" Looking at Yuchi Gong's burly appearance, Zhang Feng seriously wondered if this guy could break a rock with a single punch. If he could punch someone, then that person isn't dead, right? Zhang Feng continued asking. "It's nothing. I just knocked him out with a slap. He's too weak. Do I, old you, need to report my arrival? This guy still dares to block the way. Not killing him is already giving you a lot of face." "Who did you hit?" "I don't know, but I heard that his name is Zhu Zi. He is from Tong Hui Fong. I have already sent someone to send him 1,000 tubes of money and 300 dawn of food. They will be sent to the mountain at sunset. You can arrange it as you see fit. This is also because of your face. Otherwise, if Lao Tzu beat people up, who would dare to fart?" Yuchi Gong wasn't wrong. Who dared to stop him? In this Chang and city, and even in the Tang dynasty, even if they killed someone on the street, the emperor would only reprimand them, let alone kill someone who blocked the way. However, Zhang Feng felt a headache coming on. It seemed that he would have to teach these people in the admissions office a lesson in the future. At the very least, he would have to teach these people who like to beat people to a pulp. "You are too much, aren't you? This is my academy. If everyone is like you in the future, what will happen?" Zhang Feng could not help but grumble speechlessly. Yuchi Gong waved his hand. "Don't worry about that. I have already sent 30 people who are familiar with the environment in Chang'an City, as well as people who are familiar with the environment of the various states. Now that they have taken over the mountain gate, your people can do whatever they want from now on. Just leave the mountain gate to them. Although some of them are old and injured, they are all old soldiers that I have spent a lot of money to hire. You can rest assured about their character and other aspects." Niu Jinda nodded when he heard that. "I have also sent you 50 old soldiers that I recruited in Xiuzi City. Their ability to guard the house is first class. I have seen that the market at the foot of the mountain is in a mess. With these people around, you can rest assured that everything will be arranged properly for you." Zhang Feng's eyes widened when he heard that. "So the 2 of you are treating my mountain as a retirement home? You are throwing your unwanted subordinates to me?" Needless to say, this was Yuchi Gong and Niu Jinda's plan, as well as the emperor's arrangement. At this time it was not peaceful outside. All kinds of spies were walking around Chang'an. Now that the mountain was dealing with confidential things like firearms, if there were not a few skilled people around, it would be easy to become a target. Yesterday the emperor met with Yuchi Gong and the others to discuss this matter. They thought about it and came up with this idea. In any case, every year, Li Shimin spent countless money and food for these old, weak, sick and disabled people. Now it was good. He could also use their last bit of value here. It could also be said that he had found a place for them to return to. Zhang Feng was speechless. But he also knew. Old soldiers. Moreover, they were veterans who had been through hundreds of battles. They were people who had been baptized by fire and iron. Judging from the situation on the mountain and the fairy ointment that he had received, there were already people who had their eyes on him. These people were far more discerning than the people in Tonghui City. With them guarding the door, it would just be an extra 100 mouths to feed. Moreover, now that they were here, what could he do? Chase them away? He could not even send them away. Zhang Feng could only silently admit that he was unlucky. "Then I have to thank the 2 of you for your kindness." Chapter 794. While smoking, Yuchi Gong asked, "Fengzi, this cigarette?" Zhang Feng looked alert. "Don't even think about it. It's not the time to produce it. Now it's only enough for the consumption of the mountain and the needs of your masters. I can't do anything more. After I'm done with the academy, I'll make it in the factory. With one more sentence, he retorted Yuqigong's words. It wasn't that he didn't want to make it. It was that the tobacco had not arrived yet. With so many things on hand, he was so annoyed that he didn't have time to do anything else. The paper mill was basically on the right track now. But there were too many things that needed improvement. For example, toilet paper, the production machines, the preparation of the memory branch, and so on. Although he didn't need to worry much about them, the most troublesome thing was that he hadn't taught Chen Wanli everything about the research and development. Another thing was the new textbooks of the academy. The teaching building of the academy had begun to be painted. School would start in less than a month. Where would the books come from? These were all problems. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't want to say anything more about this matter, Yuqigong didn't say anything more. Instead, Niu Jinda asked, I heard from Lao Li that you've set up a workshop. I came back this time because of the firearms. I also found some top blacksmiths from the western region. They're good at pouring and some locksmiths. I spent a lot of money to get them. I wonder if they can help you? Zhang Feng was overjoyed when he heard this. The pouring method of the western region was actually using wax molds. Although this kind of skill existed in the Tang dynasty, some things had to be made by Tubo's craftsmen. It wasn't that the Tang dynasty couldn't make it, but the skills mastered by the people of the Tang dynasty were different from the skills of the western region. If the two sides were combined, there might be a way. The reason why the workshop hadn't started yet was that Zhang Feng was worried about these things. He didn't expect old Niu to give him such a big gift. However, in terms of loyalty, Zhang Feng was still a little worried. He could not help but ask, Old bull, this thing of mine is... How could Niu Jinda not know what Zhang Feng was going to say? He waved his hand and interrupted him. He took a puff of his cigarette and said, You can rest assured about this. I have their slave contracts with me. As he spoke, Niu Jinda waved his hand outside. Brats, come in and meet your future teacher. Didn't they say that it was a slave contract? This, Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. She looked at the three burly men standing in the room. Two of them looked very similar to Yuqigong. Needless to say, they were old Yu's sons. As for the other one, although he looked strong, he had a face that didn't belong to his size. Well, how should he put it? Zhang Feng felt a little like Neza from the movie, Why? What kind of visual impact was this? Baby face coupled with explosive muscles? The three of them saw that Zhang Feng was observing them. They stood there nervously and looked down. Fengzi, I'll leave these two brats to you from now on. Oh yes, this is old Niu's son. You can call him Xiaoniu. He's a little timid. You have to take care of him from now on. As for my two brats, you can make whatever you want. Yes, Xiaoniu has been spoiled by his mother since he was young. Fengzi, I'll leave him to you. Take care of him. He's very obedient. Ah, Zhang Feng was speechless. Alright, since we're all brothers, what are you talking about? Zhang Feng wanted to refuse. However, when he saw the name list that Yuqi Baolin handed to him, he couldn't stay calm anymore. In this name list were the slave contracts of those craftsmen from the western region. With this, the firearms could be produced more efficiently. Moreover, there was no need to worry about the secret being leaked. Most importantly, there were two awesome people in this list. These two awesome people were very famous in history. However, their names could only be seen in unofficial history. However, when Zhang Feng visited the Sheet and Steel Forest Museum, he had seen their names and the glass products and gold and silver wares they produced. Mokido. He was good at producing glass. Alkinen. He was good at pouring gold and silver wares with the wax dripping method. He was the one who poured the gilded lamps. Even in the Steel Forest Museum, it was still a treasure. He didn't expect old Niu to get his hands on these two people. What Zhang Feng didn't know was that these two guys were kidnapped by Niu Jinda after he heard that Zhang Feng wanted to do this and needed top-notch craftsmen. He spent a lot of effort and sacrificed hundreds of spies from the western region to kidnap them. This meant that these people who appeared in Shao Mountain were forced by Niu Jinda to become the Kunlun slaves of the Tang dynasty. Seeing Zhang Feng laughing so hard that his teeth couldn't be covered, Niu Jinda and Yuqigong looked at each other and asked, Little brother, what do you think of this gift from your brother? Good. Very good. I didn't expect old Niu to be so resourceful. You actually got Mokido and Alkinen for me. Hearing Zhang Feng's words, Niu Jinda couldn't help but ask curiously, You know these two people? Let's not talk about it. Let's go and open the furnace. Let's talk while we walk. Chapter 795. Zhang Feng was very anxious. Because of the sense of crisis, he desperately wanted to make a pistol for self-defense. Otherwise he would not feel safe at all. The arrival of these two great gods gave him hope. As soon as they walked out of the room, Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong could not help but ask Zhang Feng, "How do you know these two? Have you been to the western region?" Zhang Feng naturally had not been to the western region. Seeing that Zhang Feng was ignoring them, Yu Baolin and the others had to find Qing Chumo and the others to fool around. Zhang Feng then said, "You should know that I have a master. He once went to the western regions. He was the one who told me about this matter. Moreover, he was full of praise for their craftsmanship." "So, you have been delaying the start of the work because of these two?" Yu Qigong asked. Zhang Feng spread his hands with a wry smile. "Look at me, I have so many things to do. Besides, the smelter that Lao Li found for me hasn't come up the mountain yet. How can I do it? I only have a pair of hands. Moreover, I believe that old Cow has seen the craftsmanship of these two people before. Now that the two of them are here, I only need one person who knows how to smelt. This job can basically be done by me. By the way, old Cow, where is the person?" "He's in the workshop. I can't have it all in my hands, can I?" Niu Jinda pointed at the back of the mountain. Zhang Feng could not help but get excited when he heard that. He could not help but quicken his pace. "Let's go. If you can wait, I can show you the power of the gun in less than 5 days. "Really?" Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda asked almost at the same time. Because of this matter, the emperor was so worried that his hair turned white. However, the people of the Ministry of Works did not dare to take action. The main reason was that the emperor also knew the importance of this thing. Once the secret was leaked, it would be fatal. As for searching for it in the Tang dynasty, Li Shimin was really worried. In the end, he made the decision and sent 3 secret letters to Niu Jinda, who was in Qiuzi, asking him to look for the top smelters in the western regions at all costs. Li Shimin had learned to be smart. He wanted to use the things made by the people of the western regions to deal with these people. Most importantly, this place was thousands of miles away from the western regions. Once they signed the slave seal, they wouldn't be able to escape even if they wanted to. In addition, Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda had brought along many layers of protection. How could they possibly escape? Unless he turned into a ghost. This was Li Shimin's brilliance. This was also the purpose of Niu Jinda's return to Chang'an. The 100,000 troops of the Tang dynasty were about to head to Qiuzi city. When they officially set off, if they could get even 1,000 firearms or that kind of shield, this operation would not only be a deterrent but also a deterrent. Although they had never seen firearms. However, when Li Shimin, Yu Qigong, and the others passed on Zhang Feng's words to Niu Jinda knew that he didn't need to ask for too much. Just a little bit would be enough to change the outcome of the battle. Divine weapons were often the best things to deter the enemy. The unknown was the most terrifying thing. While they each had their own thoughts. Finally, they arrived at the forge on the edge of the cliff. At this time, the forge was filled with the stench of a fox. A group of veterans led more than 30 barbarians who were wearing the same sheepskin, barefoot, and arms as if they were animals. Even their bare feet were covered in blood. At this time they saw the arrival of these people. The bearded barbarians trembled all over as if they had seen the Grim Reaper. As for the veterans, when they saw these people, they instinctively straightened up and did not have any other reaction. Come, what are you all standing there for? Ask them to get up and meet their masters." Niu Jinda scolded as soon as he arrived. The veterans did not hesitate. They waved the leather whip in their hands. Zhang Feng hurriedly stopped them. Zhang Feng hated this kind of slavery. But where was this? This was the Tang dynasty where slavery was the most prevalent. Moreover, he also knew what these people were going to do in the future. These were all his secrets. Once they were leaked, it would be a disaster. Therefore, Zhang Feng could only try his best to be merciful. When the slaves saw this, they stood up numbly and hung their heads. Zhang Feng was also very direct. He asked, "Which one of you is called Mokido? Which one of you is called Elkinan? Come out." Zhang Feng's voice did not seem to have any effect. Everyone just stood there numbly. "Are you deaf? If you don't come out, you will all die for Lao Tzu." Niu Jinda shouted. It was indeed effective. After everyone trembled in fear for a while, 2 people in the crowd slowly walked out of the crowd. Both of them were basically the standard of the Hu people. Their faces were full of vicissitudes. It was unknown whether it was because they walked all the way from the western regions to Chang'an, or because they had always been like this. Zhang Feng saw the 2 of them come out. He looked at the 2 of them and said, "I know that you are still afraid, but I can promise you that although I can't let you go home, I have something that you will not expect. I have something you can't imagine here, and I can guarantee that you'll become the best craftsman in the world here. I promise that as long as I, Zhang Feng, am here, no one will do anything to you. You will have the same status and treatment as me. What do you think? Chapter 796. All the top craftsmen that Niu Jinda had brought over from the western regions were somewhat moved at this time, but there was still a trace of despair in their numb eyes. This was because they knew what kind of result awaited them. No matter what kind of promise was given at this time, would they live to see the next day? Algernon was even more clear about this. As slaves, how could they not know what would happen to them? Once upon a time, they were top-notch blacksmiths whose names had shaken the region, and they had their own pride. Although they had been reduced to such a state, they still had their own pride. Niu Jinda couldn't stand it anymore and was about to get angry, but he was stopped by Zhang Feng. Old Niu, don't be anxious. These people are now my people. I have the final say. Can you stand aside first? Zhang Feng hurriedly comforted Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong. Zhang Feng had plenty of methods to make these people obediently submit. To put it bluntly, these people were no different from the mad scientists of the future. In fact, they had not seen some things. If they knew that he had things that they had never heard of or seen before, would they still be like this? That would be like seeing a ghost. Zhang Feng wasn't anxious or angry. He just took out some forging blueprints that he had drawn when he had nothing to do. These blueprints were very simple, but they were basically plans of roads and roads. Zhang Feng purposely shook the snow-white blueprint until it made a rustling sound. As for Algernon and the others, although they didn't say anything, from the way they quieted down and leaned forward slightly, it could be seen that they were carefully observing Zhang Feng's actions. Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong couldn't understand Zhang Feng's actions. They wanted to say something, but after opening their mouths they didn't say anything. They wanted to see what Zhang Feng was up to. Zhang Feng opened the blueprints and spread them open. The blueprints were about the size of a table. On them were the blueprints of an improved crossbow, as well as the blueprints of a disassembled crossbow. These blueprints weren't the ones that everyone knew. They were the ones that had been modernized and improved in the future. They were the type of crossbow that could shoot about 1,000 meters. When the blueprints were spread out, Yu Juanda and Yu Qigong were instantly attracted by them, even though they couldn't understand them. However, they still recognized the body of the crossbow in Jianxian. No matter how much this thing was modified, they could still see the outline of the crossbow on the top of the blueprints. Fengzi, why does this look different from the crossbows we have seen before? Now he couldn't help but stare at the drawing with his bearded eyes, trying to figure out what it was. However, he could only roughly tell that it looked like a crossbow from its shape. He really couldn't understand the details of those bits and pieces. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin also came up and asked at the same time, Fengzi, what is this thing of yours? Why does it look a little? Their conversation instantly attracted the attention of the guards standing at the side. Then everyone started whispering to each other. They were all soldiers, so they often dealt with bows and arrows. However, when they saw this thing again, they couldn't help but be surprised. Was this kid trying to make a crossbow? Zhang Feng smiled. His eyes were fixed on Arjunang and the others. Seeing that everyone was confused, Zhang Feng didn't hold back and said loudly, "You have all seen this before, so you should be familiar with it." That's right, it's something that everyone is very familiar with, a crossbow. However, your understanding is a little off. This thing is indeed a crossbow, but a normal crossbow has a shooting range of about 100 to 150 meters. However, according to my requirements and the blueprints, a crossbow made of steel can shoot at least 1,000 meters if it's based on an ordinary person's physical strength and configuration. What? 1,000 meters? How is that possible? Impossible. What in the world can make a crossbow shoot 1,000 meters? This is simply absurd. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Yu Juanda and Yu Qigong couldn't help but exclaim. From what they knew, there was nothing that could shoot more than 1,000 meters. Even that kind of huge crossbow wouldn't be able to shoot that far. At this moment, the craftsmen from the western region couldn't help but become restless. However, Arjunang and Qing Yaojin didn't react at all. It was as if this temptation hadn't reached their limit yet. Zhang Feng seemed to have expected this. He glanced at Arjunang and Qing Yaojin. He seemed to be talking to Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong, but rather to Arjunang and Qing Yaojin. You should have heard of something that I've mentioned before, right? Niu Jinda narrowed his eyes. You're talking about the crossbows made of the same material as the impenetrable shield and the invincible spear. Chapter 797. That's right, it's that kind of material. It's the steel I mentioned before. Zhang Feng nodded and continued. He pointed at the blueprint and said, most of the weapons on the market are made by companies. Although these things can be said to be willful, they are very easy to damage. If a crossbow is used for a long time, it can be said that it has to be reforged. But if a little bit of it is used, even if it's only used on the bowstring of a crossbow, the software will not only increase the hardness, strength, and extension of the crossbow to a certain extent, but it will also allow the crossbow to reach the limit of its shooting range, which is the 1,000 steps I mentioned just now. The eyes of Niu Jinda and the others turned red in an instant. This kid had mentioned steel more than once before. He had also said that it was invulnerable and that the rain was an invincible spear. However, this kid had always regarded it as a treasure and had not taken any action. But now the emperor had allowed this kid to take out this thing at such a critical time. Even so, this kid still did not reveal how awesome this thing was. He had only told Chinchumo and the others before. At that time, everyone thought that Zhang Feng was really bragging, and they only remembered the invulnerable spear and the invincible spear in their minds. How could they remember this material? In their hearts, this material was nothing more than that kind of iron with some other things added. But now what about this time? This kid had actually said this in front of a group of blacksmiths from the western region who had been captured by them. Could it be that these two people, especially Algernon, were very useful to this kid? Everyone couldn't help but look at Algernon again. Even so, Algernon did not react at all. It was as if what Zhang Feng had said had nothing to do with him. Niu Jinda's temper couldn't help but rise again. When Zhang Feng arrived, he was even more expectant. The more calm he was at a time like this, the more it showed that this person was awesome, really awesome. It was just that young Master Zhang's words hadn't poked at their sore spot yet. Zhang Feng wasn't in a hurry. He once again explained to Niu Jinda and the others what was awesome about the crossbow. Instead of his previous indifference, he mysteriously pulled Lu Jinda and the others to the side and used a voice that everyone could faintly hear to speak. Brothers, do you still remember the firearms I mentioned before? Niu Jinda, Yuqigong and the others' eyes lit up when they heard this. They nodded without hesitation. I've heard of it. Didn't you want to make this thing? Didn't you ask these people to come here and make this thing? You talked about steel and this crossbow which led us all to the same place. Don't tell me you don't want to make this thing? Zhang Feng glanced at Arjunan and said, no, you're wrong. That thing must be practiced. But before practicing that thing you have to practice what you just did. If you can't even practice what you just did, then you should just forget about that thing, right? Yuqigong frowned. What do you mean? Zhang Feng smiled faintly and raised his voice a little. Do you know why I haven't started yet? It's not that I don't want to do it, it's just that I can use it to protect myself. It's also a great opportunity for me to make a name for my White Deer Institute. Just like what you said just now, if I can solve the Emperor's urgent problem, wouldn't I be able to enter the Imperial Court in an instant? Wouldn't I have to wait for the Imperial examination 3 years later? But under this premise, the train is very dangerous. If it's not handled properly, not only will it hurt others, it will also hurt oneself. So, old you know that I cherish my life. If there's even the slightest danger, I won't dare to do it. Yuqigong nodded at Qing Yaojin. This kid was as timid as a mouse. However, they didn't know what Zhang Feng was trying to say, so they could only go along with him. Kid, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't dawdle like a girl. All right. I know that you old you are an impatient person. Let's put it this way. Steel is a very important thing. It's refined from iron, and it's even more precious than snot. Take the iron piled up here as an example. Zhang Feng pointed at the pile of scrap metal in the corner of the forging room and said, as you can see, this pile of scrap metal doesn't add up to more than 10,000 pounds. It seems like a lot to you, but if I tell you that if you want to smelt them all and reforge them, you can only make about 100 caddies of steel, would you believe me? 100 caddies? Yuqigong, Niu Jinda, and the others weren't the only ones who were surprised. Even the blacksmiths from the western region were shocked as they looked at the piles of worn-out ironware behind them. Even Algernon hurriedly glanced at the pile of rusty subways next to him. Everyone couldn't believe it at this time. There was about 80,000 jin of scrap iron, but how could they praise it? There were so many things in this kid's mouth, but he could only smelt out 100 jin. What was going on with his so-called steel? Zhang Feng ignored everyone's shock, because his eyes were fixed on Algernon and Niu Jinlong. Seeing that Algernon finally reacted, he couldn't help but raise his voice again. Yes, you didn't hear it wrong. It's 100 caddies. Do you know why? This is where the difficulty of this thing lies. In the eyes of many people, these things seem to have reached the pinnacle, but in my eyes they are still just scrap metal. Even the famous Mo saber of the great Tang is just a pile of scrap metal used by children to fight in my eyes. In front of a real steel saber, no matter how many iron sabers there are, they are just like wooden sticks. Silence. Silence. A deathly silence. Everyone was completely silent at this time. Seeing this, Zhang Feng continued to use his big move. He firmly believed that as long as the temptation was strong enough, he could even grind 100-meter-thick iron rod into a needle. So, as long as this thing is really made, I can make it for you even if it has a range of 10,000 steps, let alone 1,000 steps. However, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. I originally thought that this time, old bull, you would find me some top-notch blacksmithing talents from the western region. But I never expected that old bull, you would find me a bunch of trash. Chapter 798. Upon hearing this, the craftsman from the western region burst into an uproar and growled angrily. Kid, you can insult us, but you can't insult our skills. That's right. Although we are slaves now, we used to be people with high status in our respective fields. You actually dare to say that we are all trash? Boy, do you dare to make a bet with your grandfather? Yes. Let's have a bet. Whoever doesn't have a bet is a coward. Motherf asterisk cur, even if I have to risk my life, I will bite off a piece of meat from your body. You've gone too far, you've gone too far. Impudent. Shut up. Are you trying to rebel? As Niu Jinda's subordinates berated them, everyone shut their mouths. However, they still stared at Zhang Feng with bloodshot eyes. Yu Juanda and Yu Qigong seemed to have thought of something as well, so they also stared at Zhang Feng with strange expressions. This kid seemed to be stirring up trouble. They couldn't help but admire Zhang Feng a little. Back then, Lu Jinan had sacrificed at least thousands of people in order to get these people. It was for no other reason than to obtain the legendary shield and spear that were invulnerable to swords and spears. However, after he returned to the capital, he heard that this brat could actually make that kind of gun. He was looking forward to other things like that even more. Putting this aside, there were more than 30 people standing in front of him. Although he had brought back the people, the western region was basically in an uproar now. All the countries were frantically searching for these people. He also knew that these people would gather together. It would be very difficult to arouse the pride in their hearts and suppress the memories in their bodies. However, once they were squeezed out and gathered together, it would be really terrifying. This was also why Niu Jinda had ignored all the things he had set up in Gizi City and the surrounding areas, as well as the intricate network, when he had received the secret edict. Although he had brought back the people, these people were a bunch of despicable wretches. Each and every one of them was extremely arrogant. Niu Jinda could not fight these people even if he wanted to. He could not kill them even if he wanted to. Along the way, Niu Jinda was so angry that he almost died. However, in his opinion, something that was problematic was actually tamed by this kid in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Niu Jinda couldn't help but give Zhang Feng a thumbs up in admiration. Awesome. Zhang Feng did not pay attention to Yu Juanda's praise. Instead, he put his hands behind his back and walked to Mokido and Arkanon. He asked, I seem to hear that you are not convinced? The two of them were so angry that their beards were trembling. Wasn't this nonsense? You've already said it like that. Who the F***CK could still hold back? Are you a F***king idiot? Zhang Feng ignored their murderous gazes as he waved the blueprint in front of them and said, Right now, your lives are in my hands. If I say I want you to die, it's very easy. Do you see the cliff below? All I need is a gentle push and all of you will die instantly. Bah. Trash. You only know how to bully the weak. What kind of hero are you? If you have the ability, then let's talk with real abilities. Arkanon roared angrily. Zhang Feng acted as if he didn't hear anything. He patted Arkanon's shoulder and said, Don't worry. I haven't finished yet. I have another option for you. Like I said, as long as you do as I say, or if you want to prove that you're not trash, I can teach you this magical forging technique. I can also teach you this confidential thing. Whether you're a mule or a horse, whether you're trash or a talent, let's talk about it, okay? What do you want? Arkanon, if you're here and can't understand what Zhang Fengna is trying to say, then you've lived your life in vain. At this time, the people behind him were still looking at Zhang Feng with vigilance and anger. The husband ignored him. Finally, he looked at the top forging master Lioli. Mokido said, Although I haven't met you and Arkanon, my master has praised your craftsmanship. Now, I have a way for you to make something that will surpass anything you've made before. Believe it or not, as long as you're willing to prove your ability, I will do my best to teach you everything I know. I promise that I will send you back after 10 years. What do you think? During this time you will be treated the same as me. 3 pots of good wine, 3 beggars' chickens, and a full meal every day. What do you think? Same for you. You will serve for 10 years. If I, Zhang Feng, can't make you famous in the world within 10 years, I, Zhang Feng, will let you take my head at any time. Everyone was shocked, including Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda. However, Zhong Tong did not care about anyone. At this time only 3 words flashed in his mind. The Academy of Science. Lao Tzu's Academy of Science finally opened today. Chapter 799. Alkinen and Mokido were not fools. On the contrary, the two of them wanted to live more than anyone else present. They wanted to live. They wanted their fame to continue growing. Everyone lived for their reputation. This was especially true for people like them who cared more about their reputation, just like the great Confucians of the great Tang. They could lose their lives but they could not lose their reputation. And Zhang Feng just so happened to grab hold of this pain point of theirs. In fact, Zhang Feng did not lose anything. Originally, Zhang Feng had been worried about the matter of the Scientific Research Institute. After all, there were some old and stubborn people. Although it was good to go up the mountain and look good, these people were not suitable to enter the kind of people who only focused on one thing to the extent of madness. If he wanted to personally nurture some people, it would take a very long time. For example, Zhang Feng's plan for the later stage, which was related to agriculture, could be said to be very far away. However, because of these people, Zhang Feng could not help but see a glimmer of hope. Although firearms and other things like steel were somewhat biased towards a certain aspect, some people were different. This was only for some people. In Zhang Feng's eyes, as long as steel was produced, many things such as wind-driven lathes could save manpower. If they were used to manufacture certain things, they would enter another level. As long as these things were produced, the rubber factories and textile factories that Zhang Feng had mentioned before would be put on the right track faster. Not to mention other things like steel. Before this, Zhang Feng had not thought too much about it. As long as it was produced, it would be fine. However, after hearing Alkinen and Mokido's names, he immediately had a plan. He wanted to turn all these people into a group of scientific lunatics. They only focused on researching how to make steel into better lunatics. As long as a group of people appeared, the rest would not be far away. For example, as long as these people appeared, Du Dabing's progress could be sped up. When the time came, he would only need to cooperate with him. After all, people in physics and scientific chemistry only cared about quality, not quantity. However, they needed a lot of people to cooperate with them. For example, Mokido. His appearance was like those metal tubes, test tubes, and the like. Zhang Feng saved people and sped up the process. As for the precision manufacturing of other things, the 30 or so slaves were more than capable of doing it. Moreover, they were existences that posed no threat at all. After arranging the follow-up work for the 30 people, Zhang Feng explained in detail what they needed to pay attention to when smelting steel. He left leisurely. Niu Jinda and the others, whose heads were full of question marks, sat in Zhang Feng's living room and lit up a cigarette. Only then did they recover from their deep doubts. They could not help but ask almost in unison, "Fengzi, are you really crazy? Can these people be of great use?" Zhang Feng nodded disapprovingly. At this time Yu Qigong said with some lingering fear, "Fengzi, you, listen to me. After all, these people are foreigners. How can they make such confidential things? If they leak this matter, even if they only tell the people on the mountain or those who transport the goods, have you thought about the consequences?" Zhang Feng smiled faintly. He took a puff of the cigarette and blew out a smoke ring. "I know what you mean. Those who are not of my race must have different intentions, right?" Yu Qigong did not speak. He just nodded with a serious face. The reason why these people were brought to the mountain was that they wanted to help the Tang dynasty find craftsmen in the future. In other words, they could be used as prisoners on death row. However, Zhang Feng wanted to put them in an important position. Moreover, he wanted to pass on the core secrets that they did not know to these people. What if this spread out? Zhang Feng shook his head and said with certainty, "In fact, sometimes these people are more reliable than those in the Tang dynasty who think they are top craftsmen or those who are famous." The two were puzzled. Zhang Feng continued, "You can treat these people as lunatics. They did do these things for fame and benefits or for some family inheritance, but that was in the past. Now they also know that it is absolutely impossible for them to go home. Under such circumstances, hope is far more effective than despair. For example, you are one of the 4 gods of war of the Tang dynasty, but you accidentally get lost in the desert and are intercepted by the Turks. Do you think they will directly kill you to vent their anger? Or will they squeeze the most value out of you?" Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda were shocked. In an instant, a layer of white hair appeared all over their bodies. Although Zhang Feng's words were unintentional, they really poked at their sore spot. They were indeed generals. Moreover, they knew some secrets that were simply unimaginable for the Turks. They had thought countless times about what would happen if they fell into the hands of the enemy. But at this time, if they thought about it from another perspective, They could not help but think of the meaning of Zhang Feng's words just now. Although they were not cowards and were not afraid of death in some aspects, if someone tried to goad them into action in the military field, they were likely to fall for it. Zhang Feng's words were unintentional, but he inadvertently reminded the two of them. If they also used this trick in the military, then the several people in the room could not help but take a puff of smoke, frowning deeply. After a long time, one of them smacked the last bit of smoke in his hand and said, "Boy, I'm convinced." Chapter 800. Although the matter here had been resolved, more than 30 craftsmen from the western regions had suddenly appeared on the mountain. The news had already spread like wildfire on the mountain. "Hey, have you heard? Just now, I heard that the dean is working on some forging method. Previously there was no movement. But today 2 big uncouth men suppressed a group of people from the western regions. I heard that they are some craftsmen. It seems that the dean wants to conduct a visit there. Moreover, he wants to hand over everything he knows to those people." When this voice reached everyone's ears, everyone was stunned for a moment. What did you say? When did the dean set up a forging workshop on the mountain? This is impossible. I just heard that the dean set up a paper mill at the foot of the mountain. How is this possible? Suddenly he set up a forging workshop. What is the dean doing? As the sun set, all the craftsmen and the students on the mountain sat on the piles of materials and wood in the kitchen, eating in 2s and 3s. While eating, they whispered about this matter. Although Zheng Chui and Zhang Sun sat far away, they could still hear some of these things at this time. At this time they saw Wei Shuyu, Yuchi Baolin, the 2 brothers, and the boy from the Niu family running over with several black mud balls in their arms. The 2 of them subconsciously walked to the other side with their bowls. On the other side, Li Qingqian and Du Go had already put some account books and other things on the table into a basket. There were several bamboo bottles of beer on the table. They quietly looked at the mud balls in the hands of Yuchi Baolin and the others and drooled. When Cheng Chumo and Zhang Sun Chong walked over, Yuchi Baolin and the others also placed black briquettes on the table. Out of habit, Wei Shuyu picked up 2 mouthfuls and a mudfish from under the table and knocked on it. In an instant, a fragrant smell wafted out, causing everyone to greedily take a few sniffs. Cheng Chumo mysteriously took out a paper bag from his arms and waited for the golden roasted beggar's chicken. After putting it on the table, he casually sprinkled some spices on it and grabbed a chicken breast and began to eat it. When the others saw this, how could they be vague? In a short while, they divided the chickens neatly, leaving only some skin standing on the lotus leaves. While eating, Zhang Sunchong gnawed on a bone and asked, "When I was eating and keeping watch over there just now, I heard them say that Uncle Lu has recruited more than 30 craftsmen in forging and smelting. Now Fengzi wants to impart all the forging knowledge he has learned to those people. Have you heard about this?" Li Qingqian, when he heard this, he was shocked. He subconsciously looked at Yuchi Baolin and Niu Jinda's son. "You 3, what's going on?" Other than Yuchi Baolin and the other 2 who had just joined, everyone else knew of Zhang Feng's incredible skills. Yet he wasn't imparting it to his own brothers, and instead he was giving it to the Hu. What was going on? There was something going on here. When the 3 of them heard this, Yuchi Baolin chewed on the chicken thigh and put a chicken head in his mouth and said, "Hey, what's the big deal? I heard that those 30 or so people were given a secret order by the higher-ups. Uncle Niu even activated the spies he arranged without hesitation. He lost more than 1,000 experts in the western regions in exchange for these top-notch experts. I heard that they were going to do something about being invulnerable to swords and spears, and a spear that could pierce anything. But when they went up the mountain..." "Well, you can shut up." Before Yuchi Baolin could finish, Li Qingqian waved his hand and interrupted him. But there were only countless question marks in his mind. Needless to say, the secret order must have been issued by his father. But he only knew one thing. Was there no talent in the Tang dynasty that could be used? Li Qingqian couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng's house and the wisps of smoke drifting out from the windows and door. He frowned deeply. On the other side, under an old jujube tree under the waterfall, Yu Shernan and the others were sitting at a table and playing cards enthusiastically. At this moment, Ma Zhou and the others had just finished dinner. They were talking with the government about what they had just heard at the mountain gate while walking to the pig farm. And their voices happened to be heard by Yu Shernan and the others. Yu Shernan and the others asked, "What are you talking about? What did Fengzi do this time?" Seeing that it was Yu Shernan, Ma Zhou asked again. He hurriedly bowed and said, "I'm Ma Zhou. Nice to meet you." Yu Shernan asked again, "What happened just now?" Hearing that, Ma Zhou was stunned for a moment, but he still answered honestly, "Just now, it was said that the dean found a group of craftsmen from the extraterritorial region at the foot of the mountain. The dean is going to teach them all he knows about forging. The faces of Yu Shernan and the others couldn't help but change slightly. Are you sure? Ma Zhou couldn't help but lower his body a little. I'm sure. I heard it from many people. And at that time your salary was also present, but he didn't say anything. Before Ma Zhou finished speaking, Yu Shernan flew into a rage. Nonsense, this is simply nonsense. Chapter 801. They were just discussing how to make a name for themselves in the academy. However, in the blink of an eye, Zhang Feng had created such a mess. He was simply not doing his job properly. If the scholars of the world knew about this, then wouldn't White Deer Academy have to face the condemnation of everyone? Yu Shernan and the others became even angrier at the thought of this. They hurried to Zhang Feng's small wooden house. They didn't knock on the door and pushed Zhang Feng's door open. However, they were blocked by Gao Ken, who was like a black tower. The dean said he's resting. He'll come tomorrow. Gao Ken didn't care so much. He only remembered the dean's orders, and that was the order he had to carry out. He didn't care about these scholars at all. Hearing Gao Ken's words. As a result, he was instantly ignited like an explosive. Zhang Feng, you brat, get out here. Get out here. Zhang Feng, who was taking a nap in the room, immediately got up from the recliner when he heard this. Ayaya. Why are my respected teachers here? Here. Please come in, come in. Gao Kai, you too. My teacher is your grandmaster. How can you block them like this? Zhang Feng hurriedly led them into the living room. He took out a wooden box and gave each of them a cigarette. He lit them up and said, What's wrong with my respected teachers and old Mr. Sun? Why are you so angry? He took a puff of the cigarette and enjoyed it. He swirled the smoke in his mouth and snorted coldly. Kid, don't pretend to be a good person. Do you think we're so old that we'll be so easily fooled by you? Old man, let me ask you. What's going on with those people outside? I heard that you brought some barbarians from the outer realms over. I heard that you're going to impart your true teachings to those people. You're going to do something called smelting? Yu Shernan was so angry that his beard was trembling. You, what are you thinking about all day? I and the others have endured so much because we want to see what you're going to do. In the end, we haven't even done anything about the academy yet, and you're already going to do something about it. Have you ever thought about how you're going to embarrass me by doing this? Zhang Feng didn't know what these old guys were up to, but he didn't dare to say anything. He hurriedly said, Please calm down. There's a misunderstanding. Yu Shernan and the others snorted coldly in response to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng thought about it and said, Actually, how should I put it? This is also something that I promised Old Li before. Moreover, this matter also involves the knowledge that I mentioned before. These things are actually considered a part of the academy. For example, the technique of making paper. Do you all think that this is considered messing around? This thing is also considered knowledge. Blacksmithing is also considered knowledge. If it's considered knowledge, why didn't you find the Han people from the Tang dynasty? Why did you go to those barbarians? Don't you know that those who are not of our race must have different intentions? Sun Simiao hurriedly said when he saw that they were all angry. Hearing that, Zhang Feng nodded and said, Old Mr. Sun, in fact what you said makes sense. Some things do exist in the rules of, those who are not of our race must have different intentions. However, as far as this matter is concerned, I don't think I did anything wrong. Hearing this, Yu Shernan and the others' faces became even gloomier. However, Zhang Feng continued, as the saying goes, those who achieve great things don't stick to small details. Moreover, these people are Lao Yu and the others. The people they brought from the western regions are also counted as slaves. Think about it, everyone is selfish. It's impossible for everyone to be like me. Moreover, most of the things I impart are treasures to many people. They will treat them as family heirlooms. However, if I find some slaves, especially those from other regions, do you think they will be able to walk out of the hall in their lifetime? Impossible. As for the people of the Tang dynasty, they will eventually walk out of White Deer College one day. In other words, they will divulge some of the things they know when they are drunk or when they are in bed. Over time these things will. Yu Shernan couldn't listen to him anymore. He waved his hand and interrupted Zhang Feng. When it comes to learning, which thing is cherished? You have already said that this is a kind of knowledge. Then why are you so sincere about this thing? Why are you so generous about the art of making paper, wine, and even the art of making salt? Could it be that in your heart, those things are not up to standard? In the face of Yu Shernan's aggressiveness, Zhang Feng said calmly, Mr. Bosher, you have misunderstood me. In fact, this matter is part of the military studies I told you about before. Moreover, it includes the accumulation of military weapon manufacturing. What do you think if I spread these things out, which is what I said before? I don't know if you have heard of the invulnerable shield and the invincible spear, if these things were to spread out. Seeing the strange expressions on their faces, Zhang Feng said even louder, as long as you think it's okay, that kid will definitely announce it to the world without a second word. Chapter 802. In fact, Zhang Feng really didn't expect that Yushernan's people would have such a big resistance to this matter. However, when Yushernan just spoke, he also thought of something, which was the struggle between the civil officials and the military generals during the Jingguan period. He instantly understood some things. Many people said that Li Shimin, the emperor of the dynasty, valued military power and despised civil officials. Some people even scolded Li Shimin for being careless and only knowing the political power on horseback. However, they didn't know that if it was a strong military power, it would be a disaster. It would really lead a country to destruction and it wouldn't last long. If it was like the Song dynasty, which valued civil officials and despised military power, it would also make a country fall into ruin. It would be like a broken piece of cotton wool. It looked good on the outside but was broken on the inside. What was the use of this? In his academy, Yushernan and the others seemed to only think of one aspect, but they seemed to have automatically filtered out military science and medicine from the root. Without these people and these soldiers guarding the border, not to mention other things, just this change in the water might be the end of the Tang dynasty. Besides, in the current situation at this time, they only knew how to recite poems and make couplets all day long and talk about the past and present. However, they didn't think about the dispute at the border. Could it be that it could be solved by just talking? If that was the case, then the world would be really peaceful. This could only be thought about. To forge iron, one needed to be strong. Moreover, it was a country. If it did not have a strong military that was intimidated, how could there be peace in the world? How could there be scholars who could recite poems and talk about things of the past and the present under the bright mirror? Zhang Feng understood very well that it was very difficult to change the pedantic mentality of everyone at this time. However, he never thought that it would be so difficult. At first, he thought that it would be Yushernan and the others. Based on what he had shown, the promotion of these 4 people should mean that they had already accepted this kind of person. However, at this time, because of the appearance of a forging workshop, the 4 people were so angry. Obviously, they thought too much. These people were still pedantic in their bones. Respected teachers, please allow this student to tell you in detail why this student is like this. They didn't speak but just smoked one cigarette after another. It seemed that the cigarettes made by Zhang Feng at this time had infinite magic. Zhang Feng couldn't help but curse. Damn it, didn't you say that the things made by Lao Tzu were not good? Then why are you able to accept these cigarettes? But Lao Tzu just made a forging workshop and you are like this. Seeing this, Zhang Feng said, "Respected teachers, what do you think of the taste of this cigarette made by me? How is the effect?" They didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted to say, but they still nodded and answered Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng saw this and said, "In fact, respected teachers, you don't know that the raw materials of the cigarettes in your hands are from the merchants of Hui country. For example, there is a kind of thing that can grow crazily in the dry land without rain all year round. This kind of thing is called potato, and there is another kind of thing called sweet potato. If these 2 things are introduced to the Tang dynasty will never have a shortage of food. And these things are far away from here." Yushernan and the others heard this and couldn't help but twitch their eyelids. They looked at the cigarettes in their hands and couldn't help but smoke. Sun Simiao seemed to be more interested in this and couldn't help but ask, "Boy, are you serious? If there is really that kind of food, then isn't this country very rich?" Zhang Feng nodded. Then he picked up the rag on the table and wiped off all the things written by the person who handed it to Li Qingqian on the blackboard. Then he picked up a piece of chalk and drew a big circle on it. "This is where we live. We are in this circle and the location of our hall is probably in this place." While talking, Zhang Feng drew a circle in a place and wrote the words Tang Dynasty in the circle. Then he said, "In fact, you should also know that to the east of the Tang Dynasty is the boundless sea. But you should know that at the end of the sea is a wild land. There are many things that we don't know about growing on this land. These things are actually prepared for some people in the wild as the most basic rations. Even a large part of them is wasted. Among them are the potatoes and sweet potatoes that this boy just mentioned. There are even some things that you have never heard of. For example, chili and corn. These things are very far away, but if we want to count on these things now, for example, if we want to go to Chindi or Persia, it will take at least half a year. It would take at least half a year to go back and forth, and there were many uncertainties in this process. We want to explore the outside world, and the outside world wants to explore our Tang dynasty. For example, the black-clothed Abbasid Caliphate that just appeared is very prosperous. As far as this boy knows, the national strength of this country is not inferior to the Tang dynasty. Chapter 803. Zhang Feng didn't stop talking. He glanced at the crowd and continued, "If this country wants to conquer the East, what do you think will happen if they come into contact with the Tang dynasty? At that time, Tubo, Turkic and other countries will take the opportunity to invade. Do we need to persuade them not to invade our country with just our words? Wrong. This requires a powerful army, an invincible army, a comfortable living environment where all of us can drink, chat, and talk about the world in peace and contentment under such circumstances." I don't know how you understood the phrase, emphasizing literature and belittling military force in the past, but in White Deer College I am a military in all other aspects mixed together. This is also the foundation of the small White Deer College. As for the current smelting technique, I have no other thoughts. I just want to make the Tang dynasty into an existence that no one dares to touch. Right now the outside world of the Tang dynasty is very chaotic. You should have heard that the soldiers of the Tang dynasty are now fighting a bloody battle to protect our Tang dynasty. What they lack is the invulnerable shield and the invincible spear that I have made. If these two things exist, please ask your teacher. Who dares to bully our Tang dynasty? At this moment, Yu Shernan's men were so shocked by Zhang Feng's words that their faces turned pale. Zhang Feng said everything he wanted to say in one breath. In fact, Zhang Feng had always wanted to say these things because the things he wanted to make were things that didn't exist in this era. For example, the firearms that were being made now and some things that he wanted to experiment with in the future. Instead of wasting his breath to explain in the future, or saying that such things would happen again, it was better to get the pain over with. At this moment he explained everything clearly. Anyway, what was the big deal about these things? In the future these things would slowly appear. If he didn't make the pie as round as possible, Yu Shernan's men wouldn't be the only ones who would come to drag him down. At that time, there would be countless people who would be able to drag her husband down. There would even be countless obstacles. Zhang Feng was disgusted by these things, but he also understood that they were bound to appear. Since the four big clans had taken the initiative to step forward, Zhang Feng didn't mind letting them shoulder some things for him. After all, Zhang Feng really didn't have the time to explain these things to others all day long. There were plenty of mountains to deal with. Why would he need to step forward? Zhang Feng lit a cigarette and ignored the 5 people who were deep in thought. He slowly leaned back on the reclining chair and leisurely smoked his self-made cigarettes. He knew that he had achieved the effect at this time. He just needed to give them a little time to digest it. After all, this pie was a little too big. Zhang Feng didn't hesitate to draw a part of the world map. As for how they would understand it, it would depend on their own ability. Moreover, the steam engine hadn't appeared yet. If he made these things appear at this time, it would be really harmful. Biting off more than one could chew was not an idiom. For example, the potatoes, sweet potatoes and other things that Zhang Feng mentioned now. Zhang Feng knew these things. They had been brewing for a long time in his memory. The Tang dynasty was now short of food. Many people were anxious and the most anxious one was Zhang Feng. After all, although he now had an industry, the shortage of food in the Tang dynasty was widespread. He could support it for half a year, but after half a year he still had to rely on himself to solve some things. Now it was just about July and August. Potatoes, this thing became Zhang Feng's first thing to solve. As long as potatoes appeared, Zhang Feng was confident that at least the people on the mountain would be able to eat potatoes by the end of the year. At least they wouldn't have to starve for the new year. As for after the new year, let's talk about it later. At this time, Yu Shernan was still immersed in Zhang Feng's words, unable to extricate himself for a long time. The cigarette flickered and the sky gradually darkened. The flickering cigarette was like the stars in the dark night sky. Sometimes it illuminated a face in deep thought. Sometimes it was hidden in the darkness. After a long time, Yu Shernan asked in a hoarse voice, "Zhang Feng, old man wants to ask you. Do the things you said have to be part of your so-called military science in this forge? Old man can't understand you more and more. But boy, the long speech you said today, old man and the others need to digest it well." Chu Suiliang also let out a long sigh. I'm old. When a person gets old, his memory will slowly fade. Boy, you said too much information today. We need to digest it. Well, we'll leave first. By the way, this time I'm here to tell you that the cigarettes are gone. Remember to send cigarettes to old man and the others. Chapter 804. Yu Shernan and the others left in a hurry. They were really dumbfounded by Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng had said far too many things this time. Although in their books and their understanding of the world, they knew that this world was very large and that it was vast and abundant, in their subconscious minds, these things basically all came from the Great Tang. As for the barbarian lands outside the Great Tang, what could they possibly have? But now that they thought about what Zhang Feng said, they still felt that it was incredible. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, and that corn, new terms that they had never heard of, actually appeared here. How could they not be shocked? After they returned to their residence in a daze, Ouyang Sun slapped his thigh and said, "No, we've been led astray by this guy." Only then did they realize what was going on. That's right. Why did they go to Zhang Feng today? Wasn't it for the academy? Why was she being led astray by him as they talked? And just at this time, when Yu Shernan and the others were about to go look for Zhang Feng again to reason with him, they saw Gao Ken, that big black guy, carrying a big bundle of white paper, boldly walk into the little bamboo house. Then, with a dong sound, he placed the big bundles of white paper at their feet under the stunned gazes of Yu Shernan and the others. "The headmaster asked me to send this over. 50 kilograms per person. This is all the production today. He asked you to divide it among yourselves. The rest will be sent to you in several batches." While speaking, Gao Ken turned and left without waiting for Yu Shernan and the others to say anything. Yu Shernan and the others were dumbfounded by what they saw. After Gao Ken's figure disappeared, they hurriedly squatted on the ground and touched the white paper on the ground with trembling hands. Yu Shernan hugged the white paper as if he was hugging a baby who had just been born. What a waste of an immortal. This is a waste of an immortal. Boorish. How could you just casually throw something so precious to old man on the ground? When the academy reopens, let's see how the old man will deal with this extravagance. It's simply rotten to the bone. With the prodigal Zhang Feng on top, how good can his subordinates be? The few of them held paper in their arms. Although it weighed 50 kilograms, how could they still be the frail old man? He was even more robust than a man in his prime. The few of them cursed Gao Ken as they moved the papers on the floor onto the table bit by bit with heartache. Only then did they sniff the fragrance of the papers while rubbing their faces. Good stuff. This was really good stuff. As far as they knew, Shen paper only existed in important institutions of the court. Even if they could save as much as possible, they would only use cheap paper unless it was absolutely necessary. Apart from the administrative agencies of the Tang dynasty, the documents that were required to be reported to the prefectures and prefectures were usually written on paper. Some poorer people even used bamboo slips. Once Shen paper really appeared, as long as the boys' paper was sold at a slightly cheaper price than Shen paper, which was 700 copper coins per kilogram as he said, then, although it was 300 copper coins less. But those who could afford it really didn't care about the 300 copper coins. Furthermore, this Shen paper was too expensive, and the production rate was too low. Take the 4 major paper mills in Chang, and as an example, their monthly output was only 1,200 caddies. Excluding the paper used by the imperial palace, the paper used for foreign trade, and the paper used by the various mansions every month, it would be considered a good output if they could sell 200 caddies each. More importantly, if such a large amount of Shen paper appeared, not only would the people's book collections not depreciate, but it would also make the bamboo slips and Shen paper, which were not easy to preserve, more compact. Moving houses in the past required dozens of horse carriages to carry books, but now it might only require 3 horse carriages or less. What was this? This was efficiency. Back to the academy. Once the academy had so much paper, what could the students do? Why did the academy in the past have fewer students? On one hand, paper was expensive. On the other hand, it was because paper was expensive. Every day, the students could only practice in the sand table. Not only was this tiring, but it also directly reduced the efficiency. They couldn't help but start to think about it. No, the Shen paper is too precious. If this prodigal continues to waste it, sooner or later something will happen to the Shen paper. Let's go and find that boy. These Shen paper must be given to the academy first. Chu Suiliang was the first one who couldn't help but stand up. In the next moment, Yu Shernan and Sun Simiao couldn't sit still anymore. That's right. If this thing is really wasted by this boy, it will really cause a big problem. Let's go, such a good thing, let the academy use it first. The few of them were also anxious. Like a local tycoon, they treated the paper mill as their own. They didn't have the arrogance that they had when they came up the mountain and treated money like dirt. The few of them didn't have time to say anything. They hurriedly locked the door 3 times. Still feeling uneasy, Sun Simiao directly asked Elder Gao to personally guard the door for them. Then they hurried to Zhang Feng's place. Once they entered, they didn't wait for Zhang Feng to stand up and said directly, "Zhang Feng boy, from today onwards, all sales of this Shen paper must go through our hands." Zhang Feng couldn't wrap his head around it. He said in shock, Respected teachers, what's going on? Chapter 805. What's going on? You're asking us what's going on? Yu Shernan was so angry that his beard was trembling. He pointed at the white paper that Zhang Feng was making cigarettes with and said with a pale face, "This paper. Alright, you know more about paper than we do. But old man wants to ask you, do you still want your academy? 3 years, you only have 3 years. Why do you think old man and the others came up the mountain? I just want to see if the 9 grand scholars that you talked about can appear here." Old man thought that you were just bragging about this paper. Who would know that you can really produce so much paper in a day? Now the academy will officially open in a month or so. Look at you now, you're sloppy all day. How much paper do these students need every day? Have you prepared all the things that the students need to go to school? Zhang Feng was asked 3 times in a row by Yu Shernan and didn't know what to say. Weren't you all doing well before? What's wrong with you? Zhang Feng felt a headache coming on. Dear teachers, I also want to wait for this white paper to come out. After you use it and are satisfied, I'm going to tell you about it. Since all of you are so considerate of my academy, then I'll tell you my plan. Yu Shernan and the others automatically filtered out Zhang Feng's words about what would happen after they were used. From the moment they came up the mountain, they didn't give Zhang Feng a chance to talk about it. Now that Zhang Feng said so, they reacted. Bring me a brush and ink. Yu Shernan waved his sleeves and looked at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng looked around and saw that everyone was staring at him. He touched his nose and slowly took out a brush and ink and put it on the tea table in front of Yu Shernan. Yu Shernan didn't hesitate. He took out a few pieces of white paper that Zhang Feng had cut for cigarettes, dipped it in ink and wrote a line of words. Then he hurriedly stood up and stood under the lamp to carefully observe the changes of the ink. They stared at the paper in the flickering candlelight with their eyes wide open, but they were silently keeping track of the time. After 10 breaths, Yu Shernan took the paper from under the lamp, dipped his finger in some saliva and pressed it on the paper. There was no ink at all. Yu Shernan didn't believe it and wiped the paper with his sleeve. He still couldn't wipe the ink off. Their pupils couldn't help but flicker fiercely under the candlelight again. After they checked the ink on the paper, Yu Shernan said with satisfaction, "We have checked the paper. Now let's talk about the serious matter. How do you think we should do it?" While speaking, Yu Shernan lit a cigarette. The cigarette, which was as thick as a little finger, went out one by one under the lamp. Zhang Feng coughed and said, "Dear teachers, I have some opinions about the teaching of the academy. I wonder if you can listen to me?" But before he spoke, Sun Simiao coughed and interrupted Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng glanced at Sun Simiao, who rarely spoke about the academy. He couldn't help thinking, didn't he just give me the paper? Could it be? But Zhang Feng still said respectfully, "Please enlighten me, Mr. Sun." Sun Simiao touched his beard and smoked. He looked up and down at Zhang Feng and then said, "You are a very smart person. In the future, your achievements will reach a level that the old man can't imagine. At this time, although you haven't entered the palace to meet the emperor, the old man knows that the emperor favors you very much. This is your luck. The old man won't say anything more. Now, you've created so many things in one go. Just like what you said before, it's easy to break if you're too rigid. Remember, don't be arrogant because of your talent. Now, you're not only the dean of the academy, but also a great Confucian scholar and an official of the imperial court. You have to set an example for everything. As a minister and a student, you have to remember one thing, that is, steadiness. Even if you are smart, if you don't, your achievements in the future will be limited. It will even be difficult for you to become a great person." Zhang Feng blinked. He really couldn't understand at the moment. He hurriedly asked, "May I ask, Mr. Sun, how am I not steady?" Hearing this, Sun Simiao smiled faintly and shook his head. This brat was still trying to pick a fight. Sun Simiao, Yu Qigong and the others laughed and said, "You still dare to ask? The old man asked you. You once boasted that you could become 9 grand scholars. Isn't that enough? Right now, the White Deer Academy has basically become the place where the eyes of everyone in the world gather. You should be even more careful with your words and actions. Others won't say anything if you say it after you've achieved your goal. But if you say it 3 years ago in the hearts of those who have ulterior motives, you're simply too rash. How can you do such a laughable thing? There are actually people who want to laugh at me?" Zhang Feng was instantly unhappy and cursed in his heart. In fact, this kind of thing was common in any era. After all, those who couldn't eat grapes would always say that the grapes were sour. Thus, Zhang Feng revealed a confident smile. "I think my image is quite good." Yu Shernan and the others couldn't bear to watch any longer. They hurriedly interrupted. All right. You brat, stop arguing. If you want to continue, what can we do? Remember, we are all experienced people. What we say is for your own good. Zhang Feng pursed his lips. He didn't say anything else. Seeing this, Yu Shernan asked contentedly, then tell us now. What plans do you have for the college? It would be best if it can be decided by tonight. That way we won't have to waste our time on this mountain. Fine. You're so bored that your balls hurt. I was still wondering if you guys were trying to trick me. Now, it seems like it's time to find something for you guys. Chapter 806. Zhang Feng hurriedly straightened his face and stood up. Dear teachers, I really have a big thing here and I need your help. Yu Shernan and the others saw this. They looked at each other and there was a touch of understanding in their eyes. Boy, tell us about it. Yu Shernan waved his hand. After all, we have been eating and drinking on this mountain for a few days. If we don't find something to do, it can't be justified. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's face flashed with a touch of excitement. Dear teachers, even if you live on this mountain for 8 or 10 years, it is a blessing that I can't even ask for. How can you say that? That's enough. Put away your flattery. It's useless in front of us. Yu Shernan glared at Zhang Feng, lit a cigarette and took a puff. Tell us about it. If it's not difficult or you want us to carry bricks, you'd better not say it. How can I? Zhang Feng said with a straight face. However, there is still 1 month before the academy officially opens. I have made a few sets of books here which are the books needed for teaching. I hope you can take a look. While speaking, Zhang Feng took out several thread-bound blue books that were the same size as the books of that era from under the pillow in the bedroom and handed them to the others. However, these books were written with the titles of military science, medicine, physics, literature, mathematics, and several major categories. They looked at it and then glanced at Sun Simiao doubtfully. Sun Simiao smiled faintly. Good guy, you even calculated the old man? However, Sun Simiao still took the medical book and read it with relish. Then, when they were reading the books, Zhang Feng said, now the teaching method of the Tang dynasty is generally based on reading the Book of Songs, the Analects of Confucius, and the teacher's narration. Therefore, the students are going to completely change this teaching method. In the morning, they will read the books of the sages for 2 hours, and then study literary works in the next 2 hours. The works of the great masters from ancient times to the present and the stories behind them will be explored by the students after class. After that, they would rest for 3 hours, eat and rest. In the afternoon, they would memorize the books of the sages and study other subjects such as mathematics and so on. In the evening, during the last lesson, they would study medicine, leaving some time for them to complete their assigned homework. The next morning, the teachers would review their homework and interpret their doubts. Zhang Feng talked about the primary school curriculum and junior high school curriculum he had imagined, as well as the teaching method based on the current situation of the Tang dynasty. Except for Yu Shernan, who had heard it once, the others were all immersed in the textbooks written by Zhang Feng at this time. Boy, old man wants to ask you, what is your so-called medicine and this alcohol? Don't we use quicklime for disinfection now? Can you tell old man what this alcohol is? This? Zhang Feng naturally knew that Sun Simiao was going to ask questions. He hurriedly said, Old son, this alcohol is actually something extracted from white wine. I want to ask you, old son, if you encounter a red wound, what is the general survival rate? I mean, for example, a wound that is more than 1 foot long and has already festered. Yu Shernan and the others heard this and couldn't help but raise their heads curiously. They also had a lot of questions, but when they heard the word alcohol, they couldn't help but be interested. Sun Simiao said without thinking, if it's a leg or a hand, if it's in spring or summer, if old man or a doctor personally takes care of it, it's basically possible to survive more than a month's weather. What if it's on the battlefield? Or the wound has already festered? Zhang Feng asked again. A handful of quicklime and the rest depends on the person himself and the medicine. As for whether it can be cured or not, it depends on the person's body. Sun Simiao continued. Zhang Feng nodded. People in this era didn't know what medicine was at all, let alone what medical care was. If he said too much, the others wouldn't understand. Zhang Feng just said, if such a person is in my hands, if I say that I have a 100% chance of saving his life, would you believe it? And in addition to not being able to regenerate broken limbs, I also know the blood for blood technique. Would you believe it? When Sun Simiao heard this, his expression changed abruptly. He flipped open Zhang Feng's magical medical book again, took a deep breath and said solemnly, Kid, I don't know who your teacher is, but with this medical book in old man's hands, you will definitely surpass Bien Ke Huatua and other medical sages. Why did you publicize this magical medical book to the public? Do you know the importance of this book? Once it spreads, your White Deer College will instantly become the target of public criticism? Zhang Feng smiled. The road needs people to walk on it. When many people walk on it, it will naturally appear. Look at the road, I naturally know what I'm doing. Chapter 807. Yet another famous phrase from his mouth. Yu Shinan and the others felt that Zhang Feng's appearance was simply a blow to them. However, Zhang Feng continued, Elder son, at the end of this book there are all the annotations of what I just said. If you really don't understand, how about I give you a practical experiment when I have time? Also, I have prepared some alcohol and some toothpaste. The people on this mountain will more or less be injured. Why don't you experiment according to what I wrote in the book? Oh. Boy, are you sure that these things can be learned by everyone? Sun Simiao didn't ask whether Zhang Feng was telling the truth. Instead, he was extremely worried about what Zhang Feng was going to do at this time. Although he also knew that if this thing in his hand was spread out, the more people who learned it, the more benefits the people of the Tang dynasty would receive, he didn't know whether this was good or bad. Zhang Feng smiled indifferently. Since I have handed this thing to you, as for how to teach it, it's all up to you. As for how many disciples you want to accept and how many good seedlings you find, you need to select from these disciples on the mountain. You know, boy, lazy? Sun Simiao smiled speechlessly. Well, since you dare to not take out such a peerless book, then Old Man will accompany you in your madness. Old Man wants to see what kind of waves this medical book of yours can create. Also, this old man would like to see what you can achieve with your so-called physics and this science. Since you're willing to give us your trump card, then if we don't give you a reassuring pill, you'll definitely get angry. Yu Shinan closed the book in his hand. After exchanging glances with Ouyang Sun and the others, he added, Boy, as Elder Sun said, whether it is the medical book or the things in our hands, since you are so assured, although we don't know whether this method is right or not, since you said so, we will treat it as an attempt. If it succeeds, you will be a hero of the Tang dynasty and the hero of our thousands of students, but, are you sure that the things in this book can be taught? Yu Shinan waved the book in his hand and asked. Zhang Feng shook his head and said, It can be taught. As for how to teach, it depends on the teachers. I mean, in each book I have marked the difficulty level. As for the new students, I still suggest that everyone should have a basic understanding. That is to say, the first 10 pages can be taught at will. After that, I will perfect this novice teaching material with the teachers. From the 11th page to the 20th page, I'm going to teach this student tomorrow. Of course, in the second year, we'll be able to pick out the good and bad results as well as what a person is suited for and what kind of talent they have. We'll focus on nurturing them. As for the last 10 pages, we can teach them in the third year. All the classes will be divided into 3 classes, A, B, and C. The students who are recruited every year need to be rehearsed and divided into classes according to this order. As for the most accurate ones, we will have to wait until the third year to find the elites. I'm going to set up a special training class. At that time, these elites will be able to learn some more sophisticated things such as the manufacturing technique, the hematopoietic blood exchange technique, physics, and so on. Zhang Feng slowly explained the division of classes as well as how the textbooks should be taught, bit by bit. Everything was explained in detail. In the first year, it was basically science so that everyone would have a sense of hygiene and awareness in all aspects. This was not difficult. He only needed to teach them some things to pay attention to in daily life and how to distinguish some things that they encountered in daily life. As for the second year, this was the key. As for the third year, this was the time to really find and cultivate the key talents for the science and technology department of the academy. Although Zhang Feng was confident that he could educate all these people within a year, the difficulty was that these people still had no way to accept these things. Therefore, he needed 2 years to change their thinking, and the last year was the most critical sprint. After a detailed introduction, Yu Shinan and the others finally completely annihilated the idea that Zhang Feng was crazy. What exactly was this kid thinking in his head? After Zhang Feng finished talking for a long time, Yu Shinan and the others still had their heads down. No one knew what they were thinking. Zhang Feng was not in a hurry. He just stood in front of them, lit a cigarette, and waited quietly. He knew that these all needed time to digest. He had said too many things today. So many that Zhang Feng wondered if these people could digest them completely. Yu Shinan and the others smoked one cigarette after another. From time to time, they would gather together and mutter a few words. Zhang Feng saw that the cigarettes in the basket were getting fewer and fewer. Zhang Feng suspected that these old guys could not sleep at night and were smoking here. Just after the last cigarette was smoked by Chu Suiliang, and the cigarette holder was still unsatisfied, the few of them clapped their hands and said, "Kid, we have decided. Old Man and the others will accompany you in your madness, but there will be enough cigarettes and alcohol. Chapter 808. The next morning. Zhang Feng got up early, which was rare for him. He sneaked out of the crowd and found Cripple Wang. Cripple Wang was so excited when he heard Gao Can say that Zhang Feng was looking for him that he almost jumped 3 feet high. Since he took over the business of making beer cans, he had the final say in the market of bamboo and wooden barrels in the Chang'an brewery. Because of Zhang Feng's appearance, Cripple Wang and his family, as well as the veterans in the reclining workshop, could not only fill their stomachs, but also find a good match on the mountain. How could Cripple Wang not be excited? As soon as he entered Zhang Feng's room, Cripple Wang was so excited that he almost bowed down and worshipped him. Zhang Feng did not wait for him to react. He hurried out of the room and whispered in his ear, "Come with me." Although he did not know what Zhang Feng was doing so mysteriously. However, Cripple Wang was someone who had been on the battlefield, so he still had a discerning eye. He hurriedly put away the excitement on his face and vigilantly pulled out the hatchet from his waist. He held it tightly in his hand and followed Gao Can to Zhang Feng's left and right. Zhang Feng didn't say anything. He led the two of them around the stone road that was being paved at the construction site. After that, they went to the forging workshop to take a look. Then they went into another valley beside the forging workshop. This mountain valley looked ordinary and unremarkable. But basically, everyone in Mount Shao knew about it. The pine trees here couldn't be compared to others. Not to mention the pine trees that required 3 people to wrap around, even the pine trees that required 10 people to wrap around were everywhere. And all the wooden things in Xingshan Academy were made from this place. At this time, Cripple Wang could not help muttering in his heart. This place not only produced pine trees, but also a kind of wild rabbit that specialized in eating wild rabbits with pine nuts. The meat of this thing was very famous even in Chang'an. Could it be that the dean called them here early in the morning to hunt rabbits? However, before the 3 of them entered the woodworking factory that was covered with white bark, they heard 2 loud shouts and hearty laughter coming from the corner in front. "Haha Chintiniu, you've lost. Hurry up and give Lao Tzu 10 shots. Bullsh *T. You're the one who cheated, okay?" Lao Tzu even chased the hare into the tree hole. Don't tell me that Lao Tzu didn't know to catch it himself. Hearing Ching Chimo's familiar voice, Zhang Feng was a little confused. These people were the kind of people who wouldn't get out of bed until the sun was up. Why were they here so early? It was as if the sun had risen from the west. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to take any action, a loud sound of wind breaking could be heard. Gao Can's hair instantly stood on end. He couldn't care about anything else and rushed towards Zhang Feng. It was also at this moment that a wooden stick as thick as an arm swept over the top of their heads. "Chin Tiniu, are you trying to take Lao Tzu's life?" Zhang Feng was finally angry. Looking at the wooden stick not far away, his eyelids twitched wildly. If it really hit him, not to mention breaking his arms and legs, he wouldn't even be able to keep his life. Cheng Chimo and Yuchi Baolin, who were fighting together, were shocked when they heard this. Li Qingqian and the others who were squatting at the side were also shocked. They hurriedly got up and rushed over in a panic. The moment they saw Zhang Feng, their expressions changed abruptly. "Fengzi, why are you here? *CK Gaokan, are you a blockhead? Why didn't you tell us that Fengzi was coming? Fengzi, are you okay?" The few of them hurriedly propped Zhang Feng up and pinched here and there. Zhang Feng was a little annoyed. "Let me ask you, what are you doing here so early in the morning?" Seeing that Zhang Feng was fine, the few of them breathed a sigh of relief. They mysteriously brought Zhang Feng to the place where they were just now. This was the place where all the beams, purlins and doors and windows were made on the abandoned mountain. It was convenient to use the local materials. The few of them also made a few small wooden houses with wood here, which looked quite artistic. Entering one of the slightly larger wooden houses, the first thing that entered his nose was the smell of rosin. There were also 3 roasted hares roasting in the fire in the middle of the wooden house. "Fengzi, isn't it because I saw you talking to those old fellows too late last night? The few of us were thinking of getting some wild game to satisfy your cravings." Zhang Feng didn't believe that these people would be so kind. He asked suspiciously, "Really?" Li Qingqian pointed at the hares on the fire, and then pointed at the pile of rabbit skins outside the door. "Look, these are still fresh. We were planning to have a good drink when you woke up. You are unaccountably solicitous. Tell me, what do you want?" Zhang Feng immediately became alert. Li Qingqian was taken aback when he heard that. "Zhang Feng, we brothers have been smoking for the past 2 days and nearly smoked ourselves to death, not to mention you. We brothers think that you need some nourishment, so we're thinking of changing your name." "Fine, if you don't want to eat it. We can eat it." Hearing that, Zhang Feng breathed a deep sigh of relief. In the past few days he was really scared of being extorted by these people. At this time, hearing what they said, Zhang Feng felt that they were really greedy and came to get hairs. Chapter 809. They shouted that they had been wronged. Zhang Feng didn't think much of it. He flipped through the golden rabbit and slowly took out a few bottles and jars from his bosom. Instantly, the eyes of Li Qingqian and the others lit up. Zhang Sun Chong was even more surprised as he asked, "Could it be that you're also here to hunt this game? Do you think Lao Tzu is as lazy as you?" Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. "Lao Tzu is here for something important. Who would be like you? You're tired of eating beggar's chicken, so you're here to hunt game behind my back? Hey!" Cheng Chimo couldn't take it anymore. He pushed Yuchi Baolin and said, "It's all because of this kid. The three of them said they wanted to give you a gift and came to us early in the morning. In the end, it was Li Gan who spoke. We thought about it and felt that you don't lack anything except delicious food. So we asked a few people and learned that the wild rabbits here are good. That's why we came here to hunt some wild rabbits for you." "Iron Bull, it's my fault. I didn't tell Fengzi in advance. This is my fault. Since Brother Fengzi doesn't like it, I'll go down the mountain now." "Come on, you guys. Stop acting. You're not cut out for it." Zhang Feng was speechless as he looked at their clumsy acting skills. "This time I really didn't come here for this. Otherwise, have you ever seen me wake up so early?" Seeing that Zhang Feng had exposed them, they didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, they asked curiously, "Then what are you doing here?" Zhang Feng tore off a rabbit leg and said as he chewed, "Do you remember that I was looking for carpenters?" Hearing this, Li Qingqian's eyes flashed. "Are you talking about the carpenters that your father-in-law found for you?" Zhang Feng wanted to explain, but he was too lazy to do so. Anyway, these people wouldn't believe him. He nodded and said, "That's them. Didn't you notice that there was a group of people in the forest who were also doing carpentry?" When they heard this, they thought for a while and really remembered. A group of mysterious craftsmen came to this forest. They didn't cut down trees every day. Instead, they wandered in the forest and finally carried a few odd-looking trees or roots the size of an arm into a bamboo forest. No one knew what they were doing. As long as there were strangers, they would immediately stop and hide the things they made as if they were treasures. So it turned out that these people were found by Fengzi, this kid. A few people couldn't help but come forward and ask, "What are these people doing? Anyway, I heard that it's quite mysterious." "Mysterious?" Zhang Feng smiled. "You'll know soon enough." While speaking, Zhang Feng called for a few people to eat and drink together. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Zhang Feng let out a long sigh and waved his hand. Everyone smoked and slowly walked into the depths of the forest under Zhang Feng's lead. The pine forest was very deep. However, because of the logging, the roads that were trampled out in all directions and the flattened trees exposed large areas of land that hadn't seen the sun for a long time. The person Zhang Feng was looking for. It was at a place called the Kidney Cliff. After climbing for half an hour, they could faintly see a dense bamboo forest with bursts of smoke rising in spirals. Who is it? The arrival of these people was obviously noticed by the people on the cliff. After a shout, Zhang Feng hurriedly waved his hand. "It's me, Fengzi." Hearing this, there was no movement for a moment, but there was a rustling sound. When they climbed up the cliff, the top of the cliff was very spacious. It was at least 100 square meters. These craftsmen used the dense bamboo to tidy up the place and turned it into a place for people to live. At this time, more than 30 men in their 40s and even their 70s and 80s were respectfully standing by the side of the only mountain path that led to the cliff. When they saw Zhang Feng and the others going up the mountain, a man in his 40s hurriedly stepped forward and said, "I'm Zhang Wei. Greetings, young master." Zhang Feng said perfunctorily and asked, "Today I'm here too, young master. I know what you're here for. I've prepared everything for you. Please take a look." While speaking, Zhang Wei was about to lead Zhang Feng to see the things they moved out. Zhang Feng waved his hand instead. "These people are all old craftsmen from the Ministry of Works from Longyu Road?" "Yes, young master." Zhang Wei pointed to an old man standing behind him and said, "This is an old craftsman from the Ministry of Works, but he's from the previous dynasty." Zhang Wei's voice was normal at the beginning, but only Zhang Feng could hear the latter part. Hearing this, the old man cupped his hands at Zhang Feng. "Old man Qiao Jun greets the dean. These people are all from my family." Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly bowed. "So it's old Master Qiao." Qiao Jun had never seen Zhang Feng act like this before. Seeing this, he was shocked and hurriedly reached out to help Zhang Feng. However, he was afraid that the calluses on his hands would prick Zhang Feng, so he anxiously scratched his ears and cheeks. After bowing, Zhang Feng looked at the people behind the old man and said, These are old Master Chow's family? Then why don't I see the women in old Master Chow's family? Hearing this, Chao Jun pointed down the mountain. Thanks to old Master Zhang's kindness, my family of more than 30 people are now working in the food factory at the foot of the mountain. Hearing this, Zhang Feng dropped the subject. He waved to Cripple Wang behind him and said, Old Master Chow, is there any progress on the matter that I asked you to do? I'm ashamed to say this. A hint of shame flashed across Chao Jun's wrinkled face as he said, These things are too superior, so this old man only managed to rush out the first batch of prototypes last night. I didn't expect that Sir Dean would come personally. This old man has been negligent. You're too kind. It's already good enough that you were able to produce them in time. I thought that these things would take at least a month to produce. I didn't expect old Master Chow to be able to produce them in just half a month. Chapter 8:10. The conversation between Zhang Feng and Elder Chow. Li Qingqian and the rest were dumbfounded. What kind of conversation was this? They could not understand a single word. Their gazes involuntarily drifted to the wooden platforms not far away. They saw strange things placed on the tables. They did not know what they were used for, but they were densely engraved with ink marks. They did not know what they were used for. Zhang Feng and Old Chow chatted for a long time, and after Zhang Feng obtained some useful information, he pointed to Cripple Wang and said, Old Chow, the first thing I came here for today is to see how these things are going. The second thing is to make them. If they are done, then I will mass produce them. At the very least, within the next month, I will need at least 10 sets of these things. Cripple Wang nodded and said, In addition, I have another important thing. As he spoke, Zhang Feng pointed to Cripple Wang and said, He is also a craftsman I trust. The beer cans you drink are all made by him. You can call him Cripple Wang. As for his name, I don't know. You can contact him later, but his craftsmanship is excellent. If you can work with him and make 2,000 sets of tables and chairs in a short time. How about it? What? 2,000 sets? This, Elder Chow was almost scared to death. 2,000 sets a month. Wasn't this asking for his life? Cripple Wang seemed to be prepared for this. He did not say anything and still stood behind Zhang Feng, unmoved. However, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, You don't have to say anything else. Let me take a look at what you have made. As for the tables and chairs, you guys can divide the work among yourselves. Cripple Wang has 300. How many people does Cripple Wang have? 329 brothers who know carpentry. Old Chow, don't worry. These people are all veterans. They will not share your share. We only need to take care of their food, accommodation, wine and meat. Chao Jun heaved a deep sigh of relief when he heard this. Li Qingqian and the others couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng in surprise. If there was a need for tables and chairs, tens of thousands of them could be found in Chang and city. Why was he in a hurry to make them now? Come, Lord Ju, please. Without waiting for Li Qingqian and the others to ask, Chao Jun hurriedly led Zhang Feng to see the treasures that Zhang Feng had ordered. Li Qingqian and the others hurriedly followed. They wanted to see what Zhang Feng was up to, acting so mysteriously. However, when they came closer, they discovered that the semicircular object in Zhang Feng's hand was dug out from something that looked like a tree root. Not only that, there were 2 holes on it and there were also some markings on it that looked like a ruler. Li Qingqian couldn't help but walk around Zhang Feng. He picked up a triangular ruler from the table and asked curiously, Hey Fengzi, what is this thing? At this moment, Zhang Feng felt some admiration for Chao Jun. Although it wasn't an iron compass or a triangular ruler, it was exactly the same as the template that he had made. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be speechless. This thing is the teaching aid that I mentioned before. You don't recognize it? Li Qingqian's pupils constricted. Teaching aid? You want us to be carpenters? Chao Jun's eyes lit up when he heard that. Although Li Qingqian and the others didn't know their identities, they looked quite extraordinary from the way they were dressed. Chao Jun couldn't help but feel a little excited. Zhang Feng looked at Li Qingqian as if he was looking at an idiot. When did I say that I wanted you to be a carpenter? Do you think I want you to kill people just because I asked you to buy a knife? What are you thinking about? Li Qingqian heard that and finally calmed down. He waved the triangular ruler in his hand and said, Then what is this thing for? Cheng Chimo wanted to play, but Li Qingqian glared at him and stopped. If he were to play with this thing, wouldn't it be ruined? Zhang Feng looked at the compass, triangular ruler and other things one by one. He looked at Chao Jun and said, This thing is not bad. Make it according to this. If you can get some white paint on it, that would be even better. But it's okay, just follow this. Then Zhang Feng looked at Li Qingqian and said, Do you still remember how to calculate? This thing will be the main tool for calculation in the future. Do you want to ask, since you can memorize the multiplication and division table, what's the use of this thing? Zhang Feng didn't wait for Li Qingqian to ask. Instead he asked directly. Li Qingqian nodded. Because what you have learned is just the tip of the iceberg. After that, Zhang Feng took out a blueprint from his chest and waved his hand to get Old Chow and Cripple Wang to come closer. Zhang Wei, Li Qingqian and the others instantly surrounded him. They saw Zhang Feng's blueprint. Blueprints of modern desks and benches were laid out on the paper. Zhang Feng looked at Chao Jun and said, "How is it, Elder Chao? Are you confident? Can you make this thing?" Chao Jun and Cripple Wang both frowned and stared at the blueprint for a long time. Then they said, "It's possible, but no buts. Old Chao, I will be in charge of the materials and you will be in charge of the mortise and tenon. How about that?" Cripple Wang patted Chao Jun's shoulder with certainty. Chao Jun thought for a while, then finally narrowed his eyes and nodded slowly. "Okay. Since Brother Wang has said so, then this old man would like to see if my Chao family's men can rush out these tables and chairs within a month." Chapter 8:11. Deep in the Imperial Palace. Inside Li Yuan's palace. An old eunuch hurriedly entered Li Yuan's palace with a jade box in his hands. At this time inside the palace, there were water wheels made with strange and ingenious skills placed all around. The rows of water wheels formed two winding lines, like a miniature version of mountains and rivers. In an instant, the stuffy and hot aura suddenly disappeared without a trace. In the front hall of the sleeping quarters, a dozen or so scantily clad women were currently singing and dancing on the waterside pavilion surrounded by water on all sides. And right above the waterside pavilion, Li Yuan was embracing four women, waving a golden poker on a high platform and killing in all directions. And as soon as the old eunuch entered, there were instantly 12 female guards carrying Modeo swords in their hands, blocking the old eunuch's path. The old eunuch hurriedly shouted, replying to the young masters, "This is a gift that His Highness the Crown Prince asked someone to bring from Shao Mountain to retired emperor. Please inform him." Actually, Li Yuan's personal old eunuch had already seen his arrival long ago. He deliberately delayed for a moment, then slowly walked forward, asking neither coldly nor warmly, "Eunuch Zhou, what are you here for?" The old eunuch who just came in hurriedly bowed and said, replying to Eunuch Ling, "This one is under the Crown Prince's orders to deliver a good toy to retired emperor. The Crown Prince brought it down from Shao Mountain." Hearing this, Eunuch Ling's pale eyebrows raised. He hurriedly took the jade box from Eunuch Zhou's hands, then waved his hand and said, "Wait." Then he hurriedly bypassed the waterside pavilion, stepped into the pavilion on the second floor, and handed the jade box to Li Yuan. "Retired Emperor, this is something that His Highness the Crown Prince brought down from Shao Mountain." Li Yuan, who was in high spirits, stopped playing cards when he heard Shao Mountain. He grabbed the jade box in Eunuch Ling's hands and asked with a face full of curiosity, "What is this?" Replying to retired Emperor, "This servant does not know." Without waiting for Eunuch Ling to finish speaking, Li Yuan already opened the jade box with a click. Something from Shao Mountain and sent by Li Qingqian, it should be a good thing without a doubt. But after Li Yuan opened the jade box, he was somewhat dazed. Only to see inside the jade box, rows of white things as thick as a little finger were neatly lying inside. Li Yuan could not help but be stunned. "Eunuch Ling, where is the person who sent this thing?" "Waiting outside the hall." But Li Yuan was also not the least bit sloppy. He had seen this white paper a few days ago, and it was very comfortable for him. He was planning to go to Shao Mountain to take a look. How long had it been? What did this brat come up with again? Not long after, Eunuch Zhou bowed and followed Eunuch Ling forward. At this time, Li Yuan no longer had the mood to enjoy the singing and dancing and playing cards. With a wave of his hand, he dismissed the crowd. Holding the cigarette in front of his nose, he sniffed it and asked, "Let me ask you, did the Crown Prince really bring this thing down from Shao Mountain?" "In reply to your Majesty, it was His Highness the Crown Prince's personal bodyguard who sent him back to the palace." Eunuch Zhou quickly prostrated himself on the ground. Li Yuan asked again, "What is this? Tell me clearly, what is the use of this thing?" Seeing this, Eunuch Zhou prostrated himself even lower. "Replying to your Majesty, this thing is called a cigarette. It's also called a cigarette by the Crown Prince and the others. It was created by Prince Zhang. This thing can refresh the mind and, to refresh the mind? Cigarettes?" Hearing this, Li Yuan's eyes brightened. Following Eunuch Zhou's instructions, Li Yuan gently lit the cigarette above the oil lamp. However, that snatching smell made Li Yuan cough involuntarily. When those female bodyguards saw this, their expressions changed greatly. They shouted in unison and were about to chop off Eunuch Zhou's head. Eunuch Zhou seemed to have guessed it long ago. He hurriedly shouted, "Your Majesty, this thing will be like this for the first time." His Highness the Crown Prince said that this thing is like Prince Zhang's wine. Would your Majesty please allow this servant to demonstrate a thing or two? Quick, quick, quick. Where did all this nonsense come from? Li Yuan drank a large jar of water. Only then did he stop coughing. He looked at the cigarette in Eunuch Zhou's hand with some surprise. Eunuch Zhou climbed up and took out half a cigarette from his bosom. Then he lit it on the lamp beside the waterside pavilion and demonstrated for Li Yuan to see. Seeing this, Li Yuan came to a realization. According to the old eunuch's instructions, after 3 cigarettes, other than his head being a little dizzy, everything else was fine. Moreover, because of sleep problems, he who had always been dizzy, appeared particularly energetic at this time. Li Yuan could not help but look at the cigarette in shock. Then Jin asks you, "Did you Shernan and the others have any comments on this thing?" You Shernan and the others were on the mountain. It was impossible for them not to know about this matter. Whether it was good or bad, as long as they asked, they would know. Eunuch Zhou could not help but be stunned. After hesitating for a moment, Li Yuan frowned slightly, summoned the Crown Prince's bodyguard commander to come see Jin quickly. These people did not know? But how could he not know about the bodyguard commander who stayed on the mountain all day? Seeing this, Eunuch Ling flung his whisk and stood at the entrance of the hall, shouting, "Come, summon the Crown Prince's bodyguard commander to see His Majesty." At this time, Li Yuan was even more eager to go up the mountain to take a look. While smoking, Li Yuan walked out of the main hall. Without waiting for Li Yuan to walk out of the main hall, Li Qingqian's Hu-Wei commander had already appeared at the entrance of the main hall. Without waiting for the commander to kneel, Li Yuan asked anxiously, "Jin asks you this thing, what did you Shernan and the others say?" Replying retired Emperor, "It's not just Mr. Bashi and the others. Right now, everyone on the mountain is holding this thing in their mouths. They say that people who don't smoke don't have the ability. People who don't have the ability don't deserve to stay on the mountain." Chapter 8:12. Li Yuan carefully inquired about the situation of the people on the mountain. Even the matter of Gao Can and Li Qingqian getting drunk on cigarettes, as well as the blunder caused by Zhang Feng smoking for the first time, entered Li Yuan's ears. Li Yuan looked at the wisp of smoke rising in spirals from his hand, his eyes shining. "Good stuff, simply good stuff. We ask you, where does your Majesty have it?" "Yes, the various dukes sent it to the imperial palace yesterday. However, the strength of yesterday's cigarette was too great. The Crown Prince felt that your Majesty would not be able to bear it. As a result, when Prince Zhang's improved cigarette was produced today, the Crown Prince hurriedly ordered this lowly subordinate to deliver it to retired Emperor immediately." At the beginning, Li Yuan was still somewhat annoyed. However, after hearing the imperial bodyguard commander say that the improved cigarette was delivered, his anger turned to joy. "Not bad, at least this fellow has a bit of conscience. Come, come, come. Eunuch Ling, distribute the cigarettes, 1 for each person. Accompany us to have a taste. This is the treasure of Mount E." Hearing this, the eyes of Li Yuan's concubines instantly brightened. Chattering, they surrounded Li Yuan. However, there were only 20 or so cigarettes in a box. Li Yuan personally lit a few cigarettes for the concubines, having them take turns smoking. Afterwards, the people at his side did the same. Soon, only 3 cigarettes remained in the box. However, Li Yuan was not afraid. Right now, he was the vice principal of Mount E. Anyone could have less of these cigarettes, but could he? The crowd held this novel toy, looking left and right. Immediately, amidst Li Yuan's loud laughter, the crowd coughed one after another. Just as the harem was in a state of chaos, the matter of Zhang Feng's cigarettes slowly spread throughout the imperial palace. Although these things were rare, there were always people who could obtain some from Mount E, especially Niu Jinda and company. At this moment in Taiji Palace, Zhang Sun Wugo was in the middle of discussing something with Princess Jianghu. However, at this moment, a series of rustling sounds and strange smells came from outside the door, causing this dignified empress to instantly become angry. "Who is outside?" The noise outside immediately stopped. Afterwards, a series of kneeling sounds could be heard. Flustered eunuchs and palace maids hurriedly said, "Empress, no, nothing was done." Zhang Sun Wugo frowned, "Come in and talk to me." As he spoke, he hugged Princess Changping, who was only a few years old, and looked coldly at the people who had just opened the door. As soon as everyone entered, they saw Zhang Sun and Wu Go's gloomy and cold expression. They couldn't help but feel apprehensive in their hearts as they knelt on the ground before the 2 women. "Why were you waiting outside just now? What is this smell?" Little Hua, what is that in your hand? Zhang Sun and Wu Go instantly saw the burning white thing that Xiao Hua hid behind him. It seemed to be very similar to the white paper that the emperor brought back. When Little Hua heard this, his face turned pale. In reply to the empress, this is a cigarette. Cigarettes? Empress Zhang Sun was a little puzzled. Bring it up for me to take a look. Wasn't this something similar to incense? Where did this incense come from? Why use such expensive white paper? Little Hua didn't dare to delay in the slightest. Although Empress Zhang Sun was an easygoing person, once she got angry, it wasn't something that ordinary people could endure. Little Gizi hurriedly handed the cigarette in his trembling hand to Zhang Sun and Wu Go. After observing it closely, Empress Zhang Sun still couldn't understand the use of this thing. Empress Zhang Sun couldn't help but ask curiously, where did this thing come from? It's from the emperor. Xiao Huazi was so excited that he opened his mouth and gave Empress Zhang Sun a big fright. What? It was given to this servant by the emperor's eunuch, Little Gizi. Hearing this, Zhang Sun and Wu Go let out a deep sigh of relief. Tell me, where did this thing come from, and why would such expensive white paper be used for this thing? Tell me in detail. This empress naturally won't delve into it. If you dare to lie, this empress will make your skin split open. How could Little Hua endure this? In a panic, he spilled out everything. So this thing came from Mounty. The first person Zhang Sun and Wu Go thought of was the guy she saw in the small tavern last time. Zhang Feng. Other than him, no one dared to waste white paper like this. And most importantly, this white paper was made by him. What else wouldn't he do? Little Hua confessed in full detail. Zhang Sun and Wu Go couldn't help but frown. Nonsense. This is simply nonsense. Since when did the palace become so chaotic because of one thing? Empress, please forgive me. This humble one. Little Hua and the others turned pale with fright and repeatedly begged for mercy. Zhang Sun and Wu Go smelled the smoke and threw the burning cigarette to Little Hua in disgust. From now on, in this empress bedroom, you're not allowed to smell this thing. Otherwise, this empress will hold you accountable. You can all leave. As if thinking of something, Zhang Sun and Wu Go asked when they were about to be released, where is the emperor now? Little Hua trembled when he heard this. In the imperial study? Prepare the imperial study. Chapter 8:13. In the imperial study. Li Shimin was lying on the soft couch with his clothes in a mess. Yu Qigong, Niu Jinda, Qing Yaojin, and Qin Xiong were sitting on the benches next to him, smoking and bragging. They were talking about the interesting stories of Zhang Feng in the academy. Li Shimin laughed and said, so, Fengzi's research institute is open just like that? No one knew what Li Shimin was talking about. Niu Jinda couldn't help but ask in confusion, Your Majesty, what is the research institute you are talking about? Haha, you won't understand even if I tell you. But those craftsmen from the western regions came at the right time. Dear Niu, tell me, what reward do you want? Niu Jinda and the others were not fools. From the emperor's words just now, they could tell that something was amiss. Although they didn't know what the research institute was, when the emperor talked about these people, they instantly thought of something. When Niu Jinda heard this, he put the cigarette in his mouth and stood up. Your Majesty, if you really want to reward me, why don't you give me Zhang Feng's first batch of firearms? No. Qing Yaojin's eyes turned red. Your Majesty, there is no room for discussion. You promised me that when this thing came out, it would be in my barracks. Come on, the emperor is talking about the invulnerable shield and spear. When did he say he would give you the guns? Yuchi old second, tell me, am I right? Yuchi Gong touched his beard and slowly glanced at Niu Jinda. I seem to have forgotten what it is, but the emperor did talk about it that day in the imperial study. What a joke. The Chang and barracks was now his and Qing Yaojin's territory. The reason why they were stationed near Shao Mountain was that it was convenient. How could he let the meat that was about to enter his mouth slip away? Although they were brothers, there was no room for discussion on this matter. Li Shimin chuckled as he watched the three of them fight. At this time he was already a little dizzy. If he hadn't gotten some tea leaves from Zhang Feng and drank them desperately, he might have already been drunk by the smoke. Everyone's faces were flushed red. Li Shimin chuckled and waved his hand to stop them. All right. The thing hasn't been produced yet. What are you guys fighting over? How about we talk about it after the blunderbuss are produced? By the way, Old Black, let me ask you something. Have you seen that Prince Zhenla these days? Seeing that the emperor had suppressed this matter, although everyone felt indignant, they didn't dare to say anything. As Qing Yaojin smoked, he thought for a while and said, that kid has been strolling outside Shao Mountain these days. I don't know what he wants to do. Your Majesty, do you want me to send someone to bring him back to Honglu Temple? Besides, he has been in the Tang dynasty for a long time. Should we send him back? No. Li Shimin waved his hand. At this time, Zhen La's situation is still unclear. If I drive him back now, the cunning King Zhen La may misunderstand that I won't help them. This is not good for the Tang dynasty. Forget it. It seems that he wants to go to Fengzi's academy. Just turn a blind eye and let him in. As for the rest, let Zhang Feng take care of it. Okay. When Qing Yaojin heard this, he sat back down resentfully. Your Majesty is really in a good mood. At this time, Empress Jiangxuan's somewhat angry voice sounded at the door. As the voice sounded, Xiao Gizi helplessly pushed open the door of the imperial study. As soon as the door was pushed open, Zhang Sun and Wu Go were instantly choked by the choking smoke and coughed. Li Shimin and others were shocked. Li Shimin waved his hand to signal them to leave and hurried to greet them. Maid Guanyin, why didn't you tell me you were coming? Although it was said to Zhang Sun and Wu Go, how could Xiao Gizi not know that it was a reproach? He hurried to explain. Zhang Sun and Wu Go glared at Li Shimin speechlessly and said, if I didn't come, second brother would probably set the entire imperial study on fire. Hearing this, Li Shimin glanced at the smoky imperial study and felt a slight headache. Maid Guanyin, let's talk somewhere else. Xiao Gizi, let's go to the bedroom. While speaking, Li Shimin followed Zhang Sun and Wu Go. Along the way, Zhang Sun and Wu Go were very annoyed. It was full of the smell of smoke. Even the eunuchs they met along the way smelled like this. It was not that she hated this smell. It was that the smell of this thing was simply too unpleasant. It was uncomfortable. Your Majesty, this thing smells so bad. Why is it that all I see, smell, and hear along the way is this? What's so good about this thing? Seeing Empress Zhang Sun grumble. Only then did Li Shimin realize something. He smiled faintly and said, this thing was made by that brat Zhang Feng. You don't say this thing is really magical. Before this, I had to take a nap at noon every day and I would have a headache every night. But now that I have this thing, I feel 100 times more energetic. Chapter 8:14. Zhang Sun Wu Go rolled her eyes at Li Shimin. I don't think this thing should be made. I don't know what Zhang Feng is doing. In my opinion, this thing is a scourge. Look at you. Do you still look like an emperor? As soon as they entered the bedroom. Only then did Zhang Sun Wu Go help Li Shimin take off his outer robe as he nagged. Li Shimin laughed and hugged Zhang Sun Wu Go. Guanyin, you don't know. It's this little thing. You don't know that everyone on Shao Mountain is smoking it now. There's even a rumor that people who don't smoke aren't men. There's also a ballad that says that a person who doesn't smoke isn't a man. There's also a ballad that says that a cigarette before a meal is a celestial being and a cigarette after a meal is a joyful life. Seeing that Zhang Sun Wu Go was about to refute, Li Shimin hurriedly said, do you still remember Mr. Bo Shi and the others? Zhang Sun Wu Go didn't know what to say. She glared at Li Shimin and leaned into his arms. However, in the next moment, Zhang Sun Wu Go pushed Li Shimin away in disgust and covered her nose as she retreated. Li Shimin was amused by Zhang Sun Wu Go's seductive behavior and laughed. He sat on the soft couch and said, since Mr. Bo Shi and Dr. Sun came to Shao Mountain, the pork, which is hated by scholars like them, has become a necessity for their meals. Moreover, in Chang'an City, the restaurant opened by Qing Qian and the others is selling pork very well, and the people who eat it the most are those Confucians. Don't you think it's funny? Zhang Sun Wu Go saw that Li Shimin had changed the topic, so she couldn't continue to hold on to it. Sitting next to Li Shimin, she asked, this boy's pork is good. I don't know how he made it. Did he develop it together with Dr. Sun? This concubine once asked the imperial physicians in the palace, and they said that a lot of Chinese herbs were added to the braised meat. Wrong, this thing was made by Fengzi. If Dr. Sun could make this thing, he would have done it long ago. Li Shimin smacked his lips. He waved his hand and rushed out, shouting at the door, little Gizi, order Imperial Chef Zhou to quickly bring the braised meat to Zhen. At the mention of braised meat, Li Shimin felt hungry. He said with some admiration, once the pork was sold, the pigs that I was worried about to be harvested to fight against the plague of locusts all became treasures. Not only did I not suffer a loss, but I also earned a lot of money, just like this kid said. Are you talking about the tens of millions of pigs that have troubled you for a long time? Zhang Sun and Wu Go were also surprised. But when he thought about it, he couldn't help but be slightly shocked. Did this kid just casually deal with the matter that he had mentioned before the locust outbreak? Could it be that this kid knew about the locust plague from the very beginning? Furthermore, he already knew how to make braised meat. Then, second brother, then, the beggar's chicken. At the mention of the beggar's chicken, Li Shimin was even more excited. Wasn't Jin having a headache about those things before? Now, with this kid doing this, the shortage of food in the military camp mainly depends on selling these chickens and ducks that no one wants in exchange. Jin just talked about this with Yu Qigong and the others. I didn't expect that they would make a lot of money because of this. Li Shimin praised Zhang Feng from head to toe. In fact, to put it bluntly, he was just looking for an excuse for this cigarette. Although this thing was a bad thing in the eyes of many people, especially women, it seemed that they were not fated with this thing. However, this was all secondary. The most important thing was that Li Shimin also found that this thing was very dependent on it, just like wine. He didn't know whether it was good or bad, but he didn't want to make Empress Zhang Sun unhappy because of this thing. That was why he made a big fuss. How could Zhang Sun Wugo not know that Li Shimin was beating around the bush? After fiercely glaring at Li Shimin, she said, "Is second brother looking for an excuse for this cigarette? Although this thing is good, this concubine always feels dizzy from smelling it. I hope second brother takes care of your imperial body. Although this thing is good, there is no need to be like today, right? It's better to smoke less. Save it, save it." Hearing this, Li Shimin was very happy. He took out an exquisite jade box from his bosom, took out a cigarette and put it in his mouth. Seeing this, Zhang Sun Wugo's face turned completely black. "This concubine is not feeling well and won't accompany your majesty." As she spoke, Zhang Sun Wugo pulled Princess Changle and fled from here. Li Shimin stared blankly. Seeing Changle's face full of disdain, he doubtfully asked himself, "Is this thing really so smelly?" On the other side, Qing Yaojin and company left the imperial study. They did not even sit in the palanquin. Along the way, they enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the imperial palace. With cigarettes in their mouths, they chatted and laughed as they walked out of the palace, swaggering down the streets of Chang'an. Now that Zhang Feng had gone to Mount Shao, there was no need for them to disguise themselves. They only wore ordinary clothes and strolled around the streets. "Old Hey, your son's restaurant is up ahead. Aren't you going to invite me to eat a bowl?" When the group passed by Ping'an district in the eastern market, Yu Qigong stood motionless. Hearing this, Niu Jinda and Qin Shubao could not help but rub their stomachs. Feigning astonishment, they asked, "Old Hey, when did your son know how to do business and open a restaurant?" Come. Let's go sit." How could Qing Yaojin say anything? Seeing the restaurant signboard, he could not move. Seeing this, he waved his hand and said, "What are you talking about? Could it be that my family's iron bull is not worthy of opening a restaurant? Come. If I don't get you bastards drunk today, I, Qing Yaojin, will write my name backwards." Just like that, the few of them walked into the restaurant while shouting loudly. But as soon as they entered, they couldn't help but step back. Then they rubbed their eyes and stared blankly at the restaurant that was shrouded in smoke and dust. "I say, when did Chang'an City have these cigarettes? Old Hey, are you trying to line your own pockets?" Chapter 8:15. What did you say? This is the son-in-law's doing? Zhang Mansion. Zhang Shan looked at the box of cigarettes handed to him by the old Xiaocai in surprise. The old Xiaocai stroked his beard and sipped his tea leisurely. He smiled and said, "Of course it's him. I don't know what this brat is doing on the mountain. You Shernan and the other old guys don't care about him. But this is really good stuff. Feng Zi was too busy before and didn't have time. This morning he just remembered and sent me some to give to you." How could Zhang Feng think of his cheap father-in-law? He really just remembered Chang and university this morning. If Li Qingqian hadn't mentioned it during breakfast, Zhang Feng wouldn't have remembered anything. Now that Li Qingqian mentioned it, he remembered and hurriedly asked the people in Tonghui Fang to make a large batch of cigarettes. He sent a big box of cigarettes to Li Gang and the old Xiaocai. While Cheng Chumo was smoking one cigarette after another, Yi Qianqian's eyes lit up. The old Xiaocai was so angry that he picked up the broom and chased Cheng Chumo out. Then the two old men followed Cheng Chumo's example and squatted in the study. After smoking for 2 hours, they realized that the thing that Bo Shi loved so much was really good stuff. But this time the old Xiaocai was not happy. He looked at the braised meat and beer on the table while smoking. He sighed and said, "Alas! I don't know what this old village chief is doing. If this goes on, Feng Zi's ability will be ruined by these scammers." Li Gang waved the white paper in his hand and looked at it. He exhaled a puff of white smoke and said, "Old man, this thing is really good stuff. Although this brat has a tendency to be a prodigal, you also know that pigs and chickens and ducks are a big burden to the Tang dynasty now. This brat solved this problem in an instant. This can be considered a matter that will be passed down in the Zhang family for hundreds of generations." When he heard the Zhang family, only then did the old Xiaocai remember Zhang Feng's father-in-law. He took out a big handful from the basket and then put down half of it with some heartache. Finally he thought for a while and then took out a large bamboo tube and put 2 bamboo tubes in it. Only then did he slowly walk out of the academy while smoking. At this moment, Zhang Shan interrupted the old scholar's imagination and asked curiously, "This thing, you've tried it before?" The old scholar didn't say anything. Instead he took out a wooden box from his bosom and took out 2 cigarettes, one for each of them. He lit the cigarettes and said, "Yes, I have. And you know Dr. Sun and Mr. Bosher, don't you? The few people on the mountain had all gotten their hands on it, and they loved it so much that they couldn't bear to part with it. I've also heard that anyone who doesn't smoke on the mountain is treated as a monster. They even say, no cigarettes, no alcohol, no hard work, but as long as there are cigarettes, alcohol and books are common." What kind of nonsense was that? Was this thing really that good? Zhang Shan could not help but look suspiciously at the smoking device. It was like the incense of his ancestors. It was a little strange. But at this moment he couldn't say anything. He could only follow the old Shiozai and smoke. But the old Shiozai was more careful and told him over and over again how to smoke without choking his lungs. Slowly, slowly. Zhang Shan was surprised to find that this thing was really good. After all, he was a businessman. What happened to paper had already made his heart ache. And that pork and other things. He secretly cursed Zhang Feng for being a wastrel. But after all, they hadn't really become in-laws, so he could only shake his head and sigh. On the one hand, he thought about the benefits of Zhang Feng's actions. Otherwise he would have vomited blood because of Zhang Feng. But, now that he met the old Shiozai, Zhang Shan couldn't help but ask with a worried face, "Old Shiozai, I can see that you treat Feng as your own son, right?" Hearing this, the old Shiozai's face became serious. Nonsense. Old man cherishes talent. But as soon as he finished speaking, the old Shiozai shook his head and sighed again. In fact, in his heart, Zhang Feng had long been treated as his own son. But he also knew that with Zhang Feng's temper, he would definitely be unwilling. But he also didn't want to see Zhang Feng's talent go to waste. But since he met Li Yuan and Li Shimin, he realized that he was overthinking. Zhang Feng's achievements would only be an existence that he could only look up to in the future. After Zhang Feng opened White Deer College on the mountain, the old Shiozai buried his thoughts in the bottom of his heart. He believed that with these people around, Zhang Feng would generally be fine. But who would have thought that Feng, this silly boy, would give everything to others? In the future, when he got married and started his own business, what else would he pass on to his descendants? When the old Shiozai thought about this, the vicissitudes of life in his eyes became more obvious. Alas, old man Zhang, don't make fun of this old man. Right, let's not talk about this anymore. Tomorrow, old man will go up the mountain to ask Feng Zi what he's doing. Don't worry, this old man knows that Feng Zi has a lot of skills. Don't worry, you can take this first. If there's no more, you can send someone to my academy. Or don't you have people in the market square of Mount Shao? Let them find the old village chief. Now Feng Zi has given all this to the old village chief. Zhang Shan smacked his lips. He wanted to say something, but in the end he swallowed his words. He sighed and said, "I'm old. I didn't want to get involved in the affairs of young people. But you know, my daughter seems to have lost her soul after seeing that kid. Go and ask her if there's anything she can do on the mountain. When the time comes, I want to avoid it. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. You've been crying all day. I'm sick of it." The old Shiozai laughed and said, "Shopkeeper Zhang, you're giving this old man a difficult problem. Are you forcing a marriage?" Chapter 8:16. Zhang Shan didn't say anything. He just smiled bitterly. The point is that gossip is a fearful thing. It can be said that the entire Chang and knows about the matter between Feng Zi and my Yuyao. If others were to gossip about it, then I wouldn't mind. The key is that my wife and my daughter. Fine, fine, fine. You don't have to say anything. I'll go up the mountain tomorrow and ask around for you, okay? The old scholar hurriedly interrupted Zhang Shan. He was also anxious about this matter, but Zhang Feng was not anxious at all. What could he do? He couldn't just kidnap him, could he? But on second thought, the old scholar couldn't help but have an idea. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten that Feng Zi was always tricked on the mountain. No one would wash his clothes or comb his hair. If someone could take care of him. Hearing this, Zhang Shan's eyes lit up. He slapped his thigh and said, "Great. In this way my daughter won't have to sigh at home every day. Besides, if the two of them stay together for too long, won't?" While speaking, Zhang Shan put his thumbs together. Then the two of them couldn't help laughing out loud. "Aha, I'll come again tomorrow. If Miss Zhang can go up the mountain, I won't have to worry so much." Good, good, good. Yao can't wait to go up the mountain. Although she's at home, her thoughts have long flown away. Now I'll have a good life. Then I won't disturb you anymore." While speaking, the old scholar left with a smile on his face. Zhang Shan rubbed his hands and wandered around the living room for a long time. Then he slapped his thigh and said, "Servants." "Master." The maidservant waiting outside had already heard their conversation. Moreover, they had kept their voices low. At this time, all the servants outside Zhang Shan's living room heard it. Now that they heard Zhang Feng calling again, all of them unconsciously put their ears around the living room. They already knew about Zhang Feng's matter. At this time, all of them couldn't wait for the master to be happy and send them to work in the mountain. Even if it was to pour night incense, it was a job with status. So at this time, the moment Zhang Shan spoke, everyone instantly tensed up. The cleverest maid rushed in as soon as she heard Zhang Shan's shout. Zhang Shan looked at the door and then looked at the figures on the window paper. How could he not know what these fellows were thinking? She glared at the maidservant and said, "Don't just stand there. This matter has nothing to do with you. Go and call Miss and Madam, Master Zhang." Before Zhang Shan could summon her, Jingshu's clear voice rang out from outside the door. When Zhang Shan heard this, he instantly knew that the news of the old scholar's visit had already reached the ears of the two girls. He could only scold the servant who was eavesdropping on them before allowing them to enter the room. After Mother Zhang entered the living room, Xiao Cui closed the door. Zhang Shan scanned the crowd, and his gaze finally landed on the half-grown steamed bun who was following Jingshu. He had seen this little girl before. She was as skinny as a match and had a yellowish appearance. However, ever since she started following Jingshu, this little girl really had the makings of a beauty. Zhang Shan could not help but sigh. That brat Zhang Feng had taken advantage of him again. You all know that the old scholar came to our mansion today, right? Then I won't say much. This brat has been fooling around on the mountain during this period. His skills have almost been exposed by those guys. Today the old scholar gave me another gift. Jingshu heard this and said, "Is it a piece of white paper?" "No, you'll know when you see it." Jingshu glanced at the contents of the bamboo tube and sniffed the air. "Is this the cigarette Prince Zhang made?" "Yes." Zhang Shan sighed. "If no one cares about this brat's ability will be gone after you two marry into the family. So, father." Zhang Yuyao blushed. Zhang Shan glared at Zhang Yuyao and said, "Don't you like to hear it? You're not married yet. Do you believe that the old man will reject this marriage right now?" When these words came out, Zhang Yuyao's beautiful face turned pale with fright. Mother Zhang saw this and glared at Zhang Shan. "You shameless old man, is there anyone who scares their daughter like this? You said that your daughter is your flesh and blood, but I think you're just an ingrate. If you have something to say, just say it. Once this is over, I'll deal with you." Where could they find such a good son-in-law? Even if that brat had lost all his skills, that was still his skills. Just now, this brat had caused enough trouble for them to live freely for the rest of their lives. Moreover, he was now a viscount. Even if he did not do anything for the rest of his life and only ate the imperial rations, he would not be able to finish it even if he had 8 lifetimes. Where could they find such a good son-in-law? They had never seen such a person who drove such a good son-in-law out. If the Zhang family's relatives knew about this, it would be strange if they did not banish Zhang Shan from the family tree. Zhang Shan was just joking, but when he saw that the tigress was bored, he could not help but turn pale with fright. "Don't, old man is just joking. You two and Cui, pack up your valuables today. Tomorrow morning follow the old scholar up the mountain." Chapter 8:17. Zhang Yuyao was stunned. Jingshu felt a little lonely, but she quickly covered it up. After all, she only showed her eyes at this time. No one could tell what she was thinking. She had been alone all her life. Since she became close to Zhang Feng, she naturally tied her hair up and lived in Chang'an University, where Zhang Feng lived, and opened a class for girls. At this time, the princesses in the palace as well as the women of the noble families were all studying in the female class of Chang'an University. This was all arranged by Zhang Feng. Although she was busy every day, it made her feel very fulfilled. She didn't have to think about how to deal with those bad guys all day. But since she followed Zhang Feng, she was attracted to Zhang Feng. Everything about Zhang Feng was so fatally attractive to her. This was the reason why she had to come to Zhang Mansion every day. Because there was also a woman like her waiting for Zhang Feng's news. Most importantly, many of the servants in Zhang Mansion went to Shao Mountain to help, and Shao Mountain was next to Tonghui Lane. If there was any news, they would know it first. Now, she didn't have to worry too much about the female class. 3 female officials from the palace came and she had nothing to do. At this time, after knowing that Zhang Yuyao went up the mountain, Jingshu obviously felt a little lonely. But how could all this escape Zhang Shan's eyes? At this time, the Tang dynasty's custom was polygamy. So when he saw Jingshu, he naturally thought of her as Zhang Feng's woman. If this was in modern times, try it. If I didn't beat you to death, it would be your ancestors' blessings. Zhang Shan smiled and lit a cigarette. He looked at Jingshu and said, Miss Jingshu. Master Zhang. Jingshu bowed and said in a cultured and elegant manner. Zhang Shan smiled and said, Why don't you follow Yu Yao up the mountain? Old man knows that there's nothing for the girls to do now. Besides, that kid is always jumping up and down the mountain like a clay figurine. He doesn't even care about etiquette when there are some important guests on the mountain. My Yu Yao is really not as good as you in this aspect. Old Master Zhang, what are you saying? Prince Zhang is... Don't speak for that brat. We're all men. I know. Zhang Shan was speechless. What kind of bewitching potion did this brat feed them? He hadn't even done anything yet, and all of them were already siding with him? Let's not talk about other things. That guy is wild and has a wide network. It's inevitable that he will meet some women. Since both of you are going to be Fengzi's wives, I want you to go to the mountain to accompany him this time so as to avoid the rumors. When the time is right, you will... Father, aren't you ashamed? Zhang Yuyao couldn't listen anymore and blushed. After all, Zhang Yuyao's mother was experienced. She rolled her eyes and understood what Zhang Shan meant. She pointed her finger at Zhang Yuyao's forehead and said, Good girl, your father is doing this for your own good. That brat is so pretentious. Didn't you hear the servants say that as soon as he went down the mountain, those women would rush to him like flies smelling blood? If you don't keep an eye on him, you too will cry when the time comes. Men should be watched carefully. Do you want to have more than a dozen freeloaders in the family before you get married? Zhang Shan had a headache. He hurriedly interrupted Zhang Yuyao's mother, who was feeding the two girls poisonous chicken soup, and said, In fact, it's not that serious. Now that the brat is on the mountain, there is no one to take care of him. You two go up the mountain. One of you is in charge of external affairs and give the brat some ideas. Miss Jingshu should work harder, and you are in charge of internal affairs to help him dress up. Don't be like a bumpkin all day long. Yao, remember this. Men should pay attention to their appearances. You should pay attention to the way he dresses every day. If you clean him up, you will be proud, right? But, father? At this moment, Zhang Yuyao's face was as red as a kind of fruit produced in Qinling. But how can you go up the mountain like this? After all, Zhang Yuyao's mother stared at the stammering Zhang Yuyao and said, Wicked girl, if you wait any longer, you want to see other women go up the mountain first, right? Hurry up and keep an eye on that brat. Don't let him attract other women outside. Zhang Shan had no choice but to drive Zhang Yuyao and the others out while Zhang Yuyao's mother was nagging. As soon as the two women went out, they looked at each other and instantly blushed even more. Sister Jingshu, if we go up the mountain like this, then, what will the people on the mountain think of us? It's really embarrassing. How would Jingshu know? Now she was excited and looking forward to it, but she was also a little conflicted. She was not like Zhang Yuyao. Zhang Yuyao was the mistress of the house the moment she married into the family. What about her? Zhang Yuyao was officially married, but she was... With a sigh, Jingshu could only hug Zhang Yuyao, who was in a panic, and said, Good sister, don't worry. Let's go up the mountain tomorrow. Don't you look forward to going up the mountain every day? Who said that? Let's go and see what we need to prepare. Didn't you make a set of clothes for Prince Zhang? Don't forget. The two women chattered for a while. Zhang Yuyao was excited again. She counted with her fingers what she needed to bring one by one. But she didn't notice that her personal maid had already taken the steamed buns to Zhang Mansion to show off. Chapter 818. Chang'an City, the residence of the 16th prince. In the Yuqi mansion. At noon, Yuqi Gong was lying on a soft couch. His snoring could be heard from afar. Yuqi Gong's wife and family members turned a blind eye to it. It was as if they were already used to it. However, today many of the Yuqi Manor's servants, officials, family generals and others were staring at the entrance of the manor from time to time. They seemed to be waiting for some big shot. She's here. Madam, she's here. At this moment, one of the guards rushed into the mansion with a cheer. Madame Yuqi's eyes lit up when she heard that. Where is she? As she said that, Madame Yuqi glared at the snoring Yuqi Gong. Go and wake that dead man up. She's already here and he's still in the mood to sleep? The guard was a little scared when he heard that. Who would dare to go forward when Yuqi Gong was sleeping? They would be beaten to death. However, they didn't dare to refuse the woman's order. They could only glare at the new soldier. In the end, the new soldier shrunk his neck and stammered to Yuqigong's side. When they woke Yuqigong up, he fell asleep. When he woke Yuqigong up, Yuqigong wiped the saliva off his face and knocked him out. "Dead man, you can really sleep? She's already here and you're still sleeping? Why don't you sleep like a log?" Madame Yuqi glared at Yuqigong. When Yuqigong heard that, he instantly woke up from his dazed state. He waved his hand and had someone drag the new soldier away. He wiped the saliva off his mouth and hurried to the door. "Where is she? Where is she?" "She's at the door." "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go and take a look." As he spoke, Yuqigong led his family to the door. However, when they walked out of the back courtyard, they saw a young woman in a white cloak. She was dressed in the style of a Jiangnan woman and was slowly walking into the mansion. The woman's appearance was similar to Yuqigong's, but she only had eyes and a nose. She had big eyes and a sharp nose, but she wasn't as burly as Yuqigong. Although she was still taller than the guard at the side, one could tell from the ribbon tied around her waist that this woman was truly a peerless beauty. Her red lips were glistening, just like the delicate woman in Jiangnan after the rain, making people feel pity for her. "Good girl, I haven't seen you in so many years. You've become even more beautiful." Madame Yuqi's eyes narrowed into crescents when she saw this. She grabbed the woman's hand that was as white as snow. "Lan, greets sister-in-law. It's been so many years since we last met, sister-in-law, and you're still so beautiful." Lan, almost thought I was dreaming of the first time I saw sister-in-law 10 years ago. Madame Yuqi was overjoyed when she heard this. "Little sister, what are you talking about? We're all one family, so let's not talk about these things. How have you been in Jiangnan these years?" Yuqigong had a side relative. After the Tang dynasty was established, Li Yuan dispersed the family power of all the officials in order to disperse the power in the court. As for Yuqigong's side branch, they naturally chose the wealthy Jiangnan generation. After not seeing each other for a few years, if Yuqigong hadn't joked with Zhang Feng about having a girl, he would have forgotten about this cousin. Afterwards, he returned to discuss Zhang Feng's marriage with his wife. The two hit it off and quickly sent a letter to Yuqigong's uncle. This girl was a side branch of Yuqigong's great-grandfather Yuqi Meng. She was also the only daughter of Yuqigong's paternal uncle Yuqi Meng. These years, their development in Jiangnan could be considered quite effective, even more so than Yuqigong's branch. However, although their lives were good, they were unable to enter the world. Last year, Yuqigong had received a letter from his paternal uncle, Yuqi Meng, who wanted to find a marriage for Yuqi Meng's only daughter. Thinking about it this way, Yuqigong couldn't help but feel that Zhang Feng was full of merits. Although he had an engagement as a man, which man didn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Moreover, this kid had saved the emperor's favor and called him brother. In the future, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to the heavens. This was a small matter. His Yuqi clan would also be able to benefit from this. Who told him to have many sons, but most of them were disappointing. Although he rarely interacted with Yuqi Meng, he didn't know if this cousin of his was still as thin as a stick of firewood after not seeing her for a few years. But seeing her today, Yuqigong almost cried out in surprise. He had seen at least 800 if not 1,000 women. Among them, he had seen blonde-haired and blue-eyed Hu people, as well as those smelly extraterrestrials. But seeing her now, Yuqigong's heart instantly blossomed. This was great. When Yuqi Lan arrived, it would be strange if that kid didn't fall under her pomegranate skirt. Yuqi Lan wasn't as cold and aloof as Jingshu, nor was she like Zhang Yuyao, a pretty girl from a humble family. Instead, she had the fatal charm of a Hu person. She was charming and had a graceful and noble temperament. No one could compare to her in this aspect. While Yuqigong was stroking his beard and smiling foolishly, the group had already entered the drawing room. Only then did Yuqi Lan bow slightly. Lan greets cousin. It's been many years, but cousin is still so valiant. Chapter 8:19. Ha, my good sister, you are the one who gave me a big surprise. Come, sit. Yuqi Lan blinked her eyes, smiled, and nodded her head gently. After everyone had taken their seats, Yuqigong waved his hand and said, "Servants, is the banquet ready?" "Master, it's ready." Hearing that, Yuqigong stood up and said, "Sister Lan, you must be tired from the journey. Let's go, I have prepared a welcome banquet for you. Shall we talk while we eat?" In fact, Yuqi Lan had known that they were coming to Chang'an. Although Yuqi Lan didn't care about it. She had her own dream. But when she heard that it was Zhang Feng, Yuqi Lan couldn't sit still. Zhang Feng's general toast had caused a sensation among the scholars and beauties in Jiangnan. All the girls were obsessed with Zhang Feng's poems. As long as one of Zhang Feng's poems was spread to Jiangnan, it would cause a great fight. Yuqi wasn't that crazy, but she had already given her heart to him. After knowing that they were coming to Chang and from her father, Yuqi couldn't care less. After knowing that Zhang Feng was engaged to the first beauty in Chang and Miss Jingshu, how could she stay calm? The three of them sat down. Yuqi asked, "Madam, why didn't I see my nephews?" "They went to the mountain a long time ago." Although she had guessed it, Yuqi was still shocked. "I heard that the crown prince and the others..." "Shoo." Before Yuqi could finish, Yuqi Gong stopped talking. "There are some things that you just need to know. Also, did your father tell you about what happened here?" Yuqi didn't know that Yuqi Gong would be so serious about this. She nodded and said with a serious face, "I know." "That's good. Come, let's eat. You haven't eaten these things before, right? They're all good." As he spoke, Yuqi Gong pointed at the braised meat on the table, the beggar's chicken, and all the dishes Zhang Feng had made. Only then did Yuqi lower her head to look. A few moments later, Yuqi covered her mouth and chuckled, "Cousin, did you forget something? Yesterday's drumming in Chang, and was heard in Jiangnan during the lantern season?" Yuqi Gong heard this. Although he knew nothing about these things, he could still understand the meaning behind it. It seemed that the table of delicacies that he had carefully prepared had already been eaten. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "I didn't expect this. I thought I could give you a surprise." "Forget it, when you go up the mountain that kid knows a lot of things. I'll ask him to cook for you." "Cousin." Yuqi covered her mouth and giggled. When Madame Yuqi saw that the topic had been led to this point, she waved her hand and said, "Someone, go and bring the jug of wine that master hid." "Woman, you were the one who hid it, okay. I was wondering where my jug of wine had gone. If I don't hide, how are you going to entertain today? Come let's eat." "Ignore him." Madame Yuqi poured wine for Yuqi and asked, If sister-in-law remembers correctly, you're already 18 years old this year, right?" This was the first time Yuqi had seen this kind of wine that was as clear as water, yet fragrant and sweet. She was a little surprised, but when she heard Madame Yuqi's question, she smiled faintly and said, "Madame Yuqi really has a good memory." When Madame Yuqi heard this, she smiled and glanced at Yuqi chest that was twice as big as a normal person's. She nodded in satisfaction. Come, let's drink. This is something that only our residence has for now. It's hard to say whether the other public houses and the Imperial Palace have it or not. You don't know, but this wine was also made by that kid Zhang Feng. But, didn't you say that the beer was made by him? Sigh. How long ago was that? When we go up the mountain tomorrow, I'll teach you a good lesson about that silly kid Zhang Feng. Come, let's eat first. We'll talk after dinner. That kid knows things that you can't even imagine. This time I'll tell you this much, but there's one thing that depends on you. Although that kid is only a viscount now, he's still the chancellor of White Deer College. But I can guarantee with my head that the number of ladies who have their eyes on that kid can line up from here all the way to Mount Shao. Yuqi still believed in this point. However, at this moment she had a better understanding of Zhang Feng's talent and knowledge. She couldn't help but be more eager to see what kind of person Zhang Feng was. Report. At this moment, someone rushed into the living room and whispered something in Yuqi Gong's ear. Yuqi Gong's expression changed abruptly. "Oh no." Hearing this, Yuqi and Madame Yuqi turned pale with fright. "What's the matter? What happened?" After Yuqi Gong waved his hand to dismiss the person who came, he said in a serious tone, "Do you still remember that kid's confidant? And his fiancée? Now these two girls have become sisters. Tomorrow the old scholar from Chang and University actually asked them to go up the mountain to take care of Zhang Feng's daily life." Madame Yuqi became anxious when she heard this. She grabbed Yuqi hand and said, "Come, let's go up the mountain now." Chapter 820. Shiva was miserable. He walked around the foot of Shao Mountain for a long time but still didn't get permission to go up the mountain. However, Shiva didn't get tired of it. He would wait here for a long time every day. When he was hungry, he would ask the passers-by to buy some food for him. When he was sleepy, he built a straw shed on the spot and asked someone to buy some things for him to stay in. Although it was a little bitter. Seeing the endless stream of people going up the mountain every day and listening to them talk about the rumors on the mountain made him very happy. Shiva was even more eager to go up the mountain. The fatal attraction of Zhang Feng made Shiva forget his identity as Prince Junla. Before, he thought that Prince Junla was a high and mighty existence. However, after meeting Zhang Feng, he suddenly felt that Prince Junla was nothing. Even his father, the emperor, couldn't be compared to him. Of course, he didn't dare to say these words in front of others. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to keep his legs when he went back. However, he didn't care anymore. As long as he could go up the mountain, he wouldn't go back to Zhenla. Go back to your second uncle. He wouldn't go back. It was because Zhang Feng had come up with another good thing after the white paper and the braised beggar's chicken. After spending a lot of money to get a cigarette from old Shiva was completely lost. At this time, after waiting for the people in line to enter the market to go in, Shiva tidied up his clothes and even clutched the gold leaf that he had prepared. He planned to bribe the guards to let him go up the mountain. Oh, isn't this the little prince of Jinla? Why do you want to try again today? Ah. Amidst the guards joking, Shiva used the unfamiliar Han etiquette to salute and say, "Officers, this one is truly an old acquaintance of Principal Zhang. I'll have to trouble you to pass on the message. Can this be considered as a gift for the officers?" The guard glanced at the bulging money bag in Shiva's hand before withdrawing his eyes. He then looked at Shiva and said with a smile on his face, "You don't look like a troublemaker. Since you're so sincere and have become familiar with us these days, I'll let you in. However, if you dare to make trouble on the mountain and make things difficult for us, I'll break your legs even if you're King La, not to mention your Prince La." Shiva looked at the guards as if he was dreaming. It had been 7 days. They all said the same thing. However, these people refused to let him in. They said that this was the secret place of the Tang dynasty and that non-Han people were not allowed to enter. However, a few days ago he saw a group of people from the western region enter with his own eyes. Although those people were handcuffed and shackled, they all went in except for him. He even brought the clearance documents and even had people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Personnel to verify the clearance. However, he still couldn't go in. But now, he could go in? Shiva couldn't help but be overjoyed. He stuffed the money bag in his hand to the guard. However, the guard glared at him and waved the modeo in his hand. "What are you doing? What do you think we Tangs are? Keep your money back. If you go up the mountain and the dean really takes you in, you should keep this bag of money. It might not be enough to cover your expenses." Shiva didn't understand what he meant. However, he still thanked him and entered Shao Mountain. He was neither a businessman nor a student, so naturally he couldn't enter. However, he had long been looking forward to the market at the foot of Shao Mountain. In Chang'an he had already seen through the pressure of the two big markets. On the other hand, although this was a mountain, there were more people and businessmen at the foot of the mountain than in Chang'an City. How could he not be excited? The guards were stationed at the entrance of Shao Mountain. If one wanted to go up Shao Mountain, they had to walk on this mountain path that was only 3 feet wide. On both sides of the mountain path, there were straight cliffs like door gods. After walking for about a mile, Shiva's eyes suddenly opened up. Waves of noise continuously entered Shiva's ears. Fresh fruits. The beer just arrived. Brother, do you want to try it? This is brewed by our dean himself. It only costs 1 copper coin. 1 copper coin. The fragrant glutinous rice wine, the dean's favorite glutinous rice wine. Come, all of you come and try it. It's free if it doesn't taste good. Shiva looked around as he walked. It was as strange as a wild child in the mountains entering the city. The market was very big. On both sides of a mountain path with no end in sight, there were houses built with red bricks that Shiva had never seen before. There were also some houses built with wood and bamboo. The ground was made with an unknown material that was as hard as stone. There were also smooth stones of different colors inlaid on the ground. It looked very beautiful. On this road, although there were many peddlers, no one dared to spit or throw away rubbish. Even if there were a few leaves, someone would take the initiative to pick them up. This made Shiva even more curious. Most importantly, everyone here had a cigarette in their hands. They held it in their mouths and walked with their heads held high. Those who didn't have cigarettes lowered their heads and hurried past. This made Shiva even more curious. He pulled over a merchant and curiously asked, "Brother, why do these people all have cigarettes in their mouths? Why do those who don't have cigarettes have their heads lowered?" The barbarian merchant first looked at the man who was dressed similarly to him as if he was a monster. After a while he said strangely, "Kid, give me a cigarette. Let me tell you, where does Shiva have a cigarette?" He hurriedly took out a golden leaf from his money pouch. The barbarian merchant looked around like a thief before putting the leaf into his sleeve as if nothing had happened. "Kid, on Shao Mountain, if you don't smoke, you're not a man. Do you understand? Those who don't have cigarettes don't deserve to stay on Shao Mountain. Brother, let me give you a piece of advice. There's a shop in front of the food factory that specializes in selling cigarettes. Go buy a box. Otherwise, if you stay too long, you'll drown in the spit." Chapter 8:21. There's such a rule? Shiva was shocked and quickly asked again, Brother, who set this rule? When I met the dean, he didn't seem like such a person. When the barbarian heard that this dumb kid knew Zhang Feng, he couldn't help but be shocked. After looking Shiva up and down, he said in disbelief, You know the dean? We all know the dean. A few days ago Lao Tzu and I even talked to the dean. So what? This rule wasn't set by the dean. It was set by everyone here. Also, don't ever throw trash on the ground. Someone sees it. Shiva hurriedly asked, What will happen? The barbarian laughed evilly. You'll have to use your tongue to lick the entire floor before you stop. Shiva was shocked. What kind of rule is this? This isn't a rule. The barbarian pointed at the ground and said, Do you know what this is? This is the cement that the dean spent a lot of effort to create. It's also called concrete. It's for the convenience of us. They didn't even have it on the mountain, but they made it for us first. What is this? If we don't follow the rules, not to mention the people on the mountain, even the merchants here will beat those who don't follow the rules to death. Shiva was completely shocked. He had seen Zhang Feng's charm. But what was this? Zhang Feng didn't say a word. These people were so crazy to follow the rules and even set their own rules to restrict them. No wonder the people here were like this. This was the kind of bearing a man should have. Shiva's eyes shone with a fiery light. After thanking the Hu merchant, he trembled as he walked towards the entrance of the sect. The barbarian smacked his lips and glanced at Shiva. He touched the golden leaf in his embroidered robe and laughed. Another dumb rich man. Do you think it's so easy to climb this mountain? The people in the market were very law-abiding. In the past, they still needed people to maintain law and order. However, since Zhang Feng built 2 commercial streets for the people here, the people who used to maintain law and order here had long disappeared. Don't ask why. Where was this place? This is a mountain. Who dared to disobey the rules here? How could this place tolerate him? The only reason he didn't kill him was because of the dean's magnanimity. After bidding farewell to the barbarian merchant, Shiva wandered around the market. He first went to the entrance of the food factory and spent 10 copper coins to buy 10 cigarettes. Only then did he have an idea of what to do. Looking at the winding cement road that led to the top of the mountain, as well as the 30 feet wide mountain gate that was built between the food factory and another mountain valley, he couldn't help but feel even more shocked. The mountain gate was very casual. 2 huge rocks that were about 5 zhang tall had been peeled off from the mountain and leaned against each other. They were then reinforced with bricks and cement to make the mountain gate. Above the mountain gate there were 2 huge rocks. On one side of the mountain gate, there were the words frowning coldly facing thousands of fingers on the other side. On the other side, there was the words bowing head willing to serve children. And at the place where the 2 huge rocks intersected, there was a lifelike stone carving of a white deer. Below the carving were the words White Deer College. The mountain gate looked as if it had been formed naturally. The moment one saw the mountain gate, they could feel its extraordinariness and loftiness. There was a long queue at the gate that had been waiting for a long time. There was a small house at the mountain gate with a sign written on a piece of white paper that said, White Deer College. In the surroundings of this house, there was a group of burly men or men with incomplete bodies. Their eagle-like eyes scanned the bodies of these people back and forth. All of you who are lining up to go up the mountain, listen up. Those who are carrying sharp weapons, those who have bad intentions, and those who can't find out where you live, get lost immediately. If I find out that you're acting strangely, I'll treat you to a cup of tea in the barracks next door. The group of youths who were about to go up the mountain trembled all over when they heard this. Go to the military camp for tea? Who would dare to go? Even if they went, they wouldn't be able to return alive. Shiva kept nodding his head as he watched and listened. After 2 hours, it was finally Shiva's turn. Shiva hurriedly handed over the token. Shiva? Are you for real? Not a Han? The man who was missing an ear and had a scar on his face glanced at Shiva's token and a cold look flashed across his face. Kid, scram immediately for Lao Tzu. How dare you go up the mountain as an outsider? If you dare to pester me again, I'll chop you up. Didn't you see that it's clearly written here? Other than Han people, no one is allowed to go up the mountain. Shiva's expression changed when he heard this. At this moment, the guard who had asked Shiva to go up the mountain had unknowingly appeared behind Shiva. He patted Shiva's shoulder and said, Old son, this is the order of the higher-ups. Let him in. The higher-ups? These people all belong to Nyo Jinda, and only Nyo Jinda dared to order an alien to come up the mountain. The scar-faced man couldn't help but put his fingerprint on Shiva's letter of introduction and threw it to Shiva. Next. Shiva thanked the guard profusely before he happily went up the mountain gate. Standing at the mountain gate, Shiva raised his head and looked at the faintly discernible buildings that were under construction. His heartbeat quickened. White Deer College, I Shiva, am here.